Sup, my fellas, don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. A red light was coming from the tower. The guy was standing in front of the monster. A message popped up that he was connected to the community of the dead. The protagonist repelled the attack. He received messages that they believed in Simon. The protagonist began to scream with an enraged look. He swung his blade. Many birds were flying in the sky. Simon opened his mouth. Grinning, he said that he had not killed so many yet. He received notifications that the viewers felt sorry for him, and if he had a melee weapon, he would have killed everyone. The monsters surrounded the protagonist. Simon unclenched his hand. A golden stone appeared under his hand. Looking at the cube, the protagonist saw a message that Vanessa, sponsored by the constellation, was using her share of ownership to roll the cube of fate. Holding a glass, Vanessa said that she was a regressor. Simon calmly asked if she was completely crazy. Getting up from the table, the protagonist suggested going home since they were drunk. Vanessa took his hand and told him that now was not the time for such a thing and asked him to just listen to her. Looking at her, Simon wondered why she was so serious. A drop of sweat was running down the protagonist's face. He asked if she had something important to say. Vanessa told him with a serious expression that he might not believe her, but a test tower would soon appear on the ground. Simon slammed the table and asked if she was making fun of him because his girlfriend had dumped him. Vanessa, furious, asked him to shut up and listen carefully. She held up 3 fingers and told the protagonist to remember 3 things. First, he should never open the stats window. Second, when he reaches the 6th floor, he should make a contract with the god who looks the worst. She noted that third, when his ability awakens, he should hold his weapon tightly in his hands. Holding his head, the protagonist mentally asked if this was a joke. She showed 3 fingers again and said that she would repeat 3 things. Sitting opposite, she asked that no matter what happened, no matter what they said, he must not open the stat window, even if time was running out, otherwise her time travel would be in vain. Frowning, Vanessa told him that he would be trained until the 5th floor and many gods would ask him to sign a sponsorship contract. He must not agree to anything, be it the god of light, the god of war, who looks cool. Sitting at the table, Vanessa said that before the 6th floor there would be a resting place, and there he must find the most terrible god and make a contract with him. Simon thought that this was definitely a joke. Vanessa slammed the table and screamed that when the protagonist awakens his ability, he must hold a weapon, a sword, an axe, or a spear in his hands. She noted that she would kill him herself if Simon took a staff, a bow, or a sacred object. The surprised protagonist asked why, noting that magic was for real men. Simon imagined himself as a mage and said that if he could throw fireballs, there would be a line of people wanting to make friends. Vanessa, looking displeased, said that he had no talent for magic and that he would have to hit monsters with a staff like a stick because he couldn't cast spells. Simon frowned and cried out that if he couldn't play as a mage, he wouldn't play at all. Bumps appeared on his head. He said that he needed to not open the stats window, not sign contracts, choose the weapon she said, and he would scratch it on his heart. She calmly noted that this was good. A white projection appeared in front of them. Simon saw a notification that the green belt around zone C66,432 had been lifted in accordance with the law. A message popped up that 1 million users had been selected from zone C66,432 and were allowed to ascend to the challenge tower. The protagonist saw a message that if he failed to capture the test tower, his ownership of area C66,432 would be revoked. Simon frowned and asked what was going on and if she was joking. Vanessa was furious. She pointed her finger at her head. The protagonist looked at her lips and thought of 3 things. Simon became serious. He stared at Vanessa and mentally asked if she was really a regressor. A purple aura appeared around Vanessa. Light energy surrounded the room. A portal appeared in front of his face. The protagonist asked him to wait, adding that he still had so much to ask her. Notifications appeared that a secret message had been received. The basic system of the test tower had been changed due to Decree C146231. Now the test tower could force unfair contracts on users, as well as deceive users. The protagonist appeared in a white room and saw a message that he needed to select a weapon to start the battle. Looking around, Simon asked if this was the test tower Vanessa had spoken of. The protagonist saw a notice that his class would be determined based on the weapon he chose and he would only have one chance to awaken his powers. Simon's face was serious. Looking at the list of weapons, the protagonist stated that according to her words, he should choose either a sword or a spear. Simon noted with satisfaction that men use magic. Looking at the staff, the protagonist remembered the words that he would hit everyone with the staff like a stick because he would not be able to use magic. Holding his hand, Simon noted that he would have to forget about it. Looking at the blade, the protagonist saw a message that it was a rusty longsword, too long a sword, so old that it would fall apart at any moment. It can still kill. Simon took the blade in his hands. He looked at the message that asked him to open the stats window and just say stats window out loud. the protagonist saw a notification that the stat window, an extremely useful element when conquering the challenge tower, with its help users can improve their abilities. Simon's face was serious. He saw messages that he would be given 5 stat points. With their help, the user can strengthen himself, and it will also be possible to track the growth of all indicators. Without the stat window, users are limited in obtaining and using skills. He was asked to open the stat window and was told that there were 5 minutes left. Simon raised his head and mentally wondered if this was right. Closing his eyes, he noticed that he had a feeling that he should do this. He asked if this could not be some kind of bad contract. He looked at the message that time was running out. Beads of sweat were running down his face. The protagonist mentally noted that he would not say anything. He saw that there were 10 seconds left. Simon was scared. He wondered whether he should say or not. Simon was dumbfounded. A notification popped up that time was up. The protagonist was taken aback by this. A message popped up that he had not opened the stat window and would be transferred to the challenge tower first floor. Standing in the room, Simon asked if he was alive. He began to be teleported. He saw a bright light. The protagonist read the messages that he refused to open the stat window and received the status of challenger. He will not be bound by the ability enhancement system of the stat window, and the difficulty is set to challenger. He must be careful. Gods can change their names and the original names will be used from the 6th floor. Simon appeared in the dungeon. He read on the projection that he needed to destroy all the enemies in 18 hours. Looking into the distance, the protagonist noted that it was dark there. He started walking and saying that this was just training and everything would be fine. Simon began to swing the blade. Smiling, he asked if there was nothing there and whether he was worried in vain. His face was serious. The protagonist suddenly made a dash. He began to run. He held the blade in front of him. He fell to the ground. Lying on the ground, he said that he almost died. Simon stood up and said that there were traps and that he should move more carefully. He started to feel pulled in the other direction. A cut appeared on his shoulder. Frowning, the protagonist noted that a second after he said to be careful, the goblin pounced on him. Simon dodged its attack. Frowning, the protagonist asked what this time. The goblin was walking towards him and said that he was lucky to have survived the secret attack. Simon saw a sign about a goblin killer. He is a goblin and a killer attacks in the dark. There is a secret attack. A blue aura began to emanate from the goblin. Holding the sword in front of him, Simon thought that he would first try to break the distance and analyze it. The goblin took out a crossbow. Taken aback, the protagonist wondered if it was a crossbow. Holding the sword in his hand, Simon emphasized that the arrow was not from a trap. He rushed at the goblin and noted that he needed to deal with him before he shot. The goblin took aim and noted that it was too late. He fired an arrow from the crossbow. The protagonist dodged the arrow thinking that he would not die so easily. He started running at the monster and thinking that it was bigger than him and there was a chance. Enraged, Simon noted that he would kill him before he reloaded. The goblin attacked him. A scratch appeared on his body. The protagonist swung the blade. The goblin's head fell to the ground. Simon tried to catch his breath. Beads of sweat were running down his face. Looking at the corpse, the protagonist emphasized that there was no time to think that he had killed him. He looked at the dagger and noted that he would take his weapon just in case. Simon bent down to pick up the blade. His mind suddenly became clouded. The protagonist fell to the ground. Looking at the dagger, Simon asked why he felt so bad. Purple energy began to emanate from the blade. The protagonist saw a message that it was a goblin assassin dagger, a rough blade. It was carefully maintained, in good condition and covered in goblin assassin's homemade poison. Simon lay on the ground. The protagonist saw many messages that he had avoided a new trap for the first time and his agility had increased. He had defeated a goblin assassin for the first time and his strength and agility had increased. He had withstood the goblin assassin's poison and had gained the poison resistance skill. Simon was lying on the ground. He opened his eyes. He started coughing up blood. Getting up, the protagonist wondered if he had passed out. Looking at the goblin's corpse, Simon noted that it was close. Squinting, the protagonist wondered how much time was left. Looking at the projection, Simon asked if about 5 hours had passed. The protagonist took the dagger and crossbow. He slung the quiver over his shoulder. Holding the sword in front of him, Simon noted that he would definitely survive. The protagonist continued walking through the dungeon. He stepped on a button on the ground. An arrow flew past his face. Looking around, Simon assumed that dodging had become much easier. He lowered the blade to the ground. He pressed 2 buttons on the ground. The protagonist dodged many shots and noted that the more he dodged, the easier it became. His face was serious. He began to move forward. Simon was taken aback. He saw 2 monsters. Looking at the goblins, the protagonist noted that they did not yet know that he was nearby. Taking up the crossbow, Simon emphasized that he needed to kill at least one to make it easier. He began to pull the arrow. The protagonist began to aim. He backed away. Simon turned around. The monsters began to run at him. Looking at the goblins, the protagonist noted that it was a trap. Having struck, Simon thought that it was too dark there and he needed to move to a bright place. The protagonist stopped under the lanterns. The eyes of the monsters were glowing red. Simon held the sword in front of him and asked himself to calm down. He saw a purple flash. He reflected the arrow. Frowning, he noted that he had been watching. The monsters pounced on him. They swung their weapons. A message popped up that they were a couple of goblins, and even though they were goblins, they were still a couple and always together. Simon was taken aback by this. Dodging the attack, the protagonist noted that he also had a girlfriend until yesterday. The goblin pointed his dagger at him. Simon delivered a powerful blow and said that if he hadn't hit there, he could have gone back to her. He cut the goblin in half. The goblin rolled his eyes. The monster watched this. She began to cry. The protagonist, looking displeased, noted that these were stupid couples. The goblin pounced on him. Simon frowned. He swung his blade and said that being alone is much better. The goblin, with tears in her eyes, said that she couldn't take revenge. Her axe was spinning in the air. The axe fell behind him. The enraged protagonist said that it was her turn. Simon, looking angry, asked if he was dating too. He heard a voice from the darkness that it was a lone goblin. A green aura enveloped his body. The protagonist asked how he could trust a fool like him. Looking into the darkness, he heard a voice that the goblin was serious and should be trusted. Simon smiled and asked to quickly come out so that he could finish him off faster. The goblin began to come out of the darkness. The goblin child began to cry and beg for mercy. The protagonist saw messages that it was a junior goblin, a small and weak goblin, too young to fight and hid in the darkness when scared. The goblin began to cry and beg not to kill him. Looking at him, Simon wondered what he was doing there. Frowning, the child cried out that he was doing his duty. The protagonist asked him if he had decided to call him names, noting that he wanted to let him go. The goblin began to cry. He squatted down and begged for mercy. Surprised, Simon said he would let him go if he answered a question. Turning around, the little monster asked for a question. Lowering his blade, the protagonist clarified what the monster's intentions were. Lying on the ground, the goblin replied that he had to stop the humans and was doing his duty. Grinning, Simon said he did not want to kill the child, but it did not seem like he had a choice. The goblin began to cry. The protagonist approached him and asked if it was true that they were just doing their job. The goblin began to shout loudly that he did not have to do his duty. Taken aback, Simon noted that he said they had to do it. Standing in front of him, he cried out that he did not have to do it. The protagonist noted that he already wanted to hit him. Confused, Simon wondered if he was not part of the assassination mission. The monster began to wave his arms and asked to believe the goblin. The protagonist began to walk towards him, thinking that he could just kill him in the dark. Simon saw a message that there were 10 hours left and that all enemies had to be destroyed. The child closed his eyes and screamed that the goblins weren't lying. The tearful monster asked to believe him. The protagonist held the sword in his hand. He noted that it was okay to wait. Simon stood in front of the goblin. He looked at the projection with the task. Smiling, the protagonist said that he wouldn't kill him. A smile appeared on the goblin's face. A message popped up that saving the younger goblin, the first floor's secret task, the challenger mode, the goblin's secret sorrow task was starting. The plot takes us to the same time, to Vanessa's training. She hid behind a rock. Beads of sweat were running down her face. She saw several goblins. Sitting behind a rock, Vanessa noted that she didn't think that everything would change so much if she didn't open the characteristics window. Biting her lip, she asked Simon to take care of himself. A fireball appeared in her hand. The monster stopped. Vanessa threw a fireball at them and noted that she had not tried so hard to give up now. Pointing his finger, Simon said that he had a condition under which he would spare his life. The protagonist showed his palm and said that he would tie his hands and no objections would be accepted. The goblin agreed with a satisfied look, adding that he was stupid but kind. Simon took the blade and noted that he changed his mind and would kill him. The goblin cried out that he apologized for his words. The protagonist put his fist on his head. Leaving to the corpses, he asked if there was a rope there. Simon saw a rope on the ground and noted that this would do. The protagonist tied the goblin's hands. Looking at him, he asked if the goblin liked it. Taken aback, Simon asked what it was. Frowning, the goblin asked what the man was talking about. He saw a shiny thing on the goblin's neck. The goblin covered it with his hands. The protagonist grabbed him by the throat. He lifted him off the ground and asked, "What do you mean nothing?" Simon took the necklace off his neck. Looking at the pendant, a message popped up that it was the junior goblin's ruby necklace. This necklace was carefully kept by the young goblin. A secret could be hidden in this shining gem. The protagonist asked what it was with a crazy look, noting that it looked expensive. Smirking, Simon said that the goblin would pay them for his life. The upset goblin cried out that he could not take it off. Frowning, the protagonist noted that he would cut off his hands if he interfered. He began to pull the necklace. Holding the goblin by the necklace, the protagonist said that it really could not be removed. Turning away, the goblin asked what he told him. Simon apologized. Looking away, the protagonist stated that the item might fall out if he killed him. The goblin cried out that he would not take the necklace after the goblin died. Smiling, the protagonist noted that it was a joke. Raising the blade, Simon noted that he had already said that he was joking and asked him to go. They moved along the dungeon. Looking ahead, the protagonist asked his name. Frowning, the goblin replied that the goblin's name was Goblin. Turning around, Simon asked him to stop annoying him and tell him his real name. The goblin's face was puzzled. He lowered his gaze. The protagonist seriously emphasized that he reminded him of a character from the films. Waving his hand, Simon said that he would be Dobby. The furious goblin said that he wanted to remain a goblin. Moving on, the protagonist asked what else to expect from a child. Simon lifted his leg. Dobby cried out that there was a trap. Looking at him, the main character asked how he knew. Dobby replied that it was simple. He stated with a satisfied look that goblins can see in the dark. Frowning, Simon wondered if the fool was pretending to be afraid of the dark. Dobby's face was happy. Closing his eyes, the protagonist thought that he had better calm down because he could still be useful. Simon patted him on the head and asked him to immediately say if he saw traps or enemies. Walking through the cave, Dobby said that 2 steps to the left on the floor and 3 steps near the floor, a trap, 5 steps both left and right. Smiling, Simon asked him to move away a little. Frowning, the protagonist noted that it was convenient, but he needed to give it his all. Simon jumped up from the ground. He cut the arrow. The protagonist saw the arrow flying past. Simon dodged all the shots. He thought that the more he dodged, the faster his reaction becomes. Surprised, Dobby said that the protagonist was incredible. Simon stated with a satisfied look that he would be the hope of humanity. Dobby cried out that there were 2 goblin killers and goblin warriors. The protagonist was taken aback by this. Moving on, he asked what was taking so long, noting that they had been walking for 2 hours. Exhausted, Simon asked if there were any enemies. Dobby noted with a smile on his face that they had arrived. Turning around, the protagonist asked again. He saw torches. Simon was walking towards a closed door. Dobby's face was serious. Looking at the door, the protagonist saw a message asking if he wanted to enter the boss's room. Holding the sword next to him, Simon noted that it had been 11 hours since he got there and finally he reached the boss's room. A smirk appeared on the protagonist's face. He saw that he had 7 hours left. Approaching the door, a question arose about whether he wanted to enter the boss's room. Looking to the side, Simon asked that he knew what would happen inside. Looking at him, Dobby replied that the goblin didn't know. Leaning on his sword, the protagonist said that it was suspicious, to which Dobby replied that a man never believed a goblin. Touching the door, the hero said that okay, he did. Frowning, the protagonist thought about the fact that he would have to go in anyway. Blue particles appeared near his hand, and he added that it was enough to be afraid. He had already cleared the entire floor. A notification appeared asking whether he wanted to enter the boss room. Raising his hand, the hero answered that he did. Suddenly, a blue light appeared near them. Then they disappeared. Bubbling lava appeared. A task appeared about the need to destroy all enemies. 6 hours and 58 minutes left. Several goblins appeared in the room. 10 seconds remained until the battle began. Standing in front of a crowd of goblins, the hero asked what the hell. Looking straight ahead, Simon thought that just like that, they will look. Looking at the goblins, he thought that there was 1 goblin in steel armor, 7 goblin warriors with swords, 2 goblin killers with crossbows. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist added that there were only 10. He had only fought 4 at a time. A goblin paladin appeared, who had access to all sacred magic, and the hero said that he had never met such monsters. The hero thought in surprise that madness, a goblin paladin, was nonsense. There were 5 seconds left before the battle began. Clenching his fist tightly, the hero thought that he could handle it calmly, and Dobby shouted that the goblin was hot. There were 3 seconds left before the battle began. Raising his head, the goblin shouted that he was hot, to which the hero said that he was quiet. There was 1 second left before the battle began. Taking up his weapon, Simon thought that the goblins might not touch him. There were 0 seconds left before the battle began. Rushing forward, the protagonist added that he would definitely be finished off if he didn't finish them off himself. Looking at him, Dobby shouted at him to be careful. 2 monsters swung at the hero and shouted for him to die. Looking straight ahead with anger, the hero said that he knew he had to be careful. Firing at the monster, the hero thought that the right one first. Several goblins growled furiously. Gritting his teeth tightly, the protagonist thought that he was too close to shoot a crossbow. Raising the crossbow behind him, he said that he would just throw it. The goblin was struck by the weapon. Swinging his sword, the protagonist said that if he lost momentum, he was finished. Looking back, the protagonist thought that 5 goblin warriors were behind. The hero stood among the corpses of the monsters and added that it was lucky that the paladin did not interfere. Looking to the side, he wondered what then. Suddenly, he rushed forward. The goblin looked straight ahead and made a sound. The hero kicked him sharply. Smiling, Simon greeted him. The goblin responded in surprise. The protagonist abruptly threw him into the lava. The protagonist looked straight ahead furiously. Swinging his sword, the monster shouted that the goblins would take revenge. Having hit him with his sword, the hero wondered what a block and a blow. Looking down, the hero screamed loudly. Black creatures appeared against the background of lava. Dobby said in fear that people are monsters. Then he looked at the hero and added that a man is a real monster. Rolling his eyes, the hero thought about the fact that he put his life on the line to kill them. Looking to the side, he added that he was sitting and watching like a king on a throne. The paladin looked straight ahead with folded arms. The goblin swung his sword, and the hero thought that the danger he was exposing himself to. Suddenly he looked away. Swinging his hand, a question arose about what would simply amuse him. The monsters attacked the hero, shouting about killing a man. Raising his sword, the hero thought that he was so tired of everything. Grabbing the sword with both hands, he added that goblins this, goblins that. Swinging the sword, the hero said that they were the lowest monsters of the fantasy world, let them know their place. The hero lowered the sword and sighed. Looking straight ahead, he said that he was going to die now. Then he frowned slightly. A task appeared about destroying all enemies. There were 6 hours and 53 minutes left. The paladin sat on the throne and looked straight ahead. The armor sparkled in the sun. Then he stood up abruptly and took up the weapon. His eye emitted a glow and he laughed. Looking at the paladin, the protagonist asked if that was too cruel. Holding the sword in his hands, the hero said that he had killed a dozen goblins with this lousy sword, and here he comes, with full health and in cool armor. Looking straight ahead, the paladin said that for a human, he fought well. His eye glowed purple, and he added that only death awaits him with it. Smiling, the hero asked what kind of nonsense he was talking about. Swinging his sword, the paladin shouted that he should prepare to die. The hero flew sharply to the side. Gritting his teeth in fury, the hero wondered what such attacks were. Raising his sword over his head, he added that it was only to his advantage. Swinging, the hero shouted that he should die. Suddenly, the paladin abruptly put his shield in front of him. The hero's sword cracked in half. Dobby said in fear that the man's sword was broken. The paladin looked out from behind the shield a little. Looking at the broken sword, the hero thought that he was finished. The protagonist looked at his weapon in surprise. Looking at the broken part, he thought that the sword was broken. The paladin threw it aside and shouted. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist thought, what the hell, what should he do? Looking at the knife, he added that it was definitely the dagger he had picked up. The hero stood with the dagger in his hands and thought that the goblin was smaller than it seemed, he could handle it. Looking straight ahead, he said, okay, round 2. Swinging his sword, the paladin growled and said that he was a stupid man. The hero deftly dodged his blow. Looking at him, he thought that he had opened himself up. The paladin began to turn around, and the hero added that he would hit him now. Suddenly, the goblin abruptly put his shield in front of him. The hero flew to the side and wheezed. He fell to the ground and slid. The paladin raised his sword above his head. His eye lit up and he said that let the man die, go there. Suddenly, he sharply hit the ground with his sword. Looking at the hero, the paladin said that he should give up. Simon looked straight ahead in fear. Suddenly, the main character rushed to the side. Stretching his sword in front of him, the paladin shouted that it was useless. The hero sharply hit the goblin on the head. The paladin slid back along the ground. Taking him by the head, the hero shouted loudly. Swinging his dagger, the hero added that he should receive. Holding onto the helmet, the hero said that he was a bastard. Striking him, Simon shouted that he was finished. Raising his head, the hero sighed heavily. Then he lay down next to the paladin and said that he had done it. Looking up, he added that he had almost died. He looked to the side in surprise, hearing about the healing. A glow appeared near the paladin's head. Opening his eyes wide, the hero thought that right, he was a paladin. Suddenly the boss started to slowly get up. Looking at this, Dobby shouted that the man, he can still stand, incredible, and the hero wheezed. Raising his sword, the paladin said that the hero is strong, otherwise he would not have even gotten here. Looking straight ahead, the hero said for him to shut up. Holding the blade in his hand, he thought that he should kill him. Blue rays flew around the paladin, and Simon added that the body does not obey. Suddenly the boss started to fall to the side, and the hero was surprised. Looking at the fallen paladin, he asked what was wrong, why he passed out. The characteristics of the goblin assassin's dagger appeared. It was a crude blade, carefully looked after, covered with homemade goblin assassin poison. Picking it up, the hero thought that it was clear. Waving the dagger, the hero laughed and asked why he hadn't guessed right. Lying on the ground, the paladin spoke about removing poison, to which the hero replied that he should just not say that he had a spell for that too. Running up, the hero asked how many more aces he had up his sleeve. He sharply kicked the paladin in the face. Looking at his leg, he thought, damn, too hard. Raising himself, the goblin said that he was a fool. Swinging his weapon, the hero shouted for him to shut up. This is the end. The goblin closed his fingers and wheezed. The hero was breathing heavily, standing over him. Raising both hands up, he shouted that great, he did it. A notification appeared that all enemies needed to be destroyed, 6 hours and 31 minutes left. Looking straight ahead in surprise, the hero asked that it was not all over yet. Taking a step forward, Dobby said something about healing. The hero asked again in amazement. Suddenly, the wounds on his face began to heal. Looking at the hero, Dobby said that the goblin had healed the man. Lowering his head, the hero asked that if he could, then why didn't he do it earlier? Looking straight ahead, the goblin shouted that the man hadn't asked. Holding back his emotions, the hero thought about what was calm. Walking to the goblin, he said that yes, it was his fault, but they still had a problem, to which he asked what it was. Raising his fingers up, the hero said that he had killed everyone, but this window remained, maybe it was him, to which the goblin asked again. Looking at the hero, Dobby said that he was not his enemy, let him believe him, to which he replied that of course he knew, he was just joking. Putting his hand to his face, the protagonist thought about missing someone. There were no other roads. Then what was wrong? He really needed to kill Dobby. An amulet and a goblin appeared, and he added that a strange necklace that he could not pull off, and a younger goblin who did not fit this place at all. The goblin was perplexed, and the hero wondered if there was something hidden in it. Extending his hand to him, Simon said that he should give him the necklace for a while. The goblin angrily said that the necklace was not removed. He was a barbarian, let him not kill Dobby. The main character clenched his fist and said that he should give the necklace or die right now. Dobby moaned in fear. Then he lay down on the ground with the necklace. Approaching him, the hero said that he was much nicer when he obeyed. Taking up his weapon, he said that he should lie like that. The goblin looked at him in fear, hearing that his head could be damaged if he moved. Suddenly, he hit the stone with his sword. The stone cracked into 2 parts. Suddenly, a bright glow began to emanate from the goblin. Covering himself with his hand, he asked if Dobby was okay, and then, squinting, he said the goblin's name. A huge beam of light appeared above him, and the hero called him. Dobby opened his eyes wide and looked up. Looking at him, the hero asked that he was still Dobby. The goblin's legs glowed yellow. Bowing, he said that the goblin Penrick expressed his deepest gratitude. The hero looked at him in surprise and asked again. Suddenly the goblin said something. Looking at him, the hero thought that why he did not understand anything. A notification appeared that he had completed the first floor of training. After summing up the results of the passage, he would be moved to the waiting room, to which the hero happily said that finally, he knew that the matter was in the necklace. The smile disappeared, and he asked that he would be moved to the waiting room. Running back, Simon shouted that no, he had not yet picked up the shield. Notifications appeared that all enemies needed to be destroyed. The secret task of the mountain race of goblins was completed. The total score of the passage, and the main character asked that they at least understand how much effort it took him to defeat him. They want to leave him without items, go to the second floor with bare hands. The goblin paladin's shield appeared. It was a good shield, strong, stored holy power, opened access to the skill, level 2 healing, and the hero thought, wow, it even gives healing, this goblin played dirty. A message appeared that as a reward for completing the secret quest of the goblin race, the goblin Dobby would join the hero to clear the tower. The protagonist hugged the shield and said that the shield, a beautiful shield, was now his. Squinting his eyes, the goblin wondered what he was doing with the corpse. Looking away, the hero asked to wait, said that he had completed the secret quest, and the reward was only Dobby, not a very fair exchange. Raising his hands up, he shouted that the threat to his life was worth 1 goblin. Let him answer, damn system. There was a transfer to the waiting room. Through the blue particles, the hero asked that he at least know what he had been through. Notifications appeared that he had defeated the goblin paladin. Agility and endurance were increased by 3. He had passed the boss room. All characteristics were increased by 2. Pain threshold, regeneration, tenacity, combat concentration were increased to the 2nd level due to the contract of the 1st rank constellation 9 celestial bodies. The shackles binding the 5th rank constellation Golden Light were destroyed. The first floor of the test tower was passed. A transfer to the waiting room occurred. The hero appeared in the room. A notification appeared that he had been transferred to the waiting room, where he could satisfy his hunger and rest. Clenching his fist tightly, the hero said that the reward sucks, but at least he was alive. Holding a shield in his hand, he asked that they really heal after appearing in the waiting room. He feels great. It was written that he can now enter into contracts with first-class constellations. Users can receive support in the form of achievement points or abilities by entering into contracts with constellations. Constellations will be very useful in conquering the tower. The hero lowered his head and asked, what this time? Suddenly, a menu appeared in front of him. He looked at the inscriptions that the first-class constellation, the heavenly demon Cogmos, offers to sign a contract. The first-class constellation, the sword god who divided the galaxy, offers to sign a contract with him. The first-class constellation, the lover of steel lava, offers to sign a contract with him. The first-class constellation, the echo of the angry skies, offers to sign a contract with him. Frowning, the hero thought that he would now sign a contract with the first class, and then the 5th constellations would appear. There were only scammers here, it would be better to wait for the 5th floor. Food appeared on the table. It was written that the 2nd floor of the test tower, 11 hours and 57 minutes left until the start, a request to rest. Looking at the food, the hero said that a lot of time had passed since he found himself in the tower. The goblin, looking at him, shouted for him to give him water. Turning around, the hero asked what was going on. He was in the waiting room with him, to which he replied that he should give him bread. Smiling, the hero said that okay, he tried hard, offered to eat together. He told him to hold on, and the goblin should eat all the bread. Looking at his fingers, the hero thought. Looking at the goblin, he asked that it was definitely a goblin and not a pig. It was good that bread and water could be had as much as he wanted. Chewing his food, Simon asked what he was talking about in the boss's room. Turning around, Dobby muttered something unintelligible, and he replied that he should swallow it first. Looking at the goblin, the hero asked that there was some kind of god there, to which he replied that yes, Penric was sealed. The hero asked in surprise that there was a god in the necklace, to which he replied that the goblin did not know. Looking up, the protagonist said that he wondered where he got the decoration with the sealed god from. Holding bread in his hand, Dobby replied that the goblin was a constellation, a sacred artifact of Penric. Looking away, the hero asked that Dobby was a constellation, and he saved the goblin god. Smiling, the goblin said exactly what. Penric thanks the man, the goblin follows the man. Looking up, the hero thought that he could not believe it, to receive only a Dobby for saving the god. Lying on the bed, the protagonist thought that the difficulty was too high. If he were a wizard, he would not have passed the first level. Chewing food, the hero added that really, the difficulty level changes depending on the class, but it is still damn hard. Closing his eyes, the hero thought that he wondered how Vanessa was. Looking at the ceiling, he thought that well, she is a regressor, she will probably cope better than him. A notification appeared that the constellation of the first rank, the owner of 5 wheels, offers to conclude a contract. The girl sat on the bed and thought that before the time travel, they had made a contract on the 5th floor, and now he was on the 1st floor, and his rank had dropped, had the time travel weakened him. Looking straight ahead, the girl said that he had become weaker because of them, apologized to him and thanked him. Slightly opening her mouth, she added that they would prove it. A blue glow appeared in front of her, and she finished that he had a good reason to believe in them. Messages appeared that she had been moved to the testing tower, 2nd floor, 2nd stage of training. She needed to destroy all enemies. There were 9 hours and 59 minutes left. The hero and the goblin appeared in the cave. Looking around, the hero thought that so, they would see how it was different from the 1st floor. Looking at the fork, Simon thought that it was a little lighter here, and there were 2 paths. The timer had decreased by 8 hours, so the choice was important. Looking at the goblin, the hero asked him where they should go, to which he asked again, and the hero said that he should ask his brother which path to take. Raising his hands, Dobby shouted that Penric would not tell about this. Lowering his head, the hero asked what and where he would go. Running, the goblin shouted that he would go left. Looking at him, the hero thought, okay, they'll go left, he should obviously be better at navigating than him. Suddenly, the main character thought about it. Looking at the goblin, he thought that if he thought about it, he even felt sorry for him. He was a priest, so he would have to protect him constantly. He should have taken the paladin's armor, now he could only feel sorry for him. Walking forward, the hero said that there could be traps here, let him not run ahead of him, to which he replied that it was good. After some time, the hero asked if they were definitely going the right way. Following him, Dobby replied that he should trust the goblin, to which he replied that he wanted to trust him, but they hadn't found anything in 20 minutes. The goblin angrily said that the man was too distrustful. Turning around, the hero apologized for the fact that it was hard to trust him, to which he replied that he was a rude person. Looking straight ahead, the hero thought about the tunnel getting steeper. Stepping on the slab, the hero said that this was definitely the wrong road. They were going back. Looking back, Simon shouted that it was a trap, be careful. Bending down, the hero said that the arrows weren't flying, asked that it was broken. Suddenly, Dobby screamed in fear. Smiling broadly, the hero asked that he wasn't mistaken, that it wasn't what he thought, and then laughed. Suddenly, a huge stone rolled out. Simon and Dobby looked at it in fear. Running forward, the hero shouted for the goblin to run. The second passage of the 2nd floor of Vanessa. Going to the fork, the girl said that there are 2 paths on the 2nd floor, usually in such a situation. Putting her hand to her face, she said that it was better to go right. Going forward, the girl said that because she simply did not open the characteristics window, the training became much more difficult. The girl walked forward. Suddenly she lowered her head and thought, I wonder if everything is okay with the hero. If he chose a melee weapon, then defeating the boss will be more difficult. Wait, why is she even worried about him? Putting the mug on the table, The girl turned to the hero. Smiling, she said that her congratulations, he finally broke up with her. Sitting in front of the hero, Vanessa said that although she was the one who dumped him, but all's well that ends well, she heard that she cheated on him. Lowering her head, the hero said that he knows he's an idiot, but he still likes her. The drink poured into the glass, and he added that apparently he really loved her, and now he misses her. Funny, really. The girl clenched her teeth. She began to drink, to which the hero asked in surprise, "What's wrong with her? Stop drinking in one gulp." The girl angrily said that he was just an idiot, and because of this she wants to get drunk, to which he responded. Holding the staff in her hand, the girl said that damn Simon doesn't even understand how worried she is about him. Gritting her teeth, she thought of the hero's name. Taking a step forward, she added that he should not die. Suddenly, a growling monster appeared in front of her. Glaring at him furiously, she said that an orc appeared so quickly. Yellow beams appeared around her. She used concentration. Frowning, the girl looked forward. Putting her hand forward, she said about a fireball. Holding his face, the monster screamed at her that he would kill her. Opening his mouth wide, he added that he would show her the power of an orc. A fist flew into his face and he wheezed. Smiling, the girl told him to shut up. Then she thought about what she needed. Rushing forward, she thought about telling him something, and then said that they would see each other on the 6th floor. The hero ran straight ahead and shouted that he had told him that this was not the way. The goblin ran away from the stone and shouted. Turning around, the hero thought that his legs were too short. Throwing his hands back, Simon shouted for the goblin to jump on his back. Having jumped, he said okay. Suddenly, they abruptly disappeared. Opening his mouth wide, the hero shouted that he should stop grabbing like that, and he shouted that it was scary, let him save him. Rushing forward, the hero shouted that when they got out of here, he would be finished. The goblin grabbed the hero tightly, and he shouted that the stone was already close. Squinting his eyes, the hero thought that he needed to run faster, let him concentrate. Raising his hands up, Dobby shouted that they would soon die because of the man. Looking back, the goblin added that he would curse him, to which he replied that it was his own fault, he was tired of living. The hero made a face and told Dobby to hold on tight. He added that he was ready, bending his knees. A blue light appeared behind him. The goblin screamed that he was going to throw up, to which he replied that he should hold on a little longer, damn it. Suddenly, they fell to the ground. The hero wheezed while at the fork in the road. The goblin joyfully asked about being alive, to which Simon replied that he shouldn't talk to him, he was tired. The goblin stretched his arms forward and said about regeneration. Healing particles flew around the hero. Looking at his hand, the hero said that damn, he was acting like an idiot, but his abilities were great. He stroked the goblin's head and thanked him. Smiling, Dobby said that he was also grateful to the man. Smiling widely, the hero thought that he now seemed nice to him and then suggested that they go on the right side this time. Turning to the side, Dobby said that they would go left. Looking at him, Simon asked what he had forgotten, that they had just run away from the stone from that path, to which the goblin replied that they were going left. Sighing, the hero asked what was wrong with him. It was dangerous there. Looking at the cheerful Dobby, the hero thought that maybe there was another secret task there and he could get something more useful than him. Walking along the tunnel, the goblin shouted that it was left, and the hero said that okay, they would go left. Grinning, the hero thought that he would trust him one last time. It seemed that all the enemies needed to be destroyed. There was 9 hours and 21 minutes left. Sighing heavily, the hero said that after everything he had been through. Looking at the stone, Simon said that they would go back, he would not be angry with him. Taking a step back, the hero said that everything was fine, they would go down. Suddenly the goblin pressed the plate. A passage opened in front of them. Gritting his teeth, the hero said that he was small. Hugging Dobby, he said that he did a great job. Looking up, the hero was surprised. A glowing weapon appeared and he said that it looked cool. The lightning mace of a mighty orc warrior appeared. Old but luxurious, the mace is covered with the power of lightning. The owner is not susceptible to lightning damage. Approaching the mace, the hero said that this is a bonus. Suddenly a terrible orc appeared. Clenching his fists, he screamed loudly. Frightened, looking away, the hero thought that he was finished. A notification appeared that he had discovered a secret quest on the 2nd floor of the test tower, the forgotten tomb of the mighty orc warrior Edgar. This will be taken into account in the final count. The great orc warrior Edgar appeared. His eyes glowed red. Waving his hand, he screamed loudly. Frowning, the hero thought about what he would do. Standing in front of the orc, he thought about the fact that the mace was closer to Edgar, so. The orc looked at the mace, and the hero thought that damn, this monster would take it. The orc suddenly rushed straight. Blue beams appeared in front of him and he screamed. Looking at the lightning, Edgar growled loudly. Opening his eyes in fear, the hero thought about how this brainless giant could use a weapon. The mace emitted blue lightning. Holding the shield in his hand, Simon thought that he would not dodge, it would be better to fight back. The mace approached the shield. Having struck, many lightning bolts appeared around. The hero abruptly jumped to the side. Looking straight ahead, he thought about the fact that the advantage was clearly not on his side. Gripping the shield tightly, he added that this bastard was stronger and faster. The electricity hit his hand, it was still shaking. The hero frowned and thought that he couldn't drag out the fight and would have to attack first. Suddenly Simon rushed towards the monster. Lightning was radiating from the mace and the hero thought that he would miss this blow. Looking straight ahead furiously, the hero added that he could attack after that too. The mace crashed into the shield. The hero raised his head and thought about electricity. The orc swung his hand at him and the hero was surprised. Suddenly he struck him and Simon wheezed. The hero flew to the side and the orc screamed loudly. Falling to the ground, Simon thought that it hurt like hell, he would have to heal. The goblin paladin's shield appeared. It was a good shield. Strong, it stored holy power, opened access to the healing skill, level 2. Watching the battle, the goblin shouted that healing magic did not work. Looking out from behind the wall, Dobby wished him luck. Looking at him furiously, the hero shouted that he was a useless brat. He was mocking him. Let him come closer and heal, to which he replied that he was a scary person. The orc waved his hands in front of the hero, and he was surprised. Gritting his teeth, he thought that okay, I'll have to figure it out myself. Looking at the orc, he wondered how he could defeat such a monster. Strength, speed, equipment, he was losing in everything. Edgar swung his mace and shouted. Remembering his blows, the hero thought that the only thing that was noticeable was that his attacks were predictable. Starting to run towards the orc, the hero thought that there was no choice, he would have to take a risk. Swinging his weapon, the hero addressed him. Raising his sword, he shouted for him to come here. Gritting his teeth, the hero said that a bunch of dumb muscles, a damn overgrown one, is afraid of him, afraid, the bastard. Edgar swung his mace and shouted loudly. Lowering his head, Simon thought that great, the provocation worked from the first attack. Edgar raised the mace behind his back. The protagonist dodged the blow and added that he would dodge. Crouching, the hero thought that this was not enough. Having hit the orc with his sword, the hero thought that when the enemy makes wide movements, he has a chance to counterattack. The orc began to bleed, and Simon thought that it was just a scratch. Edgar began to run towards the hero. The protagonist ran in the opposite direction and shouted that he was scared. Looking away, the hero asked the goblin to distract him. Dobby asked him again in surprise. Looking at him angrily, the hero thought that he was useless. The orc began to furiously catch up with the hero, to which he thought, okay, no time to get upset, they wouldn't even notice him anyway. Edgar furiously swung his mace. Looking away, Simon thought, that's it. Standing in front of the orc, he added that this is exactly the distance at which he uses such an attack. Covering himself with a shield, the hero thought that he would block it, but not completely. Lightning flew from the mace, and he added that at the moment when the shield and mace touch. Looking furiously at the monster, the hero finished that he would push the shield forward and deflect the mace. The orc raised his weapon over his head, and the hero thought that Edgar would have to raise his hand and he would take advantage of this moment. The mace rushed forward, and the protagonist thought that the next move should be a strong blow downwards after a step back. The weapon struck the ground. The monster looked at the weapon, and the thought arose in the hero's head that he would try to perform the next move. The hero's leg rose and he added that at that moment too. Flying up, the hero looked at the orc. Stretching his hand forward, Simon shouted that the damn monster. Edgar raised his head in bewilderment. Having hit the monster, the hero thought that it was all over. Spitting out blood, the monster screamed. The hero looked at the corpse of the monster. Dobby ran up to him and asked if he was okay, to which he replied that he had only now decided to get out. Showing 2 fingers up, the goblin said that the man was incredible. Looking at him, Simon said that yes, it was his own fault, what else could one expect from him? The goblin asked in surprise why the man was saying that. A message appeared that he had defeated the mighty warrior Edgar, who had been possessed by a demon. This would be reflected in his final score. The lightning mace of the mighty orc warrior Edgar appeared. It was old but luxurious. The mace was covered with the power of lightning. The owner was not susceptible to lightning damage. Smiling, the hero said that it fits perfectly in his hand. Looking to the side, Dobby said that the man's weapon was cool. Turning around, Simon replied that his was also nothing special. Holding a sword in his hand, the goblin asked if it was true, to which he thought, let him forgive, he just threw away this sword. Looking down, the goblin told him to take care of himself. There was an orc ahead. Suddenly, several monsters appeared in front of the hero. A crowd of orc warriors appeared. They were brave, they stink, if they catch him, it's bad. The hero raised his weapon and asked what they were attacking him after the secret boss. He abruptly slipped between the monsters. The orc opened his mouth wide. The monsters looked at each other and were surprised. The hero raised his weapon over his head. Looking at the weapon, he thought that holy tomatoes, this mace was just the bomb. The monsters looked at the hero in fear, and he thought that it seemed like the advantage was now on his side. Taking hold of the shield, the hero thought that maybe he should check if there was another secret task. Looking at them, the hero asked if they wanted to live. The orc furiously shouted that the man should die, and the hero thought that apparently the only hidden item was the mace. The main hero clenched his teeth. Lightning appeared around him and he shouted that then they would die. Looking straight ahead, the hero asked where they should go next, to which he replied that they were going to the right. Simon smiled and said that was great, then they would go, to which he asked that the man would not ask why to the right. Looking at him, the protagonist said that he simply trusted him. Dobby sighed heavily. Rushing forward, the goblin shouted that he was a stupid man. Dobby should have been trusted from the very beginning. Running after him, the hero heard that Dobby was going first, to which he replied that he should not be stupid. He said that it was dangerous. After that, there were 4 more battles. The hero swung his mace furiously. A thought appeared that he wondered how Vanessa was doing. The girl looked angrily forward. Raising his head, the hero said that although Vanessa looked down and said that Simon was very talented. The hero thought that he was probably doing great. The protagonist looked to the side. It was written that all enemies needed to be destroyed. There were 4 hours and 57 minutes left. The question arose whether he wanted to enter the boss's room. The protagonist and the goblin approached a huge door. Looking straight ahead, the hero asked if Dobby was ready, to which he responded. Gritting his teeth, the hero said yes. Suddenly they disappeared. There was a crowd of orcs in the boss room. The orc warriors turned to look at the hero and goblin who had appeared. It was written that all enemies had to be destroyed. There were 4 hours and 56 minutes left, and 10 seconds until the battle began. Looking at the orc with a staff, the hero thought that they were screwed. That orc looked like a magician. Would they really have to start with him? There were 8 seconds left until the battle began. Looking to the side, the protagonist thought that but then 2 orc warriors would remain on Dobby. There were 4 seconds left until the battle began. Dobby looked up questioningly. The hero thought that he would only get in the way, and the goblin shouted that he felt that the man was thinking badly. Holding the shield and mace in his hand, the protagonist thought about what to do now, what option to choose to deal with everyone. There were 2 seconds left before the battle began. Frowning, the hero thought, okay, he will protect Dobby first, he is a priest after all. There are 0 seconds left before the battle begins. The battle begins. Standing in front of the orcs, the hero thought, let them attack. He looked forward furiously. The monsters grabbed their weapons tightly. Frowning, Simon wondered what was happening, why they froze. The paladin sat on the throne and looked straight ahead. Looking to the side, the paladin shouted that they were attacking now. His head was cut off and he said that with them. He began to slowly fall down. Watching this, the hero asked what was happening, why they killed their own. Dobby, opening his eyes in surprise, said that because of Edgar. Looking at him, the hero asked again, and then said that he should just not say that they would let him through because of his weapon in his hands. A congratulation appeared that they had cleared the 2nd floor of the testing tower, and a movement to the waiting room occurred. The monster fell to his knees. There were 4 hours and 55 minutes left. All enemies were defeated. Raising his hand, the orc said that the Liberator, they greet the Liberator. It was written about the secret quest, the forgotten grave of the mighty orc warrior Edgar completed, the bloodless origin of the boss room. Achievements will be taken into account in the overall score of the passage. Someone was carrying the monster's corpse from the throne. All the orcs bowed before the hero. Gritting his teeth, Simon said, Dobby, Edgar, or whoever it was, can you explain in a little more detail? A notification appeared that he had defeated Edgar, the orc warrior who had lost his soul, strength, agility, and endurance had increased by 4, the secret task had been completed, all stats had increased by 2. Pain threshold had reached level 3, regeneration had reached level 3, resistance to electricity had reached level 2, tenacity had reached level 5, and combat focus had reached level 5. Simon stood next to Dobby. Completing the secret task, the forgotten grave of the mighty orc warrior Edgar, had opened an additional optional task, free the orcs. Additional tasks were more difficult than the usual secret tasks, and the hero looked at the lava. Then he said that Edgar himself was difficult, and the additional task would be even harder. The guy thought that on the other hand, he cannot trust what the testing tower says. First, it provoked him to kill Dobby. Then it slipped a trap, because of which they could miss the secret task. After the time is up, he will not be able to change his choice. If he wants to refuse the additional secret task and move to the 3rd floor, let the waiting room say, time remaining, 3 seconds. Time remaining, 2 seconds. The protagonist closed his eyes and thought that high risk, high reward. Then he shouted to Dobby for them to go. Dobby shouted that the goblin is coming. The secret task to free the orcs begins. Time left, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. The hero and the goblin walked forward. Simon looked at the man and thought that he was pushing a stone on level ground. Then he thought that they did not even give any explanation. The secret task to free the orcs, time left, 46 minutes 51 seconds. The hero looked at the creature and thought that it was the orc liberator. It flashed through his mind that so he was not an enemy. Simon turned to the goblin and asked if he knew who he was. Dobby threw up his hands. The man said that he was the liberator. He asked if he could hold him for a while. He needed to rest. The hero asked who he was. The man answered that it was Joseph. The guy asked why he was holding him and that he should just let go. Joseph answered that then the weight would be lost. The protagonist said that he could just jump to the side, and how could he trust him at all? The man remained silent. Simon asked Dobby if this was some kind of test from the tower. The goblin's eyes widened. The hero said that it was stupid to ask. Secret mission orc liberator, time left 43 minutes 37 seconds. Simon said that he would first inspect the passage and then hold it. Joseph remained silent. The hero threw his weapon on the ground and cursed. He stood next to the man and said that he could handle it, he could let him go. Then he thought that Joseph laughed. It was better not to agree. The guy looked ahead. His face tensed. His legs trembled and he thought that this was a trap, and did he really have to sacrifice himself to free the orcs? If he was distracted for even a second, the stone would crush him. The hero bared his teeth. Joseph thanked him with a smile and called him his dear savior. Simon thought that he was a bastard. The guy continued his thought that he couldn't even answer. The man put his hand on his shoulder and told him to stand still for just a second and never let him go. The protagonist thought angrily that he had enough of mocking him. He thought that he would just let himself be crushed. Joseph called the goblin and told him to go. Dobby ran happily. Simon looked at the guys walking away hand in hand and thought about where they were going, and that Dobby had betrayed him. His body was shaking and the guy thought that he should not leave. He needed help. The stone was cracking from the tension. Simon's eyes widened. A moment later he screamed. The hero tensely thought that he was going to die now. Secret mission orc liberator, time left 42 minutes 31 seconds. The protagonist tensely called Dobby. Secret mission orc liberator, time left 23 minutes 54 seconds. The protagonist thought that 20 minutes had passed. Why was no one returning? Joseph appeared in front of the hero. He said that he had tried very hard and called him a liberator. Dobby joyfully shouted that the man was great. Joseph continued that before he had only held the yoke of life, but thanks to him he would be able to carry it forward. Then he said that he would definitely repay his kindness. The man stood next to the hero and thanked the liberator. He said that now the guy could let go and the hero fell to the floor. Necklace of Joseph's will, necklace given to the liberator by Joseph, unknown power contained in dark green camp, tenacity plus 5 levels, combat focus plus 5 levels. The protagonist thanked him, to which he replied what for what, and that it was a reward for his good intentions. He did not have this ring before, and did he really want to take it from that passage? The hero told Dobby to go. A moment later, the guy turned around. The hero said that he had just moved, and did Dobby see? The goblin asked what he was talking about. Simon asked what he imagined. Additional secret task completed. The result will be counted instead of passing the 3rd floor. After the counting, they will be moved to the waiting room. The guy told Dobby to wait. Simon began to push the stone. He bared his teeth from the effort. Joseph looked at him in bewilderment. The hero thought that if he could help him even a little, he screamed. The man thanked the dear liberator with a smile and said to be sure to survive until the moment when he could repay him. Simon asked again, confused. The orc liberator additional secret quest has been completed. Despite his weakness, he challenged the overwhelming. Additional achievements will be taken into account. 17,432 points have been added to his account. Total points 44,108. Moving to the waiting room. Dobby and the hero were falling somewhere. Additional secret quest completed. Strength, agility, and endurance increased by 3. Bloodless victory in the boss room. Strength and agility increased by 2. Combat concept level 8. Tenacity level 8. Sixth sense level 5. Due to the contract of the 1st rank constellation 9 celestial bodies, the shackles binding the 5th rank constellation Joseph's will of protection have been destroyed. He successfully passed the 3rd floor of the test tower, moving to the waiting room. After passing the 3rd floor, he gained access to the ranked list of conquerors in the community. There were pixels around the hero and Dobby's bodies. Until the transition to the 4th floor is 9 hours 59 minutes, it is recommended to rest. Simon lowered his head and clenched his fists. Then he joyfully shouted that they did it. Dobby joyfully shouted that a person, water. Simon told him to wait, and shouldn't he drink after him? Now he has access to contracts with constellations of the 2nd and 3rd classes. Constellation of the 3rd class Endless Waves of Water offers him a contract. Constellation of the 3rd class Furious Spear that cuts through tsunamis offers him a contract. Constellation of the 1st class Goddess of Fire offers. Constellation of the 2nd class Lord of the Mighty Skies offers him a contract. He looked at the notifications and thought that he would rather eat. Then the hero's eyes widened. Dobby shouted that the goblin will eat everything, and it is possible after all. Simon answered with a smile that no, it is impossible. Rank. The protagonist looked at the ranking list of conquerors. The notification asked if he wanted to make his account public. The protagonist answered that he didn't. The protagonist exhaled and said that Vanessa was definitely fine. Then he continued with a smile that although he should worry more about himself, Dobby called the protagonist. He continued angrily that why would a person hit himself, it would be better for Dobby to hit him. Simon was lying on the floor. His eyes widened. The protagonist hit the goblin thinking that he could get on his nerves. The protagonist asked why the person in 4th place only had 802 points, where did he get 43,000, and why were the others on the 5th floor. Simon grabbed his hand thinking that now he could use the community and said the word community. There were messages in the community that Simon was in 1st place, and on the 4th floor, priests and mages had only one fight to get to the 4th floor. Are they kidding me? Does anyone know what will happen on the 5th floor for a melee fighter? He almost died from an orc warrior on the 4th. The hero thought that the orc warrior was on the 4th floor, and why did he fight with the great orc warrior already on the 2nd? Simon said that they were probably lying. The notification said that Vanessa sent him a new message, and whether to accept it, the protagonist angrily screamed that yes. The message said that he had passed the 3rd floor, now he can send messages with the power of thought. Simon replied that yeah, something like that. He found a secret task on the 2nd floor and moved straight to the 4th. The girl asked in shock about the secret task and said that he was great and tired. The girl continued that she didn't think that training without the stats window would be so difficult. The hero thought that training was more difficult without the stats window. The hero asked why his training was a little harder. The girl replied that it wasn't a little. Even she gave up on the 2nd floor boss. No one else could have handled it. Vanessa apologized and said that it was her fault. She really couldn't, but instead she would help in another way. The hero replied that everything was fine and that he shouldn't apologize. Simon was scared, thinking that even the regressor couldn't handle it. Then he laughed and thought that it looked like he was lucky with the secret task. Dobby said that the man had a strange face. The girl asked what his score was and said that she had 7,400 points. The guy replied that he had 44,000. Vanessa asked again in shock. The guy answered affirmatively. Vanessa said that it seemed that in close combat he fought on a completely different level. Simon asked what she was talking about. The girl said to forget it, there is no point in explaining. Good job, they will use the points to good use after the 4th floor when the store opens for him. The guy answered, well, okay, by the way, if advice about the 4th floor. Vanessa answered that she only read a few messages about it, so she is not sure. Simon asked where she read it, to which the girl replied that she would tell when they meet and how much time he has left. There are 9 hours and 14 minutes left before the transition to the 4th floor. It is recommended to rest. The hero answered that about 9 hours, to which the girl said then to rest, then they will talk, and that he should not get sick. The guy answered that it is good, and that he should not worry, and thought that he will have to search in the community himself. Vanessa said not to sit in the community until they were blue in the face. Simon wondered how she had guessed. The girl continued that they would see each other on the 6th floor. The guy replied that okay, and all the best to her. The hero turned to Dobby and asked who Colin was. Dobby angrily shouted that the goblin, the constellation, had lost. Colin did not know. Simon replied that he had lost the constellation, and maybe Colin had sealed Penric. Dobby shouted that he did not know. Dobby had not yet been born. The protagonist asked why he believed in Penric then. Dobby raised his paws and replied that suddenly, Penric's voice, the necklace, Penric, the god of goblins, appeared in the goblin's head. The hero replied that he did not understand anything. Then he continued that there were 2 more floors to go to the 6th floor. There was 1 hour and 3 minutes left before moving to the 4th floor. It was recommended to rest. The hero lay on his back. Entrance to the community. The conquerors are not their rivals. They know it. They have lost the planet. If they fail, it is hardly a joke, since they were put in this strange tower, and let them unite and not deceive each other. People began to write that it is real. The training is very simple. Maybe the whole tower will be the same, and they will also become gods of the earth. Teams are needed for weaklings, so let them say that they are afraid to conquer it themselves. The hero pursed his lips. The 4th floor of the test tower. Welcome to the 4th level of training. Simon said that this time it is a descent. The protagonist turned around and said that in the other direction there is an ascent. The notification said that he should escape and that there is 1 hour and 59 minutes left. The hero stopped. He thought about it, and a moment later something fell on his head. He ran forward with thoughts, and what now? A speed test. He tensely continued the thought that he needs to concentrate. The notice said to run away and that there was 1 hour 38 minutes left. There was 1 hour 27 minutes left. There was 1 hour 11 minutes left. The protagonist ran and thought what the hell, and whether he was doing everything right. He thought that maybe there was a secret mission there and that something was rolling after him. He turned around and thought that it could be an illusion. Simon continued to think that he didn't care. There was no time to hesitate. He ran too long. The protagonist squinted and continued to think that his head was splitting. Something exploded. It was written above him that it was the finish. The hero asked again in bewilderment. The board said that they were congratulating him. The 4th training was completed. He would be transferred to the waiting room after the points were counted. Time remaining, 1 hour and 8 minutes. He successfully escaped. Bonus points added. 3,208 bonus points earned. Total score 47,316. He did not take a single step back. No traps were activated. 2,000 bonus points earned. Total score 49,316. Moved to the waiting room. Simon asked in shock, what was that all about? Then continued with a smile that he always relied on Dobby for things like this. Simon was incredible. He fixed his hair with a smile. A voice shouted for Vanessa to just wait. The hero happily said that he would lead her forward. Not a single step back. He has an unwavering will. Tenacity level 9, 6th sense level 8. The shop is now available to him. He can make contracts with class 4 constellations. Dobby shouted at the protagonist that he was bored. The hero replied that he did not have time to play with him. Then he continued that there were less than 4 hours to the next floor, 3 hours and 59 minutes left until the 5th floor. It was recommended to rest. Dobby frowned and said that the goblin could not see anything, did not want to play as he wanted. The hero said that he could not see anything and apologized. Vanessa sent him a message. Simon said that it was just in time and opened the message. The girl happily said that he had passed the 4th floor and that he had done a great job. Simon replied that he thanked her. It seemed that she had already coped with the 5th and that she had been keeping an eye on the ranking list. Vanessa replied that she was looking at it in the waiting room and what his score was now. The guy said that he had about 49,000 points and did not find a secret task on the last level. The girl said that he had done a great job. Their lives were much more valuable than points. By the way, to get into the real tower, all conquerors must complete their training. Then she continued that the passage further is blocked until everyone completes the training. The community is torn apart because of him. The guy asked again what she was talking about. Simon said the community. There were messages that damn Simon, how can he be in first place on the list, if only on the 5th floor? Because of this asshole the floors are blocked. He is a priest or some kind of magician. Maybe he is waiting for some kind of awakening on the 5th floor, or looking for Easter eggs. After all, he is in first place by points. He will see him on the 6th floor. He will teach him a lesson. The protagonist said that, oh my god. The girl told the hero to go to the store and buy a lightning essence. The guy asked again and said a second. He said the store. Then he continued that there is so much here, so lightning essence. Lightning essence, price 45,000 points. The girl asked what he is waiting for and let him buy it already, and also a body strengthening potion for the remaining 3,000. The guy thought she was scaring him and said okay, just buy it. Vanessa repeated that she also had a body strengthening potion. The guy said he understood. 2 items appeared in front of the heroes. Lightning essence, the only one, contains the power of lightning. The power of lightning is not connected with the constellations. The level of absorption depends on the user's abilities. Body strengthening potion, a limited edition item, an infusion that strengthens the conqueror's body. The level of absorption depends on the user's abilities. Vanessa told the protagonist to first drink the body strengthening potion, and then the lightning essence, and that he should remember this. The guy said okay. Then he repeated that he just needed to drink this. The girl said yeah, go ahead. The hero said okay and opened the bottle. He drank the contents. A moment later, his eyes widened. He looked at the bottle and thought that his eyes were sticking together. Then he fell face down on the table. He thought that he needed to drink everything. Dobby screamed that the man was fine. He used the body fortification decoction. All physical characteristics were improved. The candidate status was confirmed. The limitations of the body fortification decoction were lifted. All physical characteristics were noticeably improved. He used the lightning essence. His body was charged with the power of lightning. After using the body fortification decoction, the absorption level was noticeably improved. The candidate status was confirmed. The limitations of the body fortification decoction were lifted. The absorption level was noticeably improved. The board said that he needed to get at least 1 enlightenment. 5 hours and 52 minutes left. The hero's eyes widened. He turned around and asked what this place was and how much time had passed. Simon called Dobby. The hero silently looked at the stars. He said that he needed to go through everything himself again. Then he continued, what does it mean to get enlightenment, and that some special combat intuition or enlightenment of oneself. He squeezed his hand and thought about what he was supposed to do here. The hero looked at his hand and it flashed through his mind that he felt some kind of power for a moment. The protagonist put his hand to his face and said that it was so. There was no time to think about it. What kind of enlightenment was that? He closed his eyes and continued that in the tower all he did was fight. Then he thought that maybe there was something special about the battle with Paladin or Karaksh. Their images appeared before his eyes. The hero thought that he always saw the actions of his enemies and moved as efficiently as possible. But there was one detail. He never lowered his guard, even if he was stronger than the enemy. In battle, everything depends on instant decision making. The scoreboard said that he had 5 hours and 52 minutes left to get at least one enlightenment. Simon put his hand behind his head and said that he had guessed wrong. He pursed his lips and thought that he had another thought during the conquest. The tower gave many choices and Vanessa helped him, but in the end, he was the one making the decisions, and he would have to bear responsibility for them. He thought that this counted as enlightenment. The remaining time is 0 minutes. He received enlightenment. He was congratulated on completing the 5th floor and will be moved to the waiting room after scoring. He received 4,000 points. The total score is 5.16 points. Moving to the waiting room, the protagonist moved to the room. He completed the training. The characteristics window was received as a reward. But this characteristics window is different from what could be obtained on the 1st floor. The hero opened his mouth. Simon, Earthling, Title Seeker at the Crossroads, Affiliation No, Constellation No, Skills Lightning Essence level 3, Sixth Sense level 8, Tenacity level 13 plus 5, Combat Focus level 13 plus 5, Regeneration level 5. Dobby said the man was fine, fell and suddenly disappeared. Simon said yes he was fine, relaxed while he was gone. Dobby happily exclaimed yes man, water, bread. The hero replied with a smile thank you of course but he only sees bread. Dobby screamed that the goblin had wet him. The guy thanked him. Now he has access to contracts with the 5th and 5th preliminary class constellations. Simon said that the constellations. Vanessa said that after training there will be a rest room. Before going up to the 6th floor you need to make a contract with the most shitty looking god. It flashed through his mind that she said to make a contract with a shitty god. The 5th class constellation, the Prophet of the Wind and Sky, offers him to make a contract. The preliminary 5th class constellation, the Farmer in the Quiet Garden, offers him to make a contract. The 5th grade constellation, the Pirate of the Wave, offers him to sign a contract. The preliminary 5th grade constellation, the Wandering Minstrel, offers him to sign a contract. The hero said that it would be better to consult with Vanessa. He said the word message. Before concluding a contract with the constellation, the message function is disabled. He must conclude a contract with the constellation to go to the next floor. Simon said that the messages do not work. The tower is up to something again. The guy continued that Vanessa did not forbid him to conclude a contract himself, but the tower makes him do it. He said that in this case he will choose him. The preliminary 5th grade constellation, the Farmer in the Quiet Garden, offers him to sign a contract. There are times in life when you trust some decision 100%. And it seems to him that this is exactly what happened when he saw this message. He does not know if it is intuition or something else, as if a sixth sense told him that he needed to conclude this contract. He wants to conclude a contract with the preliminary 5th grade constellation, the Farmer in the Quiet Garden. The hero answered that he did. Conqueror Simon contracts with the preliminary constellation 5th class Farmer in the Quiet Garden. Contestant Simon has completed the contestant training. 10,000 points have been obtained. The total score is 15,316. Contestant Simon has received enlightenment and met the minimum conditions to become a preliminary constellation. The title of Seeker at the Crossroads has been obtained. Community and private messages are available again. There is 1 hour and 59 minutes left until the transition to the 6th floor. It is recommended to rest. The hero sat on the bed and said that the higher he goes, the less time he has to rest. The girl told the protagonist that he was back, what a relief, and asked how many points. Simon replied that he had 15,316 and asked if he should have received more, although he already had so many. Vanessa said that she thought it was because he went through the training without a stat window. With such a score you can buy a high-level Conqueror suit or durable leather armor. The protagonist asked again about the suit and armor. Simon looked at himself and said that it was cool, it fits perfectly. The unification into groups is available from the 6th floor of the Tower of Trials, and let him choose the conquerors with whom he wants to unite. The hero said the name of Vanessa. He said with a smile that he would finally be able to see her. The hidden names of the constellations were made public. The deity with whom the conqueror Simon made a contract. Constellation 1st class Thunder Iron, master everywhere he goes. Welcome to the 6th floor of the Tower of Trials, the lost world of the infected. Simon looked at Dobby and said that this time they are together. Dobby happily opened his mouth. The girl called the protagonist. The man screamed that it was a goblin. Someone shot him with a bow. The arrow flew at Dobby. The protagonist parried the arrow. Dobby screamed in fear. The guy asked what he was doing. Simon frowned and said that Mr. Foreigner. Then he asked who he just shot. The girl screamed that it was enough and for them to stop. Vanessa continued that this goblin was on their side. The guy, perplexed, said okay. The man asked the hero what he had just blocked the arrow. The protagonist answered affirmatively. The guy asked if it was his goblin. Simon answered that he was not an object, so he would not say his name was Dobby. They were conquering the tower together. Dobby screamed that Dobby was a friend of man. The guy apologized and said that he thought he was going to attack him. Simon said that it was okay, he didn't know, he could understand. Vanessa told him to calm down already. The girl continued to forget and to better test the strength of the group. She said that there were 2 warriors, 1 magician, 1 archer, 3 priests, and that it would make a good squad. The man apologized and asked if the foreigners understood him, and that they had just met, let them at least get to know each other. The guy answered okay. The man said he was Bruce, 45, and this was his daughter Molly. She said her name was Molly and she was 19. The protagonist introduced himself as Simon and said he was 24. He looked at the girl and said that this was Vanessa, they were the same age. The goblin's name was Dobby. The girl replied that she could introduce herself. Ethan said in shock that Simon and Vanessa were first and second on the ranking table. The man said that so he was first on the list. The guy replied that yes, it was him. Bruce enthusiastically shouted that wow, they were very lucky and that now they would definitely pass the 6th floor. What a relief. Molly said that it looked like it. The guy said his name was Ethan, he was 27. The girl next to him said that she was Chloe. The protagonist asked if she knew any of them. Vanessa answered that yes, last time Ethan reached the 90th floor with her, he is probably in the top 100 conquerors. She continued that she met Molly starting from the 41st floor. She was known for her difficult character. As for Bruce and this Chloe, she can't say anything. The protagonist answered that they have a whole deck of trump cards here. The girl said something like that. Chloe said that maybe they will just kill this goblin, he is disgusting. Bruce shouted to wait, and what are they talking about? Chloe said that they are going to drag the monster with them, and suddenly he will stab them in the back. Vanessa answered that she is crazy. Chloe asked what she said, and what did she call her? The girl said angrily that he should stop acting like he was indispensable, and if he didn't like something, he could get out of here. Chloe replied that people tend to stick together. Vanessa asked if people would stab you in the back, and what did she mean by that? She was a priest, she didn't want to check who could heal the goblin better. Chloe pursed her lips. Bruce coughed and suggested that they not fight, that they were comrades, and that Chloe should apologize. The girl apologized. Vanessa angrily replied that useless people always made the most noise. Simon thought that she was scary when she was angry. It was better not to irritate her. She said what she was staring at. She had been afraid to even look her in the eye before. The hero thought that yes, it was better not to quarrel with her. The hero's eyes widened. He looked ahead in bewilderment. Vanessa asked him what happened and that there was something there. Bruce asked why everyone was tensing up. Simon said something was coming. The monsters were getting closer. They were screaming furiously. Chloe exclaimed, "What the hell?" Bruce said, "What the hell?" The voice exclaimed, "Zombies." The hero was walking towards them. The girl screamed a fireball spell. The ball hit the monsters. The voice shouted for Simon to lead the rest, everyone behind him. The protagonist replied that it was okay. Vanessa shouted for Simon and Bruce to go in the vanguard, Ethan to stay in the middle, in the rear would be her, Molly, Chloe, and Dobby. The voice asked the protagonist if they could handle it and that they would have to fight their way through. The hero asked again with a smile if they could handle it. He screamed furiously. He made a destructive blow. Then he shouted that of course. Vanessa's past life, the 66th floor. Walking straight, the man said that he was asking about the time when he won first place. Smiling, he said that of course he remembered. How could he forget what he found on the 6th floor? The man frowned and asked how he knew. It was simple. The floor was a copy of Soul. He didn't know why exactly, but there were a lot of bastards near his house. Drinking, the man said that everyone wanted to hide, but from Myeongdong to Cheongro there were too many enemies, so they fled to the subway. Tilting his head, the man said that he saw this thing there while walking along the rails, asked why he got it. Holding the can in his hand, the man said that he would only tell him this, and only once, not because of the alcohol, it just seemed that he would understand him. Raising his eyebrows, the man asked that she was that famous killer, wasn't she? Killed everyone just like him. Yes. Suddenly a knife stuck into him and he wheezed. Holding his wound, he asked why. Vanessa silently looked at him. Suddenly the monsters rushed forward. They were struck by lightning. It was written that they had to hold out for 48 hours. 46 hours 32 minutes were left. The man shouted that they should follow her, go inside. The main character and the man turned around. All the players ran into the room looking tired. Looking at the hero, Bruce said that they had time to rest. He did not think that this place was like Korea. Even the signs along the road were in Korean. Where did the monsters come from? Turning around, Simon said that he did not know, but he also noticed it, to which the man asked that the earth could not be destroyed. Looking away, the girl said that she thought the gods simply created conditions similar to their world. There could not have been other people left on earth. Gritting his teeth, Bruce said that they would help. Looking at the girl, the hero thought that she had not lied, and the man turned to him. Looking at him, the hero responded and said that he could address him as he liked, since he was much older, to which he asked if it was true. Smiling broadly, the man said that his mace, which had been glowing before, began to release powerful lightning. Looking at the weapon, the protagonist said that he was lucky to find a secret mission on the 4th floor, where he received it. Showing 2 fingers up, the man said that now it was clear why he spent so much time there, took first place for a reason, and is still doing great. Looking at the players, the hero said that well, everyone is good. Looking straight ahead, Ethan asked, by the way, what they thought about the system of contracts with constellations. Laughing, Bruce said that he thought he would get a 4th class constellation, but it turned out to be the 2nd, to which Chloe asked why anyone would sign a contract with 4th class constellations. Raising his hand, the man said that he did not like the names of the others. How can I say? They lacked imagination. Looking up, the girl said that if the constellation class was real, then he would have been left in the lurch. Looking at her, the hero and Vanessa thought that they were in the lurch, she was a fool herself, and the man laughed and asked that apparently she received a constellation of the 5th class. The girl frowned and remained silent. Looking at Molly, the man asked who she had a contract with. Looking up, she answered that she had made a contract with a constellation of the 1st class. It seemed to her that the 1st class should be the best. Looking straight ahead, Ethan said that he was guided by the same logic, asked what about them, Simon and Vanessa. Turning around, the hero said that the same thing, 1st class, and the girl added that she had the same, she just liked the name. The girl whispered to the hero that she had made a contract with the same as last time. The hero looked at her. Bruce closed his eyes and asked if anyone knew what kind of contracts these were, like the constellations were supposed to support them, but nothing had happened yet. How should he understand this? Looking straight ahead, the hero said that he really thought they would figure it out over time. Holding the bow in his hand, the guy asked, by the way, what was this ownership percentage next to the constellation name? Was it something good? To which the hero thought that the ownership percentage, what was he talking about? Then the man said that the characteristics window, a menu appeared in front of the hero. It was written that the title of Truth Seeker at the Crossroads, no affiliation, 1st class constellation, Thunder Iron, master everywhere he went, ownership percentage 0 out of 100%, and then he thought that when it appeared there. Turning to the girl, the hero whispered that how to use it, to which she replied that she would tell him later. Raising her head, Chloe asked what they would do next. Sitting here, any ideas? Looking away, Vanessa said that she was just about to suggest leaving. Looking at her, Ethan asked that maybe they should think about a plan of action first, saying that it would hardly be easy to find another safe place. Looking down, the man said that he agreed, turned to the girl, saying that they needed to discuss the next steps. Lowering her head, Vanessa said that, frankly speaking, she had the skill of predicting the future, so she knew that staying in one place was dangerous. The man asked in surprise about what predicting the future, and the hero thought that she had come up with a clever idea. Looking at the players, the girl said that they would be found if they stayed here, and the enemies would become stronger. It was already strange that they could rest peacefully at all, to which Ethan replied that it was true. Closing his eyes, the man asked where to go then, what she saw in the future. Frowning, the girl answered that they were going to Chungniro Station. Bruce asked again in surprise. Smiling, the girl asked that they had heard that Simon had found a secret task on the previous floors, said that they had 1st and 2nd place on their team, they needed to try to find one on the 6th floor. Looking at the man, Ethan said that they were going then, to which he replied that well, since he had the skill of prediction. Turning around, the girl said that it looked like they were mentally prepared. Leaving the room, Vanessa said that they should go ahead. Stretching her staff in front of her, the girl shouted that everyone was here, to which the hero replied that he would cover the rear. The monster in front of the hero growled, to which he laughed. Dobby stretched his arms forward and shouted about healing. While fighting the monsters, someone suggested running. Running up to the train, the hero said that they should jump onto the rails and hide. The hero and the girl began to fall onto the rails. All the players were hiding from the monsters. They listened to their growling in fear. Then they began to slowly move to the side. Walking along the platform, Bruce said that they could breathe out, and the hero said that they tried well. Looking at the hero, the man asked that he used to like reading books about fantasy worlds in Murim. He understands that in such stories there were different towers, teams, a menu of characteristics, constellations, fantastic adventures, to summarize, to which Simon thought that why did he suddenly talk about it? Then the man said that now he realized how everything is different from the books. Smiling, Bruce said that he just wants to say just in case, if he or Molly needs to be saved, then let him save his daughter first. Raising his finger up, the man asked that it was good, he can only rely on him, to which the hero replied that it was okay. Grinning, the protagonist said that if he was given a choice, he would save everyone. The girl raised her hand up and told them to stop. Looking straight ahead, she added that there was something on the other side. Looking around, the hero asked what was she talking about? A glowing egg appeared, and the hero thought it was an egg. Bruce leaned towards the strange ball and asked if it was an egg. The game informed him that it was a charged egg. Simon agreed with his arguments and pointed to the necklace and ring next to it. Bruce was surprised to see the elixir as well. The game showed the value of the items. Vanessa said that she would take them with Simon. According to her, the guys found it only thanks to her, and without her help they would hardly have gotten here. The guy did not understand why everyone was taking it so quickly. He offered to discuss it all. Nate agreed with the girl, since they really got here only thanks to her. He leaned down and asked what the egg was for. Vanessa replied that she was needed for a secret mission that would begin after the egg was broken. Bruce was glad to hear such news. He offered to act. Simon swung and said that he would break it now. Someone ran from the side and screamed for help. People were escaping from zombies and begging for mercy. The guy pulled himself together and said that first they needed to help them. The game notified everyone about the infected egg of the Seraphim Queen on the 6th floor. The monster's head flew off its shoulders. Bruce and Simon were actively fighting the monsters. The guy asked his interlocutor why he called his skill so terribly. Bruce replied that he simply added charm to the battle. Simon got a little angry, but that's what he thought. The guys thanked their saviors. The guy asked how they even got to the tunnel with such skills. The stranger replied that he was heading somewhere, but there were too many zombies on his way, so they all ran away. The guy thought about it. The stranger confirmed that their house was there, so that was where they were heading. He saw what the guy was holding in his hands and asked what it was. Simon turned away and asked not to even look at him, since they were the first to find him. The stranger obeyed and said that it was just curiosity. He was interested in where the guys were heading. Bruce came up and hugged him from behind, saying that they were heading in the same direction he was. Simon approached the girl and said that this man seemed rather suspicious to him. Vanessa suggested killing him right there and then to avoid unnecessary problems. The guy was not so critical and did not want to act so cruelly. The girl replied that this man would hit them in the back at the first opportunity. She said that if it were up to her, she would kill him right now. Simon asked her to calm down and take her time. The stranger suggested that the guys go to his house since, in his opinion, there was a place to hide there. Simon said that they would do that for now. According to the timer, the guys have 37 minutes and 48 hours left in the game. Nate asked the girl if the task would start right after breaking the egg, to which she replied that it would. Bruce happily asked everyone to hurry up. The guys surrounded the strange egg. Nate said that it looked pretty creepy. Vanessa asked what Simon was waiting for. She asked him to break it quickly. The guy caught himself on a strange feeling that he shouldn't do this. He said that they shouldn't break it. Vanessa was surprised and asked him again. Bruce told the girl that the guy has a prediction skill. Although he may have good intuition, it's better to listen to the girl's advice. Nate expressed his consent and asked them to break it together. Simon interrupted them and said that he has a sixth sense skill. He asked Dobby to use cleansing on his face. The little creature agreed with him. Dobby used the cleansing skill. The egg began to glow a little and was covered with green veins. Simon was surprised to see it move. Vanessa suggested that everyone should work together. Molly and a few other guys also joined in. The wooden branches that were clasping the egg began to crumble and fall down. The game informed that the egg here was unusual in appearance, but it should be handled with care. Vanessa said that she saw a key inside the egg in the future. Of course, she was shocked that she did not know, because there is another development. The girl stepped aside and called Simon to her. She asked everyone else not to touch the egg. The two guys moved away. The office. Vanessa told the guy that the secret task had changed. According to her, initially after a day the queen appeared, and the secret task was to find a safe zone with the key. Simon was surprised to hear about the queen. The girl replied that this was the biggest problem, because she appeared in a random place, and she did not think that in this state they were able to defeat her now. Simon suggested that there was probably a big reward for the queen. Vanessa had an idea and asked the guy what would happen if they gave the egg to her. The girl suggested that the egg looked unusual, like the queen herself, so it could belong to her. Simon admired the girl's ingenuity and said that it was a pretty good idea. Vanessa replied that she never expected the task to change so suddenly. Simon laughed and said that magicians always do not think with their heads. The girl was furious when she heard this. The master joked and said that he did not become a magician because he was too stupid for this. The game notified that the guys only had a few hours left. Simon turned to the girl, said that they would simply be killed if they tried to give the egg to the queen. Vanessa replied that if the egg really belonged to her, then they shouldn't have any problems. According to her, the queen was charged and was simply looking for the people who killed her child. The girl said that for now they had a break until the queen appeared, and if anything went wrong, they would have to run away for 24 hours. Simon understood her and said that he would think about it. The game again bombarded the guys with notifications. Simon asked if everyone was ready to go outside. Chloe expressed her displeasure. She didn't like that no one consulted her, so she preferred to stay here. Vanessa did not want to force her and said that she would listen to the accusations herself later. Simon ordered the guys to go forward. Chloe could not understand why the guys would put you in such danger. On the street, Vanessa stood in front of everyone. The girl said to wait for her because she forgot something. Simon offered to go with her. Vanessa said that it was not worth it and she would handle it herself quickly. The guy couldn't understand why she turned him down. Bruce replied that girls have their own secrets. Vanessa said she'd be back soon. A few minutes later, Simon met the girl, and she said she was fine. The guys had 24 minutes left. A large abandoned city, a road that led to one place. The game notified about the appearance of the queen in a random place and warned to be careful. The queen had an unusual appearance. She screamed and opened her triple mouth. Vanessa warned the guy that it looked like the fight was about to begin. Simon asked the others if it was time for them to go now. The game notified that the egg had not been destroyed, so the secret mission was cancelled. A sign appeared stating that the real Seraphim Queen had appeared in Area 54, Floor 6, not a fake. The guys moved along a corridor full of corpses. Simon said in fear that these bodies weren't here last time. Vanessa noticed that only 4 hours had passed and there were already so many dead here. The guy looked back and asked why she wasn't afraid of the corpses and didn't look scared. The girl replied that she was used to it and was rather worried about him. Simon said that he would be fine and that she was tough. The guys went outside, where several monsters were ahead of the people. The girl asked the guy if he had the elixir right now because they were preparing for battle. Simon replied that he always carried it with him. The people ran from the strange creature while it killed them one by one. It had triple mouths, ready to eat everyone present. It was the infected queen with her infected guards. She ordered to attack everyone they met. The guy ran from them and asked no one to fight them, but just run away. He screamed that it was a monster. The queen suddenly approached him. The guy felt severe pain and splattered blood everywhere. The guys looked at the place he had just been. Simon was getting ready for battle. Bruce was confused because he had never expected the queen to look like that. The guy reproached Vanessa for not warning him about the infection of these creatures. The girl was also confused and did not understand why they had changed. She asked the guy how he thought he would be able to defeat them at all. Simon was very surprised. Vanessa answered that she knew his characteristics more than enough and they were quite suitable for this. Simon was still confused by what the girl was telling him. Vanessa noted that the guy was still from the 4th floor, so he probably hadn't even really fought, and now was the time for that. Molly the box stood behind them and held her staff. She thought that this was a bad idea for both of them. Bruce asked the girl if she really wanted to send the guy to fight this creature alone. Nate suggested that they should just run away from here. Simon said that it was true, because even he himself would have a hard time convincing everyone on his own. Vanessa asked to trust her because they could deal with the guards and help him with buffs. The girl said that the guy had already been informed about her ability to see the future, so he could rely on her. She winked at him and suggested that he just trust her. Simon decided to do as she decided and try. The guy abruptly rushed to attack the queen. The guys stood behind. The guards immediately attacked Simon. The guy fought them off with a shield since it took him the least amount of time. Bruce, fighting off the guards, told Simon that he would take them on himself and he should deal with the queen. The guy was actively approaching his main goal, but the queen was not going to give up. She swung her limb. Simon accelerated greatly and miraculously avoided the blow. The guy asked the girl to throw him an egg. The queen broke the asphalt with that blow. Vanessa threw him an object. Simon caught it safely and decided to use it. He handed it to the queen and asked if she knew what it was. The guy teased her because he knew it was her egg and she would be angry about it. The queen became extremely furious and in a second moved straight to the guy. Simon did not understand how this happened and why he did not notice it. The egg suddenly fell out of his hand. Bruce caught it and started running in the opposite direction, while the guy was struggling with the queen. Dobby and Molly ordered to activate the purification. The queen activated a spin attack and ran towards the guy. Simon realized that she only cared about the egg itself and didn't want to hurt anyone who took it from her. The guy asked the guys to cover him for a second so he could take the shield for cover. The queen started to approach his side. Simon started to pick up the shield, but she started to attack him faster and the guys warned him. The guy successfully grabbed the shield and put it in defense. He fought off the queen furiously. The monster kept hitting him while the guy parried them again and again. Finally, Simon realized that he should aim. Volume is a weak spot to stop an attack. After a few moments, the guy aimed and hit there. The queen swayed and fell a little to the side. It was clear from her face that she was in pain, but she was ready to endure everything for the sake of her egg. Simon was pleased that he temporarily disarmed her and asked how she liked his mace. He swung and hit with a heavy object. The queen screamed in pain. The shockwave carried her a little further away from the guy and threw her to the ground. Simon took aim and understood that the time had come for the final blow in this battle. Vanessa asked him to wait because she reminded him of the purification. Simon immediately came to his senses and looked away a little. Molly and Dobby approached the queen lying on the floor. The guy asked what to do next. The girl said that it looked like the queen was purified, but she needed time to wake up. She suggested going to the media center. Simon asked to help him carry because there were 3 of them, and they were more resilient than he was. The guys were forced to agree to help him, and Nate said that they should head for the media center. An hour before the battle, the guy and the queen's teams. The guys were standing in front of the porch of some building. They rang the bell. The man, without looking up from the phone, went to the door and said that he thought they had already left, but he did not understand why it was necessary to go back. Vanessa used her magic on him. The guys were shocked to see this. They did not understand why the zombies had already reached here. They asked the girl why she was doing this. Maybe she was crazy. Vanessa answered that this man was ready to betray his comrades for a secret mission and deserved to die. Which of the guys tried to object to her? Chloe hated creatures of other races so much that she poisoned her own allies on the 16th floor. Vanessa said that her teammate was an idiot. Chloe did not understand at all what she was talking about. The girl insisted that she knew that the others were complete trash who abandoned their comrades in battle and just ran away. The guys were outraged because they insisted that they were innocent because she had no evidence. The girl said that she said everything she wanted. In her opinion, freaks like them are unlikely to understand anything in this world. Molly and Dobby called for purification. In an instant, the queen woke up with green eyes and a flickering light around her head. She stood up and thanked the guys in a human voice for waking her up. Simon said that he was very happy that her mind had finally returned. The queen said that she had woken up on the stairs. She had just behaved quietly so as not to scare them and apologized for this once again. Bruce said that she should have said this earlier because she was very heavy and it was not easy to carry her. The queen extended her hand and asked if she could take her egg. The girl extended it to her. The queen thanked her for it and began to say something. She carefully placed the egg in some hole in the wall. After this action, her hands began to sew purple. He himself asked the girl what she was doing. Vanessa was not completely sure of her actions, so she asked the guy not to relax yet. The egg, placed in a strange hole, began to glow green. A few seconds later, a small creature hatched from it with a time limit and a key in its hands. The queen took it in her arms and was delighted with it. She said that first it was worth finishing the job. The queen brought her baby to the keyhole, and he opened it with the key. Congratulations sounded on the passing of the 6th floor. Simon was interested in the question of why they finished early and where their timer went. Vanessa said that this sometimes happens after secret tasks. The timer resumed again and the remaining time of the guys was 23 hours. The notification congratulated them on the successful completion of the secret task. Simon assumed that they were called seraphim. The queen said that she would very much like to know the name of the boy savior. Simon proudly began to introduce himself, to which the girl pulled him back. She asked him not to introduce everyone else. The queen thanked him and said that she would pray to the gods that he was visited, not to lose their world just like she did hers. She talked about how the guys saved their lost world. The guy thanked her. They received 22,000 points. During the transfer to the waiting room, the queen and her baby saw the guys off. Signs congratulated the guys on the successful completion of the task and predicted the next one. The guys discussed through messages that they could finish the 6th floor only thanks to the guy who fought with the queen. They praised him in every way, but he did not understand why. Dobby was fast asleep on the floor. Simon looked at him and realized that he had drunk the potion and was sleeping. Molly asked her sister if she should also drink the potion right away because she had just bought it. Vanessa said that she could do it and asked the guy if he had done the same. Bruce replied that he had just taken it. Simon asked the girl why she cared about everyone so much. Vanessa replied that even though she was the leader of the group, the girl still wanted to help others since she was a regressor. The leader of the group has the power to kick out and add members of the group. In the wrong hands, it can lead to problems. The guy said that they still have one more place for a person in the team. The girl suggested leaving it empty for now because if they have fewer people, then everyone will receive more rewards. Simon insisted that it is better to form a full group. Vanessa said that this should not happen because they are doing fine as it is, especially since they also have Dobby. The guy sat down on the bed and agreed with her words. He was interested in whether he needed to buy anything new for the next floor. The girl asked how many points he had on his account. Simon said 42,000. Vanessa was shocked to hear such an amount, but asked him not to waste them because he already had the elixir. The guy looked at the elixir standing on the shelf. Simon asked again about this elixir because he did not drink it according to her covenants. The girl said that he was doing well because his equipment would be enough for now, but the shield was a little worn out, although it could still be used. The guy agreed with her opinion because it was worth earning some more. Vanessa said that she would buy all the necessary things herself because the guy should save up points and not just spend them. Simon objected because he himself could buy himself anything because they should be enough. The girl asked him to stop being indignant because she herself would ask him if she did not have enough. Simon agreed with her words. He was interested in what would happen on the 7th floor. Vanessa replied that for now it would be a secret for him, and she wanted to tell him only critically important details. Simon did not understand why she was in such a mood. The girl replied that the point of the passage is that he knows everything, absolutely none. In her opinion, he should have developed the sixth sense and combat skills while they were passing the lower floors. Vanessa was worried that she could suddenly be killed, and the guy would have to survive alone. Simon got angry at this statement and said that the girl would never die. Vanessa laughed and said that she was just giving an example. She asked him not to think about anything, but just drink the elixir and go to bed. Simon wished her good night and asked her to rest too. The guy exhaled and thought. He remembered her words that she had already seen him die. Simon did not know what feelings she was experiencing at that moment. He interrupted his thoughts by thinking that the girl died on the 91st floor. In this case, she cannot know that he got to the 94th. Simon asked her how she knew that he got to the 94th floor if she died on the 91st last time. The girl did not answer. Simon assumed that she just fell asleep. He resigned himself to the misunderstanding in her words and decided to just drink the elixir and go to bed. After drinking the elixir, the guy lay down and fell asleep while the tablets notified him about the hobbies of the power levels. The next day, the guy's team was moved to the 7th floor. A strange tablet moved out in front of his eyes and Simon did not understand what the percentages near the property meant. The guys congratulated on their arrival on the 7th floor. Bruce and Molly were pleased that the others looked stronger than before, apparently due to the decoction. The game notified that crazy were-tigers lived in the forest. The task was to kill at least 3 were-tigers, and after killing 5, a king would appear. The game notified that the guys would have to kill the king of these creatures, or they would bring him a worthy sacrifice. Simon was glad that this time they were at least explained the essence of the task. The girl asked him to be quiet. The guy did not understand what it was supposed to be connected with. Vanessa said that the tests had already begun, and they needed to be more careful. The game notified about connecting to the community of the dead. Someone's soul did not understand why death was not the end for her. Yellow flew up to the book, said that she was so scared that she did not even see the notification. The first soul did not even understand what was being discussed. They watched the guy and admired his strength. Yellow soul said that Blue did not understand anything, because he was the hope and light of the dead. Blue did not understand why she should know about it at all. Yellow noted that these were not her problems, and in general, she was watching him from the first floor because he was on a completely different level than them. Blue did not understand why the first soul was proud of the fact that he died before everyone else. The yellow soul replied that it made no difference because she had no chance of surviving anyway. They all started looking into the portal together. Yellow asked them to be quieter because Simon the Star was already fighting the queen. They commented on everything that was happening and did not understand why he did not run away from obvious danger. They were surprised that the queen had a 2-second advantage on screen. The souls argued that his weapon was too unfair because they themselves could have defeated the queen with it. Of course, they should not even dream about it. Nate asked the girl how they were supposed to get through this floor. Vanessa said that she did not know because she could not see the future whenever she wanted. The guy doubted her skills, but agreed. Simon looked at his comrade and realized that he was trying to reduce the influence of the girl's knowledge so that the whole group would become stronger. The guy said that they needed to kill at least 3 creatures, so he suggested looking for them everywhere. To this he suggested that it would be quite difficult to find them in 6 hours. Boris asked them to be more confident in themselves because he was an archer and probably had a good sense. To this he noted that it should be so, but it should be even better than it was. He looked around the area, remembering the murder of the king. Simon suggested that this must mean a threat to people who are too greedy for points. The girl replied that he only needed to kill the king or sacrifice him. She was interested in whether the person was a worthy sacrifice. To this he said that it was so, because he was worried that they were given such a task immediately after the creation of the group. The guy suggested that the tower was trying to destroy their trust in each other. Bruce did not understand what he was talking about and asked again. Nate said that given that the leader of the group usually becomes a strong person, then perhaps the tower wants to force the members of the group to weigh each other's value with the help of achievements. Bruce said that his words made perfect sense. Simon replied that if there is no cohesion between the team members, then this floor can lead to group chaos. He looked at Bruce. He looked exhausted and asked him not to talk about it. Simon was afraid that they thought of him as a traitor and started making excuses. The guy said that he was just joking and he shouldn't take it seriously. Molly wanted to know if she should even worry about Rule 2. Dobby asked the girl what she was even talking about. Molly remembered the Were-Tiger King and said that her brother could probably handle him. According to her, they easily defeated the Seraphim Queen. Nate really realized that Simon was able to defeat her in just 2 hits. The guy objected to him. He asked what the guys were going to do if the Were-Tiger King turned out to be stronger than him. Nate didn't know that the boss of this floor could suddenly become so much more difficult. Simon said that it was better to always think about the worst case scenario, because he was not going to sacrifice a single member of their group to advance further. The guys were touched and realized that they could trust him. The guy suggested finding the Were-Tigers themselves first. Bruce actively supported him. The guy asked which side they should go to find them. He looked ahead and said that they wouldn't have to do anything at all. He ordered everyone to get ready for battle because strange qualities were running straight at them. These were those were-tigers. Simon realized that there would be more and more of them. He asked the others to remember that they had to kill at least 5 of these creatures in 6 hours. He decided to cover everyone and say that he would clear the way. Simon decided to support him and said that he could help. The guys moved to attack. They valiantly fought off the beasts. Simon called everyone else to follow him. Bruce informed him that he was already returning to the rear. The tigers attacked from all sides. The guys ran from them without question. The game notification once again reminded them to kill at least 3 of these creatures. The creatures surrounded them, and they were forced to defend themselves. Simon moved very quickly and jumped up to destroy them. The beasts were in pain. The boy swung his mace. He created an energy flow that scared all the beasts away. Nate ordered him to handle the weapon a little slower. Simon didn't understand if it was connected with Molly and Dobby. The boy replied that it was, because they had been running for too long. Dobby and the girl were very tired. They both complained that they were already exhausted. Simon realized that the priests always fell behind in such pursuits, but they could not stop. The boy asked them to use a restoration spell on themselves, stamina. The guys understood everything and got down to business. The game again reminded about the need to kill 3 were-tigers. Simon valiantly fought off the attacks of the beasts. He warned the guys where the danger was threatening them. Bruce did not understand why they kept appearing and appearing without disappearing. The guys were very critical. Vanessa informed the guy that the beast was right to his right. Bruce looked back and saw a large mouth. Simon protected his teammate with 1 blow. The were-tiger's head couldn't withstand the blow, and he was the first to be killed. The guy asked if Bruce was wounded. The other guy said no. The guy thanked him. Bruce shouted to everyone else that they had already killed one. There were 410 left until the end of the mission. The counter showed one of 3 were-tigers killed. The game asked the guys to kill at least 3 tigers, and if they killed 5, a king would appear. The number of were-tigers killed was shown on the sign 1. Nate suggested that the guys take a little rest. Simon turned around and looked at the girl, who was also very tired. In his opinion, it made no sense. Even though they were holding back, they still had the team with the best regression in the rank list. The guy thought that the chase should not be that difficult. Simon had only 2 options, kill the king or sacrifice one of his teammates. If they kept running, they would run out of steam, so they definitely wouldn't have enough strength to take on the king. Simon was sure that he couldn't lose to him because the whole group would be in danger if he was stronger than him. Vanessa suggested that they do as the squad leader decided. She asked him not to hold back because of them. The guy smiled. He thanked the girl for the opportunity. Simon said that he would fight absolutely seriously now. 2 were-tigers were running at him. The guy fought them off with skillful blows. While he was fighting, another were-tiger was sneaking up on him from behind. Simon counted to 3, and a dart hit the creature in the forehead. Bruce fought him back to back and also counted. Dobby stood between Nate and Bruce, timidly holding his sword in his hand. The little creature decided to attack too. He screamed very loudly and swung his sword. Simon praised Dobby for showing himself to be really cool. The game notified about 6 were-tigers already killed. A sign appeared about the appearance of the were-tiger king. The whole forest was filled with the loudest roar. It seemed to come from everywhere. Even among the trees there was no escape from it. Many were-tigers were running straight at them. Simon shouted that a large number of creatures were approaching them and they should use buffs. Molly obeyed him. The girl began to use endurance. The mace, which Simon was ready to defend himself with, lit up. The guy pointed it towards the enemies. The tigers began to attack him. The guy decided to fight them off valiantly. The monsters flew to the sides. Bruce asked if he was now fighting with all his might. He hesitated a little and decided that he also could not lag behind. Vanessa got ahead of him and asked him to return to the rear to help there. The girl used the firewall buff. She pointed it towards Simon, who was fighting. Bruce cried a little, because the light was burning very brightly, but they didn't even let him take a step. The guy looked to the side. Molly didn't understand anything, but behind her back stood a huge were-tiger. Bruce instantly rushed to fight with him, saying that he didn't even understand whose daughter he attacked. Suddenly he remembered the universal riot. Dobby stood timidly with a ball in his hands and didn't know what it was. Bruce turned around and said it sounded cool, but he didn't know what it was. Dobby said it sounded cool and he liked it. A loud roar came from behind the tree. Bruce shouted to Simon that some kind of creature was approaching them. The guy spread his arm to stretch it in anticipation. He looked menacingly into the bushes. It was a giant were-tiger with a pumped-up body. Its eyes were glowing red and a ball was coming out of its mouth. It said in a human voice that it had finally met a human. Simon decided that if the were-tiger could talk to him, they could discuss everything peacefully. The game notified about the appearance of the were-tiger king. It asked to either kill him or make a worthy sacrifice. Simon looked at his opponent. The king was getting closer and closer. The guy realized that he was clearly waiting for a sacrifice. The were-tiger was hungry for a human. The guy said that, alas, there was nothing to be done about it. Simon shouted that they were not going to sacrifice anyone. The were-tiger looked at the boys. He screamed loudly into the sky, baring his claws. His roar brought out dozens of other were-tigers, ready to attack them. Many small copies of the king rushed to attack. Simon realized that the boys could handle the were-tigers themselves, but the king would be too strong for them. He thought about dividing them between everyone. The were-tigers did not stop attacking. The boy ran forward towards the king. The were-tiger King Rav swung his right paw and roared. He bared his black sharp claws. Having struck the boy, Simon put up a shield for him. An energy wall appeared between them. The king was furious. The boy was pleased with himself and said that he now finally understood the whole situation. Simon presented himself as the main opponent. The boy and the king met face to face in a duel. The were-tiger was furious that they did not want to sacrifice someone to him. Simon realized that lightning for some reason did not affect him. The were-tiger rushed to attack, and the guy thought that it was just too thick-skinned. Simon decided to act immediately. He decided to fight hand to hand. The king was defeated from one blow. The guy looked at the were-tiger, who ran away to the side, and realized that one blow would not be enough for him. Simon rushed to attack again. To his surprise, the king cowered and covered himself. He decided to hit him again. To his surprise, the were-tiger suffered greatly. Simon could not believe that the king was much weaker than he thought. The were-tiger rushed to attack, baring his claws. Simon returned and jumped to the side from his furious fervor. The guy decided to attack him from the side and deliver a strong blow. From the pain of electricity and lightning, the were-tiger cowered and flew away. The king fell to the ground and began to roll back and forth. Simon could not understand what was happening to him. He asked his opponent if he was weak. The king growled in surprise and looked at him. The guy said that he seemed to understand him and had been pretending all this time. He said that his opponent's pupils were even shaking. The were-tiger, in order not to lose his position, decided to attack him. He ran furiously towards Simon. The guy said that he was weak, but still a boss. The king decided to attack him from above, to which the guy aimed at his stomach. He said that such actions would open him up for a blow from the other side. The were-tiger understood at the last moment. The guy screamed that he had allowed him to make such an attack. From the blow received, the king cringed and flew away. He fell to the ground and rolled over several times. Finding himself on his stomach, he looked towards his opponent. Simon asked if he wanted to continue the fight. The king was clearly not in the best shape and did not want to suffer. Vanessa used a fire wall. She happily told Bruce that Simon seemed to be finishing. The guy laughed and said that, as expected, Simon was on another level. Bruce continued to fight, using his universal murder skill. Dobby also tried to pretend that he was participating. Nate, shooting a bow, suggested that the little creature go behind him and rest. Dobby decided to use the endurance skill. The little goblin shouted that he was strong and could still cope. Nate was touched and confirmed his words. Molly also actively fought with the help of magic. New strength swept over her, and the girl decided to act quickly. She destroyed a couple of were-tigers with a few blows. Molly asked how it worked. Vanessa looked at the girl and remembered that in her past life she was a warrior priest. Most likely, a melee class would suit her better. Vanessa asked Simon to hurry up, because they already needed to regroup. The guy thought that the girl should first assess the situation before giving orders. Simon began an active offensive and decided that it was really time. He screamed that the king would be finished this time. The tiger swung its sharp claws at him. The guy understood that his opponents had not learned anything, and this method would not work on him anymore. He saw how his opponent did not try to hit him anymore. He walked through the wall of fire forward into the forest. Simon screamed to the others that they had problems. Bruce swung his sword to use his recently acquired skill. Simon screamed to the others that the king was running to their side. Bruce was finishing bringing the combination. The were-tiger was already approaching Molly. The girl noticed him only at the last moment and could not respond in any way. Bruce saw this and ran to protect her. Sometimes a person can find strength in himself that will surprise even himself. The guy pushed the girl away from the were-tiger's attack. The king managed to bite his shoulder. Bruce did not give up and decided to fight to the end. This is exactly the feeling that happened to him. Nate tried to protect his teammate and aimed his bow at the tiger. Simon attacked the king, telling him to get away from his friend immediately. Bruce did not let go of the were-tiger's head from his hand. The king continued to bite his shoulder, which caused even more bleeding. The girl screamed at her father to stay alive. Molly and Dobby decided to use their healing skill on him. Bruce recovered and thanked the guys for their help. The girl threw herself into her father's arms, saying that she was glad he was saved. The game said that it was over. The game notified that Bruce had absorbed too much of the king's blood, and because of this, he inherited his throne. The guy was incredibly surprised by this. The game warned about the beginning of the were-tiger's transformation. Simon did not understand what was happening, and Bruce was shrinking in pain. His skin and head were turning into the image of the king. Bruce was gradually turning into the very king of the were-tigers. Molly did not understand what was happening to her father. The man demanded not to approach him. He demanded Simon to take his daughter to a safe place. The guy led her and asked if there was anything he could do about it. Molly refused to leave because it was her father. Vanessa looked at it with disappointment. Simon blamed himself for what happened. In his opinion, he was careless, even remembering how he killed Krakshan the goblin paladin. The guy understood perfectly well that if his uncle became the king of the were-tigers, he would have to kill him. Bruce was turning into a tiger every second. Simon realized that the outcome was most likely already clear. The game began to give strange notifications. The support option was not yet available and required permission to use. Simon was furious that he was still being asked about this. He agreed to the question. The game notified about the provision of the neutralizer to the possession of the constellation, which added an additional 20% to the possession. Simon had a strange object in his hand, and he resolutely walked towards his uncle. He forced his mouth open and said that it was time to take the medicine. The transformed Bruce was forced to swallow it. When the boy finished pouring it, he let go. The current king of verdicts tried to get the liquid out of himself. He choked and fell to the ground. Molly ran to her father and asked what was happening to him and if he could answer her. Bruce was gradually turning back into a human while the girl was shaking him. He woke up. The boy asked what happened to him. Molly was happy that he finally came back to them. According to Bruce, he fell into unconsciousness after seeing that he was turning into a tiger. The girl was glad that Simon saved him because the medicine appeared out of nowhere. The boy was inclined to skip the part with gratitude. Simon asked if his interlocutor seemed to him to have changed a little. Nate also noticed it and said that the man's skin had become redder and his gaze had become sharp, like a wild animal. Dobby added that the man's height had also increased. Bruce stood up and happily said that he did not understand why this had come about, but the tiger energy was bubbling inside him. He looked at Simon. The guy didn't understand what he wanted from him. The man pounced on him with gratitude for saving him. Simon, let me remind you, promised to save them both. The man was touched. He said that if something happened to him and his daughter in the future, the guy would have to save Molly. Bruce said that he relied on him. Simon accepted the offer, but he added that in any case, he would save them both at the first opportunity. The man rushed to hug him because he was grateful. The guy tried to calm him down. Nate was confused as to how Simon managed to do it. The guy replied that the constellation helped him by giving him a neutralizer. Molly, wiping tears from her eyes, replied that it seemed like the constellations could support them. Simon said that this was preliminary support, which is not yet available. According to him, it opens with an increase in the floor as a community or a store. Nate realized that this is why no one has heard of this support. According to him, no one except the guy managed to get it. Simon replied that this happened because an additional percentage of the ownership of the constellation was accrued. Bruce and Molly looked at him with a strange look. Simon realized that he said too much. The guy replied that he was fine and the guys were completely innocent. Knight said that he assumed that this was possible because we are talking about a fine that the constellation will receive. The guys were surprised to hear about the penalty for the constellation. He responded that he hadn't seen a single positive comment about increasing the ownership percentage even in the community. In other words, there was a high probability that increasing the percentage was beneficial for the constellation. Nate said that none of the constellations used pre-support. In his opinion, this should indicate that the penalty was coming to them. The fact that they didn't use pre-support, not even knowing that it would increase the ownership percentage, means that the penalty is much greater than the benefit. Simon realized that there was only one conclusion. His support constellation suffered more than he did. Nate said that he didn't know why his constellation used support. In the guy's opinion, it was worth thanking him. Bruce and Molly thanked their savior for sacrificing it for them. Bruce also thanked the support constellation. Molly shouted that she also thanked the constellation. Vanessa interrupted them. The girl apologized for doing this and said that they should finish already because it was time to move on. Knight said that the boss had already been caught and it would be better to rest. Vanessa replied that because of the conduct skill, he woke up after they killed the king. She did not know whether this was a closed quest or not, but they could get something from it. Bruce asked her not to worry because everything was fine with him. According to him, now he has tiger blood and greatly increased stats. Simon noted that although the constellation gave a neutralizer, he assumed that the man could swell with an increase in the skill level. Bruce said that for him it was the opposite, a plus. The guy remembered that this uncle was a fan of the gym. Simon asked the girl where they should go. Vanessa replied that she saw a place near the cave, but did not know exactly where to look for it. Bruce smiled strangely and said that he knew where it was. The man pointed towards the thicket and said that since he had received the tiger blood skill, he could smell something from there. According to him, there was an unpleasant smell coming from there which they might need. Simon and Vanessa exchanged glances. The girl suggested following his advice and going in that direction. Molly asked if the guys thought the forest had become lighter. She was delighted that even the rabbits were afraid here now. Dobby asked if he could eat. Vanessa looked at Molly and was happy for her because at least she was cheerful now. Bruce walked ahead of them happily. He looked at the strange cave and asked if this was where they needed to go. Knight said that it looked like a tiger cave. Bruce did not understand why there was an unpleasant smell coming from the tiger cave because it was their home. Simon replied that he did not know anything because he could not smell it. He suggested going there first and checking everything. The guys went inside. The cave was quite high, and the light did not penetrate deeper than a few meters. The game notified about Bruce's inheritance of the king's blood. Also, a secret room was added to the desert forest location. We are transferred to the first life on the 7th floor of the desert forest. Bruce stands in a stance and menacingly tells him to repeat it again. The guy in front of him shouts that he offers them all to die. They have already made a sacrifice. But the tigers are still chasing them. They cannot take the priestess and escape. The girl's hand began to shake. Bruce grabbed it, and then, turning around, he smiled broadly and told her to trust her father. Looking at the guy, who, with his mouth wide open, shouted that how to fight this thing, let him give them the priestess already. Frowning, he added that she was already exhausted anyway. How long will the king be? Suddenly Bruce cut off his hand. Frowning, he rushed forward. He appeared in front of the frightened girl, and then, gritting his teeth, he said that now she could sacrifice that armless guy. The other comrades rushed towards him, shouting that he had attacked a comrade and that he had gone crazy. He thought he could defeat them alone. A moment later, Bruce had destroyed 2 of his opponents. Pulling back the bowstring, she shouted for him not to come closer because he was a murderer. But the big guy pierced her chest a second later. Looking menacingly ahead, he said that they considered themselves saints when they tried to sacrifice his daughter. Tiger, looking at the corpses in front of him, turned to Bruce. The big guy, looking ahead, said that they wanted to say that these bastards were not enough. Smiling, he added that his daughter remembered the protective spell he had bought her. The girl, with tears in her eyes, answered that no, he was not serious. Turning around, Bruce told her to activate it and close her eyes for a while. He added that he loves her very much, after which he lowered his, and then said that his subordinates are like children. He is waiting for this. If so, then let her wait a little longer. Approaching his daughter, he grabbed her cheek, telling her not to cry, after which the tiger swung his paw, and Bruce added that whoever could not protect her to the very end, let her rise alone now. A moment later, blood splashed, a message that they made a sacrifice that satisfied the king. Near the forest, another message appeared, which said that the tigers were not going to attack. We are transferred to the squad for the second life. The protagonist looks at the girl and says that he has 21% of ownership. It's nothing. She turns around and, frowning, replies with displeasure that the support constellation absorbed as many as 20. Simon, lowering his head, replied that 1% for the neutralizer, after which the girl, exhaling, said that 20% for his current one would not be a big problem. Later he would be able to lower it. He would find out all the details in the waiting room. Turning around, Simon said that, by the way, this cave was a secret mission. They stopped, and the girl, looking ahead, answered that the secret room was like the one he found on the 2nd floor. Turning to her, the protagonist asked that in their first life they also defeated the king. Lowering her head, the girl told him not to even remind her of this. Half of her team died there, and she clearly felt his ability. Simon, looking at her, asked that wasn't that the 6th. Frowning her brows, the girl looked ahead and said that on the 6th floor they were busy casting spells left and right and running away from the queen while they were trying to cover them. Hearing this, the protagonist, laughing, said that he felt a pang of guilt. Then he imagined a large tiger in his head and asked what would happen if he made a sacrifice. The girl answered that out of 6 people, only 1 would be able to survive and rise higher. Imagining a team in her head, she added that the 7th floor was a trick from the start. Confronting the king is not that difficult, although there are other tigers, but ultimately it is a battle of 6 against 1. Raising his head, Simon said that so running away would not have solved anything. The girl approached him and answered that this does not mean that he made the wrong decision. Smiling, she added that this is the only choice when you do not know how everything will end. The protagonist, lowering his head, imagined the monster and then thought about the fact that even if he went back in time. Clenching his fist, he continued to think he would most likely do the same. Then the girl looked at him, saying that his weapons before he did not have a count. Perhaps that is why he was uncomfortable fighting. Looking at her, Simon asked why he didn't use a shield, to which she replied that no, he was more agile than and dealt more attacks. The protagonist looked at his shield and then thought about his current battle tactics. He remembered the monster he was able to defend himself against using a shield, then he thought that he hid behind it for safety. Then an image appeared in his mind when he hit the tiger with a mace with all his might. He thought that he would mainly counterattack. After that, the girl approached him and said that maybe he could try without a shield. If anything, she did not insist. Lowering his head, the protagonist replied that he would think about what weapon he used most often in his past life. Raising her head, the girl replied that he used an axe the longest. She remembered Simon swinging it and making a quick dash forward, and then said that although the weapon changed from time to time, the axe was with him even on the 94th floor. Hearing this, the protagonist looked ahead in confusion. The girl clenched her fists and added that for some reason Simon got upset every time he used it. The protagonist, lowering his head, replied that he was grateful to her. Suddenly the big guy shouted for them to look here. He pointed his hand at the sword sticking out of the stone and then added that this definitely belonged to Simon. The protagonist looked at the black sword and saw a system message that it was the Tiger King's longsword, the sword that the tiger wanted to use when he became a human. It only reveals its true value in the hands of the Tiger King. The big guy, smiling, lowered his head and then added that he did not think so. Simon replied that it was simply made for them. A few seconds later, the big guy jumped up to the sword and hugged it, then asked if he could really take it. Kneeling down, he sniffed it, saying that it didn't seem like the smell was coming from it. Grabbing the sword, he walked over to a large stone. Then, squinting his eyes, he sniffed it. Pushing the stone aside, he shouted with a smile that this was the place. The boulder moved, and a purple glow appeared from behind it. Inside a small cave, there was an axe on a magic circle. The big guy said that he thought so. Apparently there was some kind of curse here. Simon, looking at the artifacts, saw that in front of him was the Bear King's gallbladder. The Bear King vomited this bladder when he became a man. It contained the power of the Bear King, and next to it was the Bear King's labyrinth, a double-sided axe that the king wanted to use when he became a man. The girl, having cast the spell, stretched out her hand. The magic circle near the axe was covered in flames and then began to slowly disappear. She said that the curse was dispelled and now you can enter. Smiling, she added that the constellation foresaw the events and helped them. It would be fair to give both items to the protagonist. The whole team looked at Simon with a smile. He, coming closer, said that then they will spend the remaining time hunting. We are transferred to the protagonist. He is sitting dissatisfied near the table. 3 system messages appear in front of him that he is congratulated. The remaining time is 0 minutes. The 7th floor deserted forest has been successfully conquered. The reward is being calculated. The total score is 44,798 points have been moved to the waiting room. Looking dissatisfied, he asked that this should be enough. A system message appeared in front of him, whether he wants to register. Seeing it, Simon smiled widely and said that this is great. It's time for him to register in the strategic guide. A few seconds later, another system message appeared in front of him, saying that the entry of the strategy for conquering the 7th floor was successfully entered. After which, he began to read many comments that admired him. Looking ahead, Simon asked that this would definitely support his image. The small yellow goblin behind him shouted something, and the protagonist turned around. His cheeks turned red, and he shouted that he just called his name. The goblin raised his head and added that it was true. The protagonist wiped the tears from his cheeks and said that he could not believe that he called his name. He was incredibly touched. Turning around, he asked if he was imagining things or if he had gotten fat. The goblin, looking ahead, replied that he was not fat, to which Simon said that then why did he call him? The goblin, looking ahead with displeasure, shouted that he was tired of bread and was very hungry. Hearing this, the protagonist looked at the system message and replied that he would have to spend his earned points on other dishes. Standing up from his chair, he clenched his fist and shouted that he would catch one more enemy and that he wanted to eat it, dear friend. The goblin lit up partly and then shouted that he needed meat. A few seconds later, 2 juicy steaks appeared on their table. Smiling, the goblin sat down at the table and began to eat. The protagonist also began to eat his portion. Looking ahead, he thought that he had been delivered by air straight from the ground. Raising his head, he continued to think that this taste immediately made him want to go home. Hitting himself on the head, he thought that he must not forget and must not give in to weakness. He must gather his will into a fist. Suddenly, several system messages appeared in front of him. They said that the remaining conquerors still could not conquer the 7th floor. There was no time left until the transition to the 8th floor. The 8th floor of the test tower is oriented towards the participation of the entire group of conquerors. You will have to wait. The protagonist, sitting on the bed, exhaled. He folded his hands and said discontentedly that, apparently, there was still plenty of time before the transition to the 8th floor, but before that, he needed to make some preparations. Using messages, he wrote to the girl what to pay attention to on the 8th floor, for example, what to be wary of. She answered him with a smile that he should forget about the 8th floor. He could handle it himself just fine. Hearing this, the protagonist asked in confusion that he could handle it himself. Wouldn't they be there together? The girl took a sip of coffee, and then, raising her head, she answered that although everyone was participating, it was more like an individual competition. She didn't even have anything to advise him. Simon, with his head down, was thinking about the whole team participating, but individually, a survival game where everyone is on their own, something like a royal battle. The girl on the phone added that they wouldn't even have to fight, they could mow down the percentage of ownership right now. The protagonist, raising his head, replied that okay. Frowning, he added that, by the way, how many percent of the limited characteristics can be restored on one floor? After drinking a glass, the girl replied that on average 5%, depending on his activity, for some it's more, for some it's less. Smiling, Simon replied that then by the 10th floor they would more or less return to normal. Scratching her head, the girl said that only the 8th floor and the 10th a little, she would say that more likely by the 11th. Raising her hand, she added that it was actually for the best for him, since he knew that the higher the stats, the harder it was to level them up. With a stat cap, more points were accumulated to increase them. Once he removed the cap, he would be stronger than he was now. Raising his hand, the protagonist replied that since she had already mentioned it, it would be better for him to get rid of the percentages right away. After which, he saw a system message asking if he wanted to spend 20% of his possession to cap his stats by 20%. The stats would gradually recover as he rose through the floors. Simon replied yes, after which, he glared ahead and another system message appeared in front of him, saying that he had capped his stats by 20%, the final possession percentage was 1%. He slapped his hand in front of him, saying that it felt worse than he expected. The girl asked how clumsy he felt, to which Simon, looking in his direction, replied that he didn't know yet, he would have to fight him to understand. Turn into a bear like an uncle if this is a convention. The girl, remembering the big guy, answered that he should not worry, he became like this because he absorbed fresh blood, he has a refined pill. Exhaling, the protagonist answered that he was worried in vain. Then the girl asked if he had any more questions, if not, then let him swallow the gallbladder, then tell about the effect. Simon, looking ahead, answered that it was good. Vam approached the black ball, from which a dark aura emanated. Looking at it, he winced, and then, stretching out his hand to it, he said that he needed to endure, as they say, good medicine is never sweet. Then he brought it to his mouth and shouted that he would swallow it in one gulp. A moment later, a system message appeared in front of him that he had swallowed the Bear King's gallbladder, his body was filled with the King's power, the Bear Blood skill was acquired. Level 4, the Conqueror status was confirmed, the energy absorption percentage was greatly increased, strength, agility, and endurance were increased. He looked at his hands, from which a purple aura emanated. His entire body was covered with strong energy, and a system message appeared that he had received the title of Master everywhere he went. Smiling, he said that he had already recovered 5%. Then a goblin appeared in front of him. Looking at him, he asked if he had washed himself yet. Frowning, the goblin replied that he had, but only just. The protagonist looked ahead with a smile, and the goblin shouted that he stunk incredibly. Then, stepping aside, he covered himself with a blanket and said that he was going to sleep and let Simon wash himself. Clenching his fist, the protagonist went to the bathroom. Then, looking at the system message, he said that, by the way, about the skill Bear Blood. He just received it and it's already level 7, what kind of skill is this? Raising his head, he wondered if it was something like Tiger Blood. He would have to ask the big guy. A bald guy appears in front of us, eating lunch. Simon tells him that he already figured out what the Tiger Blood skill was. The big guy, smiling widely, replied that he himself did not quite understand. He had a feeling that it just increased strength. Looking at the axe, the protagonist replied that if so, then he was grateful. Then he grabbed it. A black aura began to emanate from it, and he said that it was not so bad when the strength overflowed the body, but something confused him. Raising the axe, he added that he should try swinging it and test it at the same time. Then he lightly hit the axe in front of him. Puzzled, but looking down, he said that the axe had become noticeably lighter and it seemed like something had just flashed, or at least he imagined it. Suddenly, 2 cuts appeared in front of him, from which lightning emanated. Lowering his head, he looked at the sparkling axe and said that it fit his hand like a glove. A mace was not even close. Suddenly, the goblin woke up and cried out in displeasure that Simon smelled incredibly. The protagonist, apologizing, replied that he needed to check something, so he got carried away. He was already going to wash himself. After which the goblin lay back down, told him to be careful, because he was not alone. Lowering his head, he thought that in any case, a 20% limitation of characteristics was not a problem for him. Frowning, he continued to think, no matter what awaited him on the next floor, he was sure that he could defeat everyone. He looked menacingly in front of him. Another system message appeared that the remaining time was up, moving to the 8th floor of the test tower. Then a red system message appeared that the hidden mission The Evil of the Bear King had been launched. We were transferred to the arena. Many system messages appeared, saying that they had entered the trial tower, the thief's room. The conquerors of the 8th floor could choose to capture or save. If both chose to capture, the conquerors would begin the fight. The arena was a huge building. Several more system messages appeared that the losing side died. The winning side lost 2 of their highest level skills if they chose. The first to boom captured one of the skills. The huge arena was in the middle of the sea. The protagonist appeared on it, and a system message appeared in front of him that he was in first place in the ranking. The remaining time on the 8th floor was 1 hour. Simon stepped forward and then thought that the goblin was not there this time either. Raising his head, he remembered how he slept, and then thought that now he was probably sleeping, sprawled on the bed. Hitting himself on the head, he thought that now was not the time to think about him, he needed to concentrate. A girl with a huge axe appeared in front of him. Looking at her, he thought that she was 3rd in the ranking. An unusual aura emanated from her. Looking at the axe, he thought that this was unexpected, but she was also using it. Frowning, he continued to think that, as his friend said, the level was easy. He imagined a guy with a bag in his head and thought that he, from the position of the strongest, could simply say that he would choose to capture. Looking at the girl, he continued to reason that who would want to get involved in a scam that could cost them their lives. The girl suddenly smiled and said that he was Korean and she was glad to meet him. The protagonist answered on his hand that she was from Russia. The girl answered that it was true, she wanted to meet the person who took first place at least once. The protagonist, looking at her, thought that they needed to finish the presentation, how to convince her. He imagined himself on the mountain, and then thought that first of all he should explain the difference in strength. Lowering his head, he wanted to address her, but suddenly she interrupted him, saying that she would choose to grab. He turned pale, and the girl added that she would choose to grab. Menacingly looking ahead, the protagonist discontentedly shouted that she was crazy. Stretching out his hand, he added that she should wait and listen to his characteristics. The girl, menacingly looking ahead, answered that she would choose to grab. Simon, discontentedly stretching out his hand in front of himself, answered that she should stop, maybe she would at least listen to him. The girl, frowning, answered that she knew that he was stronger than her, but she would still choose to grab. Hit yourself on the head. Simon answered that she decided to complicate the situation. Looking ahead with displeasure, he thought that after demonstrating physical strength, he was going to put the sixth sense, who knew that the dialogue would reach such a dead end. Looking ahead, he continued to think that if both did not choose to save, then he would have to choose to capture. A system message with his characteristics appeared in front of him, and he again thought that he needed to think about which skill was the worst to lose. Gritting his teeth, he looked at the green medallion on his neck, thinking that the highest level was the skill of tenacity and combat concentration. The level increased by the artifact also counted. Lowering his head, he continued to think that if it counted, then tenacity and combat concentration. If not, then definitely combat concentration and either tenacity or the sixth sense. Opening his mouth, he said that he did not want to lose either one. Frowning, he added that if he chose to save and the enemy chose to capture, then he would lose a random skill. He continued to think that if his lightning essence was taken away, he definitely needed to avoid it. Looking at the girl, he thought about why she was willing to fight, even knowing about the difference in strength. Looking at her, he asked why she insisted on capturing. The girl silently looked ahead, and the protagonist, looking ahead, answered that she wanted to see how he would react to his words about capturing, and she would choose to save. Frowning in her brows, the girl answered that she did not. Hearing this, the protagonist spread his hands and answered that then what was the reason she would die if she fought him. The girl, looking at her opponent, answered that she knew about it, but his energy was different from the rest. Simon, looking in her direction, asked why she was doing this, even knowing that she would die. She smiled broadly, put the axe down and said that she hated it when people tried to take something from her. They were Russians, they didn't run from a fight and would rather take it themselves than let themselves be robbed. Hearing this, Simon turned pale, then thought that was it worth discussing in such a situation. He swung his axe and said that then he no longer needed to persuade her. Looking menacingly ahead, he told her to do what she wanted. Suddenly, he lowered his head and thought that he had a feeling that he had missed something. His intuition told him that he should not choose capture. He should analyze the situation again since he arrived on the 8th floor. He remembered how he got there and the system messages that talked about the 8th floor. Then he remembered one interesting system message that said that this was the thief's room. Lowering his head, he continued to think that the room could be called just grab, save. Looking at the girl's smiling face, he thought that her face looked unnatural, just like a robot. Remembering how that he took first place, he thought that even her manner of speech sounded unnatural. Smiling, he thought that there was definitely a thief in this room now. Frowning, he raised his axe. And then, looking around the arena, he thought that where is he hiding? He does not feel anyone else's presence at all. Looking at the right side of the arena, he continued to think that if this entire space is fake, then he may not feel it. Frowning, he thought that in this case, the easiest way to check. He raised his hand, in which blue lightning appeared. And then, raising it, he shouted loudly. Thunderclaps rolled across the entire arena, stretching his hand forward specifically so that the thief would just die. Lightning struck the floor. Suddenly, a small black creature appeared. The protagonist quickly ran up to it and grabbed it. It tried to break free, screaming loudly. Looking at it with displeasure, the protagonist swung his axe and screamed for it to die. Suddenly, the space around him began to change. The girl, looking at him, said that she told him to get out of storage. He does not understand this. Suddenly, she looked ahead in surprise. She saw how the protagonist was holding a small creature. A system message appeared in front of her that Simon destroyed the thief with a gremlin skill. He recognized the secret mission. He conquered the 8th floor of the test tower, the thief's room. The reward is being calculated. The protagonist, looking down, smiled and greeted the girl. She blushed, looking ahead. Suddenly the girl, frowning, screamed that she should have noticed him immediately. She added while waving her axe that why didn't she think of that? Simon smiled and said that she would have figured it out soon enough. Then the girl waved her hand and said that she was grateful to him anyway. She had earned more reward points now and they would see each other again. Several system messages appeared, saying that the exceptional sixth sense had reached level 10, a random skill had been selected, lightning essence and imitation had been obtained. The conqueror had passed the 8th floor, and the stats limited by the percentage of possession had been restored by 5%. We were transported to the city. The TV reported that breaking news, this Friday at 1 a.m. the ranking of the test tower located in the Pacific Ocean had been updated. The tower approached, and the reporter continued to say that Simon from the Republic of Korea had once again taken first place in the table, and citizens of the Republic of Korea were also in 2nd, 4th, and 6th place. A girl appeared in front of us, stretching out her staff and taking out the thief. The reporter said that thanks to the tireless work of Earthlings, Earth held the lead among the 4 planets even on the 8th floor of the zone. Then a guy with a bow appeared, and the reporter continued to say that scientists from all over the world were showing great interest in the test tower, as well as other intelligent life forms in the universe, but so far no real results had been achieved. The big guy stretched his hand up with a smile, and the reporter said that due to the mention of the green zone by a mysterious voice that covered the entire planet, the theory of an alien invasion was gaining momentum. Footage appeared in front of us, how Simon was able to learn the secret of the room. The girl said that religious sects, as expected, insist on God's punishment, so at the moment the situation is still unclear. The protagonist's face appeared on the screen nearby, and the reporter said that thanks to the efforts, Earth again retains first place. In the comments they wrote that this is not a joke, how is it possible that their country won so many prizes? We are transferred at the same time to the waiting room of the test tower. The protagonist eats food. A system message appears in front of him, and he says that the characteristics limited by the percentage of possession have been restored by about 5%, and the skill of imitation has appeared. Looking at the system message, he added that he received it when he caught the skill thief. Suddenly turned pale, thinking that he was lucky, because it was a random skill. If not for the 8th floor, he would have lost it. He remembered the Russian girl who said that she hated it when they tried to take something away from her. Turning pale, he raised his head, saying that it would have been the lightning sequence for sure. A message appeared on the system screen in front of him. In it, the guy asked that, fortunately, everyone survived, no one was injured. The big guy, looking ahead, laughed, said that he had tiger blood and the sword of the Tiger King to boot. It would be hard to die here, he was in perfect order. Showing off his muscles, he added that he even got the skill of the Iron Shield technician and became even stronger. The guy hit himself on the head and said that he lost one skill, good thing it was not important at all. The girl remembered how she appeared in the arena, after which she said that they both chose to save, so they just went on. The big guy, looking away in surprise, said that, by the way, there was one oddity. This weakling insisted for 20 minutes that he would choose to capture, but ultimately chose to save. The girl, frowning dissatisfiedly, replied that her opponent kept repeating that he chose to save. The toad, of course, was strangling, but she also chose to save. The protagonist raised his finger up and said that she held out well. As a priestess, it was better for her not to tempt fate. The big guy smiled and answered that it was true, even if she didn't get stronger, he and the protagonist would protect her. The priestess blushed and, stepping onto her hands, said that she was grateful to them, but she would have to make do. She also had to get stronger, otherwise she wouldn't pass through the personal floor. Hearing this, Simon smiled, laughed and answered that it was true, and the big guy said that she was already an adult. Then, looking ahead, he asked how everything went for the protagonist. Simon raised his hand and answered that in fact, on this floor you need to catch a Voronak gremlin using illusion magic. He understood this and received the skill and points. Hearing this, the guy slammed his fist on his hand and said that this is why all the communities are on their ears. Hearing this, the protagonist of the tasks looked at the system message. He saw a huge number of messages. Looking at them, he slammed his hand on the table, saying that as his comrades said, the community was in chaos. His head was spinning from these comments. He needed to go and rest. Then he lay down on the bed, raising his head to the ceiling. He said that the girl should have sent him a message by now. Why was he still not there? He thought about Michiru's eyes, really. Looking ahead, he continued to think about how he should try to kill the person. If not, then she had no reason to cut off contact with him. He imagined himself swinging his axe in his head and then thought that if he really killed the person, he would be able to survive it in his right mind. He imagined his face changing and turning into a furious one. Frowning, he thought about what if he and the girl switched places. Imagining them in space, he thought that he would be able to make the same decisions for the sake of her future if that were the case. He then silently looked at the system screen and wrote her a message that he had caught the skill thief, but there was no response. He exhaled and said that he knew she wouldn't answer. Then, crossing his arms, he wrote her what to pay attention to on the 9th floor. The girl, lowering her head in dissatisfaction, replied that even if she said this, it wouldn't make any difference. This was the command floor where they had to break through a labyrinth. She herself didn't know how to get out of it. The protagonist, stretching out his hand, said that of course, it was impossible to memorize all the floors ideally, but if it was a labyrinth, they would have to act as quickly as possible. The girl replied, looking ahead, that it was true, the team had to find a way out. They also said that there was a secret room on the floor, but she didn't know if they would be able to find it. Looking at the axe, she added that as long as they had at least a drop of luck, they would be able to reach the exit. He shouldn't worry too much, he should use the 9th floor to test his axe. The protagonist, raising his head, replied that it was fine, but he would also take a mace just in case. Who knows, maybe the axe wouldn't suit him. The girl, looking ahead, replied that it was fine, time was running out, he should rest at least a little. The protagonist, smiling, replied that it was fine, she should rest too, and they would see each other on the 9th floor. He got out of bed and said that he could rest for an hour, seeing that there was 1 hour left until the 9th floor. Closing his eyes, he said that he would take a short nap. We are transferred to some time later. The whole team is gathered near a huge gate. A system message appears in front of them that this is the 9th floor of the testing tower, a labyrinth. They need to find a way out of the labyrinth in the allotted time. The guy looked ahead in surprise and asked what it was this time. The big guy, looking ahead, said that by the way, he didn't know why the atmosphere reminded him of the training floor. The protagonist raised his axe. A system message appeared in front of him that his current location was the exit from the labyrinth. He thought that, as the girl had told him, it was a labyrinth. Looking at the huge walls, he thought that in order to get out of the labyrinth, it would be better to follow one wall. It would be easier to memorize the road. Suddenly, everything around him changed, and a system message appeared that he had moved to the center of the labyrinth. Turning around, he shouted what it was. The wind began to push them forward. They thought that they were being sucked inside. Simon looked menacingly in front of him, thinking that if so, he would memorize the entire road at once. Suddenly, a monster appeared in front of them, raising his sword. They were approaching him at great speed. He tried to step forward, thinking about how he needed to dodge, but his body did not move. They quickly closed the distance. The protagonist thought that they would crash. Suddenly, Simon passed through him. Turning around, he wondered how it happened. Raising his head, he continued to think about where they were now. He looked ahead in fear, thinking that he could not remember where they needed to go. A small section of the route appeared in his head. The wind continued to carry them inside the labyrinth. A small altar appeared in front of them. The girl covered her nose. Lowering her head, she screamed that she was going to vomit. Simon, looking around, said that even from this you can feel sick. Looking at the girl, he thought that everyone was tired pretty quickly. He frowned and said that they needed to get out of here before the time ran out, so they needed to rest for a while and then head on immediately. The guy raised his hand and said that he thought there was another way. Everyone looked at him in surprise and asked what he was talking about. The guy smiled and pointed to his head and said that he actually had an amazing memory. One could say that he could easily remember everything, that having seen it only once, he clearly remembered the entire path to the indicated exit. Then he raised his hand and added that they should follow him, then they would not be able to save their strength. The big guy pointed his finger up and said that he really had such an excellent memory. He was just like a guide. He was lucky to meet such wonderful companions. Simon turned around and thought that he was not one to throw words around, so he should be trusted, especially considering the endurance of their team. Suddenly he looked ahead in surprise, thinking that then they really need to go to the exit right away. He looked at his comrade, then asked that he would be able to remember the way to the entrance if they now went by other routes. The guy, looking ahead in surprise, answered that yes, that was also possible, but why? Simon pointed his finger to the side and said that it seemed to him that they did not need to go to the exit so hastily. Since they already knew the way, it would be nice to look for a secret task or a hidden room. The guy raised his finger up and said that this idea was even better, as expected from him. The goblin lit up and said that Simon was incredibly cool. The protagonist, smiling, answered that then their goal would now be to look for a secret task or a hidden room. The big guy, smiling, said that they needed to move forward. And Simon, looking at his comrade, added that he was counting on his memory. He replied that he could rely on him. Then the protagonist looked down at his goblin. He frowned menacingly and told him to lead them. Suddenly the goblin looked ahead in surprise, and a second later he rushed forward. Simon held out his hand to him and said that no, he didn't mean that he would lead them. He was just asking him to be their guide because he had good instincts. He said that he should have said so from the start. The protagonist laughed and apologized to him. The goblin held out his hand and said that he thought they should go there. They headed along the wide road. The goblin, opening his mouth wide, said that it smelled incredible there. Suddenly Simon held out his hand in front of him and told him to stop. A huge minotaur appeared in front of them, looking at him. The protagonist thought as he thought. The guy pulled his ant and shouted that they need to attack. Suddenly Simon turned around and said that he would try to deal with him himself. The big guy looked at him and asked why. It would be easier if they all attacked together. Holding an axe in front of him, the protagonist answered that he wanted to try out his new weapon. The big guy frowned and replied that it was the first time he saw such a monster. He would definitely be fine. Simon took a mace from behind his back and said that yes, he didn't think he could lose. If they thought he was in danger, then just let them help him. The big guy smiled and replied that it was okay if it was him, just let him whistle if he decided he couldn't handle it. Simon turned around and replied that they had agreed. Then he stepped forward. He made a quick dash towards the monster. It turned around and growled menacingly at him, and then he swung his huge mace. Simon swung his axe and shouted for it to take. He struck in front of him, causing a strong clap of lightning. Suddenly, he was blown back. Lowering his head, he thought that he had a feeling as if something was missing. Looking at the weapon, he continued to think that it was because of his head or because he did not use a shield. Putting his head on the floor, he continued to think that since he was already trying to test the axe in battle, he might as well try with this one. The minotaur made a quick dash forward, swinging his weapon, and Simon, smiling, held his axe out in front of him. The protagonist looked ahead in surprise. Swinging his axe with all his might, he caused a strong energy. Then he took a few steps forward. In an instant, he was able to get to the side of the monster. Swinging, he frowned and shouted for it to die. And then, with all his might, he cut its body into two parts. The minotaur, raising its head, roared, and then he plopped down on the ground. Simon, looking at him, asked what it was all about. He smiled and squeezed his weapon, and then, stepping forward, asked that they should continue on their way then. There was a smile on his face. Simon confidently asked everyone if they would continue on their way. The hero looked away, noticing something. The company looked away in surprise. Bruce asked the guy in surprise how he could do it. Simon calmly watched everyone, saying that he had a feeling that the axe suited him perfectly. The man said in surprise that now everything was on a completely different level. Dobby looked at Simon with admiration. Ethan calmly answered that everything was much more concise and organic than before, and one could say that these were the hero's best blows. Bruce smiled, saying that this was right. Simon embarrassedly thanked everyone. Vanessa answered with a laugh that Molly could not take her eyes off him. The heroine looked at Simon, asking if they had exchanged serious glances after the battle. Bruce angrily imagined it all in his head. Molly and Simon were shouting at their father that they were not like that. The guy was holding a weapon in his hands. Bruce looked at Simon, saying that the last time the battle with the goblins was much better. The hero watched from the side, answering that he was right and he should have equipped the axe with both hands. Bruce with interest suggested that the hero switch to a two-handed axe. Simon enthusiastically said that he also thought that it suited him best, but the hero decided to continue like this. The man understood that it was not easy to give up something good. Simon looked away in surprise. Molly looked at the hero. There was admiration in her eyes. Simon calmly stood to the side. Vanessa shouted at the hero to look at the mace. The guy looked away. The hero thought about what Vanessa meant by Molly's difficult character. Simon, with a smile on his face, suggested that the girl try the mace. The guy laughed, saying that it would be nice if the heroine could defend herself when the enemy aimed at the rear. Molly, frightened, said that this was an unusual mace and she did not want to just take it for herself. Simon smiled, saying that it would be more convenient for him to hold the axe with two hands, so most likely, he would not use the mace anymore. The guy calmly replied that for him the best weapon was a two-handed axe. The heroine took the mace in her hands. Bruce, frightened, answered the girl that she could get hurt. Molly smiled, saying that she would succeed. Vanessa, with a smirk on her face, replied that something was definitely going on between them. Simon loudly asked the girl to stop. A group of friends stood in front of the goblins. The guys needed to find a way out of the labyrinth in 7 hours. Simon thoughtfully decided to test the girl's fighting power. The hero turned to Molly, saying that he would lure her to the goblins, and if it seemed too dangerous, the heroes could come to the rescue. The heroine and Ethan stood in a stance. Bruce smiled, wishing the best for his daughter. The guys decided to finish this quickly. Simon and Bruce ran in the other direction. The goblins' bodies were killed one after another. The heroes continued to run quickly. Simon looked at his assistant. Bruce did the same. One of the goblins screamed loudly. The monster opened its mouth wide. Molly ran at it. Her hands were holding a mace. The girl quickly hit him with the weapon. The heroine swung it in different directions. The girl looked forward in surprise. Bruce, gritting his teeth, shouted that it was wonderful. Simon turned around. Molly looked at Simon with admiration, saying that the mace suited her perfectly. The girl decided to ask the guy if she could try one technique. Everyone stood attentively next to her. The goblins were running towards the girl in a crowd. The heroine was angry and furious. Molly quickly spread her arms with a mace. The monsters continued to run towards the heroine. The goblins did not end. Molly thanked everyone for their support. Ethan and the guys smiled sweetly. Simon calmly looked at this, saying that they would not have problems from the rear. The hero began to notice something to the side. A few meters from the guys there was a strange chest. Bruce did not understand why it was standing there. Simon quietly asked if it was suspicious. The man calmly decided that it was an animal that was disguising itself. Simon swung his axe, saying that they could understand this if they cut it in half. The chest was broken. An object jumped out of it and quickly ran away. The girl screamed loudly, telling the guy that he should quickly catch it. The guy was wondering what it was. A smile appeared on his face. The hero ran, shouting that he would do it. The guy ran fast. Simon was angry that he was much faster than everyone thought. The hero gritted his teeth, realizing that he would lose all of the squad members. The guy thought about how to catch up with him faster. Simon decided to look at the skills he had. The hero quickly decided to use the essence of lightning. He confidently looked ahead, realizing that he could run even faster. The hero decided to try. The guy ran fast. He continued to do it faster and faster. The chest tried to escape. Lightning flew around the dungeon. Simon ran quickly, deciding that he had caught it. Sparks flew everywhere. The hero himself was standing in the dust. Simon sighed quickly. The guy was holding the chest in his hands, glad that it was not trying to break free. His legs began to buckle and shake. The guy fell to the floor. Simon began to breathe. The hero coughed, not understanding what kind of shortness of breath it was. Vanessa ran to the guy. Simon answered fearfully that he felt mortally tired. The heroine smiled, saying that he had used up his magic, so he would feel better in a minute. The hero asked Vanessa what was wrong with the other guys. The heroine calmly answered that she needed to explain something, so she asked the guys to find the bodies of the goblins and the mimic. Simon looked down thoughtfully. Vanessa worriedly told the guy that catching a small mimic was very difficult. Simon agreed with the girl with a smile. Vanessa told the guy that he did a great job. The heroine laughed, telling Simon not to drive himself into a framework. The guy looked ahead. His hands began to create magic. The hero quickly raised his hands. The girl watched all this. Her hands were shaking, holding an axe. Simon asked the girl in surprise if they would need a mimic. The hands held him tightly. The hero thought about the inventory. Vanessa calmly answered that the hero could put money or items there. The girl calmly answered that adults were difficult to carry around and small ones were very convenient. Vanessa laughed, answering that this mimic was a real scoundrel. The heroine was angry. The mimic began to burn brightly. Vanessa squeezed the mimic tightly, looking at the guy. Simon decided to wake him up later and put him in another chest. The girl smiled and told the guy that if she did this, the mimic would not grow bigger and only the guy would be able to open it. The heroine answered the guy to collect all the trophies that he earned during the battle, since they would be needed on the 10th floor. Simon did not understand this. Vanessa calmly answered that there would be a rest in the tower every 10 floors, and after that you could even sell items there. Simon thoughtfully decided that if he sold the items, he would receive achievement points in return. The heroine replied that the price to purchase ratio was bad, but it was better than nothing, and there was an opportunity to receive trophies instead of points for inspecting or repairing equipment. Simon was thinking. Vanessa suggested that the guy go back. The girl abruptly stopped the hero and said that after the 11th there would be single floors, so the hero needed to start preparing for this. The difficulty level could change again. The hero thoughtfully replied that he understood everything. The girl calmly left. Simon stood near the chest, asking Dobby if he had found anything. The goblin calmly replied that he had found nothing. Dobby asked the guy with interest if he had found a mimic. Simon smiled, replying that he had put it in his pocket and would use it as inventory. Bruce answered discontentedly that there was almost nothing here, only a few precious stones and worn-out weapons, all because the chest was guarded by weak goblins. The man smiled, answering Simon that if he uses the mimic, they can check how it works and put the items. The guy rummaged in his pocket. The chest opened. Bruce was holding a huge number of items and weapons, trying to hide everything there. Things fell into the chest one after another. The guys looked at it and said that everything was very roomy. An infinite number of weapons fell. Bruce was holding a huge stone, wondering if it would fit. The chest was angry with anger. All the things flew out of the chest. Bruce was displeased with it for spitting everything out at once. The hero noticed something. Simon was holding some shiny thing. In the guy's hand was a golden key. It was connected to the labyrinth, and from now on the secret room will be open. The window says about connecting to the forum of the dead. The blue ghost screamed in fear. Again, what's the point at all? Is there anyone here who has been watching Simon since the first floor? A ghost in glasses appeared behind him and asked what. The character looked back and asked since he had been watching him since the 6th floor, he found a secret room or hidden task on each floor. The green one answered seriously, yes, that's right, the star Simon found everything that could be found. The blue ghost raised his hand and exclaimed, amazing, asked if he thought he was a regressor or something, or was using cheats. Sometimes he even couldn't hear Simon and Vanessa talking. He grinned, that was even possible. The ghost said offendedly, come on, even if Vanessa could foresee the future, there was still no logic in it. He asked if he had heard that on the lower floors he was alone and acted without her. That's true. The green one adjusted his glasses and answered, and on the 6th floor he found everything thanks to her foresight skills. It's all because of good deeds. He saved Dobby, and also Bruce, it's good karma. He folded his arms, grinning, said that he would explain it to him again. It all started when Simon saved Dobby. He began his story with the words, on the 1st floor is the star Simon. At this time, the heroes were in the labyrinth. A message appeared in the window with the condition to leave the Kashiatum labyrinth in a limited time, 5 minutes left. The guy waved his hand, told the goblin to just listen to his feelings and choose a path. Dobby looked at him, worriedly said that he thought something was wrong here. Simon raised his hand, asked, he did not know where to go. He shook his head. The hero frowned, thought that he relied too much on Dobby. What should they do now? He looked back, asked Ethan. He remembered the whole path that they had done so far. The archer nodded, replied that he definitely remembered the whole way. Simon put his hand to his chin, thoughtfully said, it's hard, either choose now which way to go or go back. Ethan asked, finally exit the labyrinth? The hero answered that no, he was talking about that crossroad. Maybe they lost their way there. They looked around. Simon waved his hand, suggested returning to the crossroad they had passed. He thought it would be better to make a decision there. The archer nodded thoughtfully, said that he also believed that this was the best option. Bruce agreed. A little later, they found themselves in that very place. Dobby showed the way with his hand, said, as he thought, to the left. The man raised his finger, confusedly noted, this is the left turn they had just passed, but he said that it was not him. The goblin looked at him in surprise, objected, but everything is correct, to the left. Simon looked up, brought his hand to his mouth, asked, did not they think that they had not found it yet? Bruce looked questioningly at the guy, asked what it meant. The hero explained with a frustrated face that the secret room could be in the corridor between this crossroad and the next one, and they still hadn't found it. Ethan pointed to the side, exclaimed, right, Simon was right, they hadn't checked that passage. Dobby glared at the hero, shouted, right, at least he should have thought for a moment. He was the only one suffering. The boy apologized, told the goblin that he was right. The boy looked back at Molly, said that this time they should check everything carefully while they were walking. The girl exclaimed, yes. The heroes walked and looked around. The archer looked at his feet. Simon said that he didn't see anything here either, maybe over there. Ethan stopped, asked if they thought anything was strange. He poked his finger at one of the tiles, asked if it looked small. Yes. Molly asked embarrassedly, what? They all look the same, don't they? Bruce replied that he didn't see anything strange. Actually, Vanessa noticed that, compared to other bricks, there was a small space between them there. It looked like only a fingernail could fit in there, but Simon stamped his foot on the tile, said that if you press on it, nothing happens. Ethan looked at the guys, puzzled, said that yes, Bruce walked on it, so there was definitely no chance. He took out an arrow, suggested that maybe they should try to lift it through that gap. He inserted the arrow into the space. The hero was happy, the arrow went in there. The archer tried to lift it. The man noticed with excitement. It seemed that the stone was giving in. Molly noticed that there was something inside. Bruce patted the goblin on the head, laughed and praised him, so Dobby's intuition did not fail them. He put his hands on his hips, raised his head and importantly said, the goblin is smart. The man clapped him, exclaimed that yes, he was a good boy, their dear Dobby. Ethan made a movement with his hand, asked Simon, there is a lever, should he pull it? The hero looked down, nodded, answered, of course, they will quickly figure it out and leave here. Ethan put his hand on the lever, said that then it lowers. He pulled down sharply. Everyone ran to the sides. The goblin waved his arms and shouted that Simon wanted to kill him. The guys stood in indecision. They saw a ladder that led down. Ethan assumed that it probably led to some kind of portal. Vanessa said that she had not seen anything like this in the future. The hero put his hand on the hilt of the sword, said that he would go down and they would stay here on guard. The companions took out their weapons. The archer answered, okay. Bruce, Simon and Dobby went down. A greeting message appeared. It was the dog's paradise, a secret room on the 9th floor of the Kashiatum labyrinth. The hero looked up, thought it was quite dark in this place. Barking was heard from the darkness. A message appeared that the secret room had been opened. The hunting dogs had been released. The guy turned, called Vanessa. The girl pointed her staff forward, exclaimed, a flash of fire. The team saw a pack of dogs. She screamed that they were running straight at them. The dogs rushed forward with an angry bark. Simon raised his weapon, shouted for the others to prepare for battle. He told them to hold the line, he would attack from the front. He bowed his head, sternly said, "Do not let down your guard." The hero jumped up. The monsters opened their mouths, sharp fangs appeared. The guy swung. He thought that he should ease the load on the rear as much as possible. A blue glow appeared around the axe. He struck the dogs. They were thrown back. The guy put the weapon on his shoulder. He raised an eyebrow, mockingly shouted at them to attack. Simon made a chopping blow. He swung again, clenched his teeth. He thought there were too many of them. The guy jumped to the side, decided not to rush. The dogs ran at him. He thought then he would do what he could. He made a quick lunge, shouted, "He is coming." The hero stopped, trying to catch his breath, thought, there is no end to them. Apparently, killing hunting dogs is not an option. What should he do then? He suddenly caught a strange sound. Simon looked into the darkness. If he thought about it, he definitely heard the sound from somewhere there. He thought that somewhere here a door was opening. There was no doubt about it, and he should close it. Blue flames appeared around him. He called out to Vanessa. The girl ran forward, shouted that. Simon swung his arm, shouting that he needed to get past them. She stopped and asked, confused, what? A pack of dogs was running at the guy. He pushed off the floor, jumped up, striked at the monsters. A fireball appeared in front of him. The flames flew further. He thought, this is magic, Vanessa. The hero looked to the side, thought, great, if he goes after her, he won't use all his magic like last time. He noticed that he was moving fast enough to catch up with her. The guy was breaking through, following the fire. Simon frowned, looked up. He noticed the place where they were coming from, thought, this is it. The hero pulled his hand back, decided to start with the left. He zapped the pack. He picked up the bolt from the floor, thought, before the dogs come running again. He will close this door. He set the bolt, exclaimed, done, now the right. The dogs rushed at the metal bars of the gate. When the doors were closed, the hero sighed with relief. He grinned and said, well, that's it, it's over. The guy ran back. He needed to get back to the others. When he returned, Bruce praised him for his excellent work. The young man answered sheepishly, not at all, it was only thanks to Vanessa who cleared the way for him. The companions surrounded the girl. The man noted with a smile, yeah, that move of hers was not bad. Molly agreed, it was very cool. Simon said that he was glad that no one was hurt. Ethan turned to Bruce, noted that he had done a good job too. The man cheerfully objected, no, Vanessa did it all herself, set them on fire with her fire. The girl looked back, noticed something. She screamed for them to look there. The dogs they killed were resurrecting. The dogs bared their teeth and growled. She screamed, the undead. Vanessa put her hand on her side, pointed the staff forward, shouted that she was sure that there must be a dark sorcerer somewhere here. Everyone should prepare for battle. Bruce asked irritably how they would put everyone down again. Simon reminded them that they did not have time. Vanessa lowered her head. The guy asked how much was left. About 5 hours. She asked in response. He could handle it himself. If she did this now, then for some time he would not be able to use magic. Flames appeared around the girl's hand. The guy looked at her in surprise. She closed her eyes and said something in an incomprehensible language. Vanessa raised her hands, continued to say the spell. She frowned and shouted, a fiery tsunami. A hot stream of air lifted her. The staff glowed brightly. The dogs were engulfed in flames. Bruce and Simon opened their mouths in surprise. The flash illuminated the guy's face. He thought, this is a fantastic flower which he dreamed of so much. He looked at the flames and thought, this is magic. The animals were walking. The girl asked if Vanessa was okay. She said that she had simply spent all her magic. After all, they didn't have much time left, so she decided to end it. Bruce asked if she was second in the ranking. The girl said that she was still far from Simon. Ethan was shocked. After all the animals were lying on the floor. There were secret rooms everywhere. They decided to open one of them. Then they opened the door. There was a guy and dogs. They had one body and 2 heads. Simon asked to get ready for battle. He had a sword in his hands. Molly and Ethan were ordered to protect Vanessa. The protagonist thought that the animal could greatly interfere, so he initially decided to remove the wizard. The guy in the hood was shocked. The protagonist struck. He was killed. Simon decided to handle everything himself. Bruce agreed. The dogs looked at him. The guy was angry. Then he struck them. He cut off their heads. Bruce asked if the protagonist was okay. Simon replied that everything was fine and that they needed to collect the loot. They took the Kamiatum sky boots. Vanessa decided to leave them with the protagonist and leave as soon as possible. Bruce was worried that the dark wizard would release the dogs again, but the guy knocked him down in one blow. Ethan said that he needed to be more confident because he always cleaned up their problems while in danger. The protagonist explained that this was not the case. After all, they may be young, but they were still children. The 9th floor of the Kasiatum labyrinth was completed and the scoring began. 43 minutes remained in the secret room. The dog paradise was completed. The battle results were added. 5,879 achievement points were added. Level 16 combat focus, level 7 regeneration, and level 3 steel skin were obtained. Just before the conquerors of the trial tower enter it, they will remember a mysterious message that also talks about the green belt. There were many conquerors who dreamed of invading extraterrestrial civilizations. However, no matter how advanced science was, it was no different from magic. The protagonists believed that this phenomenon could be described as a joke from God. The constellation classes were how many planets you owned, or how strong the power of a god was. It could be assumed that the constellations that existed throughout the universe were the gods of the planets. They could even think of how the conquerors were deceived by their constellations and classes in the early floors, as a kind of social welfare policy between the gods. Even in sports, there was a draft system. There was one thing that was in doubt. Where did the conquerors whose class was a priest get their divine power from? Why did the divine power not appear in the priest status window? Unlike other species found in the test tower, why did their mana drain when casting healing spells? So he thought that the test tower was the process of selecting a god planet. There was something that was disturbing. The phrase belonging to the test tower, which was written in the conqueror status window. He wondered what it meant. The ability recovery, which was limited, finally increased. By the time he reached the 11th floor, the skills should be better. His skills improved. There were 30 minutes left until the 10th floor. He even bought a chest to store the mimic. The purchase price was 1,000 points. She could not store the owner. Simon looked at the chest. He thought about how to put his pet there. The girl answered that you just need to open the lid above the storage chest and turn it upside down and then the baby will suck in. The guy did so. Then he asked if that was all. Vanessa confirmed, but also warned that the pet would not listen initially because it needed to be trained. Simon asked again. The girl agreed, because after training he would be cuter, you just need to shake him a few times. The guy understood. Dobby asked him to train. The guy decided to train himself. Dobby was angry. He started shouting that he would see how he could do it. The guy said that he would understand himself when the time came. Then he asked what was wrong with the armor. Vanessa was studying it at that moment and it was difficult to understand. There was little time left, so she suggested discussing it in the recreation area. They were moved to the 10th floor. The squad went to the floor in the recreation area. On the 10th floor they could rest, because combat operations were prohibited. There were 35 hours left to rest. Simon was delighted. Dobby was also delighted. After all, they saw the recreation area. They were greeted in Sector 1, the recreation area of the 10th floor. Combat operations were prohibited in this area. Bruce and Molly were surprised. Ethan and Vanessa liked it too. Bruce's father told him something similar and it was clear at first glance that this was a recreation area. Molly worried in vain. The bald guy said that usually in such a place they give out rewards according to the rating. But there was nothing here, because if there was, their group would have collected everything. Simon was surprised. After all, there were people who looked at them. One was beating another. There were about 1,000 people. The rest area was divided into different sectors, Vanessa said. Each sector had its own advantages. The guy pointed to the village and said that there was a rest area there. The girl suggested going there. Dobby liked it. The rest area was divided into 4 sectors, namely a shelter, a dining room, a weapons shop, and a shop. Everything was as Vanessa said. Dobby imagined how he ate, and also how he slept. The shelter and the dining room were provided for free. Therefore, instead of shopping, they used repairs for equipment and selling trophies. The weapons shop and the shop were similar to those in the waiting area, and you can find items there that are not in the waiting area. There was one problem. The gun shop and the store didn't open until tomorrow, so he had to skip them. It was the first time Simon had been in such a quiet place since he got to the tower. Everyone was happy that they had lasted so long. The guy was surprised by the protagonist. After all, he was first in the ranking. The guys started asking him for an autograph. The girl nudged Simon with her shoulder and told him to turn his head without changing his expression. The protagonist thought that maybe she was worried that girls might run in. After all, that would cause inconvenience to their group. He decided to get into character. He started to get into the control image. Then he finished it. The first impression was important, so making a strong impression on the other climbers would be an advantage, the protagonist thought. He told the guy that he was busy. The guy thought he was cool. It was night. Simon asked if he really lived at Dunchon Station. Bruce confirmed it. Ethan liked the food. Molly was surprised because they knew how to cook earthly food. It was tastier than what they ate on the ground. Vanessa said that the situation was different in other sectors. They said that they sold items for achievement points or gave only water and bread. Ethan understood that it was possible. Simon thought about it. Everyone at the table fell silent. The protagonist understood what advantages she was talking about. One of the people asked to join them. It was a girl named Angela. She sat down, although she was not told that she could. The first 6 from the rating gathered at one table. Dobby said that he was here too. She greeted him. Dobby felt that, unlike the protagonist, she was a warm person. Simon understood that she was not a bad person. He paid attention. Vanessa was burning with anger. He did not understand why she was acting like this. The girl turned away. Angela said that one of their group suggested collecting the wills of other climbers, and asked what they thought about it. Simon asked again. The girl confirmed. After all, if someone survives and leaves the tower, then this person will be able to deliver the wills to the deceased climbers and their families. Ethan didn't know how many would die. The girl continued that the community would still remain and the wills should be shorter. After all, in any case, those who could leave the tower would deliver. Simon asked how she was going to remember everyone. The girl replied that the shop sold automatic notebooks where you could organize notes and deliver them separately. She also told the guy that he would take care of the notes. After all, he would update them on each floor and post them in the community chat. In the event of his death, another would do it. It was like an ongoing project. Bruce was all for it. The girl agreed because he was an excellent magician. The main character understood that if the earth was still Chella, it could bring comfort to the families. It was a great idea because there were good people on her team. The girl asked if he wanted to drink with her. Simon replied that they were already drinking. Angela suggested that they both drink. The guy was shocked. A notification appeared that he had connected to a forum for the undead. Conquerors had entered the 10th floor, a recreation area. Dead conquerors could not see conquerors in the recreation area. Raising his head, the creature shouted why. Tears were streaming from his eyes, and he said that it was not fair. If this was a recreation area, then they would do this and that, right? The creature with glasses asked what crazy bastards. What were they even going to do when they did not have a physical body? Suddenly a request was heard that let him ask him one thing. Folding his arms, the creature asked if he had not told him that he was a massal. Raising his hand, he answered what it was something that he ate, to which he said that this fool was a massal. Closing his eyes, the creature shouted that he did not care whether they were massals or not, just let them quickly show him the recreation area. Looking at them, the creature in glasses asked if Simon should save such brats. Crazy idiots, let them just die. It was heard that he also wanted to go on dates. The girl asked about whether he had time for this. Vanessa angrily said that he would talk to her about the armor today. Tilting her head, Angela asked that he was going to take a sip. Scratching the back of his head, the hero apologized and said that he needed to talk to the girl. So, looking at her drinking, the hero thought that yes, he can't just give in to someone's temptation right in front of his childhood friend. Looking at the hero, Angela said that then. Smirking, she asked what about him. Raising his hands, Ethan said that he apologized. It's not because he doesn't like her, but he has a partner. Laughing, the girl said to forget about it. It was a joke. For some strange reason, she lost most of the interest in the others after the 8th floor. Suddenly, she took a step. The girl put her hand on the hero's shoulder. Hugging him, she said that then let them work hard. Squinting his eyes, the hero thought that it was as if time froze for a second. Grinning, the protagonist added that in fact, he just farted. Turning around, he thought that anyway. Confused, he added that why was she acting like this from the very beginning. Simon angrily asked why was she acting like this from the very beginning? He did nothing, right? Looking away, the girl asked what she did at all. Laughing, Bruce said that he was curious why their first and second ranks were acting like this. Okay, he offered to clink glasses, and she did too. Looking at the man, Molly asked if it was true she could have a drink too. He had told her the opposite before. Closing his eyes, the man replied that everything was fine, she shouldn't worry, she was an adult now. Holding a mug in his hand, the man said that it was fine, then let's move on to their party. All the players happily raised their drinks. Dobby sat there looking pleased. Grinning, the girl thought that they had been the strangest team all this time. The protagonist smiled widely. Dobby and the protagonist were asleep. But that night, in the inn, Simon's eyes suddenly opened. It was heard that he had lost him, crying, darling, he wants to go home, son, he loves her, he had lost her. All the players could not sleep. Loneliness covers when you are alone, makes a person even weaker. The girl looked out the window, and yet, Mom, Dad, let them not worry. Raising his hand up, the hero thought that he would definitely return back with everyone else. A gun shop appeared. Raising his hand, the seller said, Conquerors, what happiness? Pointing to the side, he said that they should look at the goods themselves and just pay when they leave, look around when they are settled, and go up to the 2nd floor to repair, create and sell equipment. The hero thought that looking at him, one could really say that he looked like an NPC from the game. Looking down, the protagonist thought that there are many games in which you can carry a lot of things, but here it is probably impossible, right? The girl looked to the side, and the hero added that indeed, if this were so, then why do you need regression at all? The items and their cost appeared. Frowning, the hero said that it is definitely expensive. Pointing up, Vanessa asked what she told him, said it would cost a pretty penny, to which he replied, of course, Miss Regressor. Simon turned his head and asked if there was any useful armor. Raising a finger, the girl replied that she was looking at it right now, let him wait a bit. Taking her face, she said in surprise that it was here. Looking straight ahead, the hero asked what is this? The gloves of the underworld appeared, accumulating mana, exclusive, the price of the lot is 70,000 points. The hero opened his eyes wide and asked what kind of gloves would go for 70,000 points. Looking down, the girl said that if they were here, then it is impossible that she did not know about it, to which the hero asked why. That is a problem. Besides, why are they so expensive? Looking forward, Vanessa asked what he remembered. When they first came to the test tower, they were told that there were 4 intelligent species, right? Looking at her, the hero answered that yes, he remembered that. A centaur appeared, and the girl said that these were gloves worn by a first-rank climber from another planet. Looking down, she added that everything was so difficult because of these gloves. Pointing down, the girl offered to take his armor later. Right now, they will buy these first, to which he asked that they will buy the gloves, but he does not have enough points. At the moment there are 54,000. The girl pointed to the gloves. Looking at the hero, she said that she will give him points, to which he asked that she can give others achievement points. Spreading her arms, she answered that it is quite possible to give them to others, since the accumulated points do not change. The rating also does not change. The hero frowned and asked if she could really just give them away. She folded her arms and said that there was a 10% commission, but if he could just buy them, then nothing bad would happen. Vanessa pointed her finger up and said that he should just trust this Nuna and definitely buy them. Simon looked down and said okay, he should listen to her, Miss Regressor. A notification appeared that he had purchased the underworld gloves that accumulate mana, exclusive. The hero raised his hand up. It was written that these were high-class gloves created in the underworld. The more he kills, the more mana accumulates, grows depending on the user's level, all abilities +2, to which the hero said that great, the next floor won't be too difficult, right? The hero and Dobby entered the testing tower on the 11th floor. There was a request that they destroy all the enemies. The remaining time was 11 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds. Looking up, the hero thought that he felt more contrasting than the last single floor. Pointing her finger forward, the girl asked that he understood her, so let him not lose his vigilance even if a goblin appears. The hero stood in front of the goblins, and she added that he should keep in mind the fact that even if the goblin warrior has the same appearance, their strength varies depending on the floor. The man closed his eyes and thought that he should never lose his vigilance, concentrate as much as possible. And then he opened his eyes and said that they will finally finish this. Holding the sword in his hand, Dobby said go ahead. Looking straight ahead, the hero answered yes, go ahead. The goblin and the hero walked straight along the tunnel. Suddenly, 2 orc guards appeared. Looking at them, the protagonist told the goblin to step back. Dobby's eyes widened and he said he understood. The orcs were advancing on the protagonist. He thought that if it was sheet metal armor, then it would be easier to attack them with lightning. Rushing forward, he added that he should learn more on single floors, suggested fighting using only an axe. A weapon appeared. The hero thought that it would be so that he could protect everyone. The hero quickly struck the orcs. Dobby said in surprise that it was so cool. Raising his sword up, he added that he would also try to copy the hero. Dobby was strong. A message appeared that they had entered the boss's chambers. It was written that they should choose one of these 2 doors and continue forward. The remaining time was 5 hours 52 minutes 59 seconds. Looking at the goblin, the protagonist asked if there really was no hidden mission or hidden room, to which he replied that he felt nothing at all. Looking away, the protagonist asked what he thought of how he had fought so far. Pointing his finger up, the goblin said that it was smooth, he was cool. Looking down, the protagonist wondered if that was really how it looked to others. The protagonist swung his weapon and thought about when he had made so many unnecessary movements. Looking at his hand, the protagonist mused that for now, due to the fact that there were improvements in some places, he was satisfied. Lowering his head, the protagonist asked what he knew about the door in front of them, to which he asked if something was wrong. 2 doors appeared, and Simon asked what he thought it had to do with the monsters they would encounter. Closing his eyes, Dobby said that he was stupid. Of course he didn't know that. Turning his head, the hero asked if there was a door he wanted to go through. Putting his hand to his face, the goblin replied that it was there, not the door, he wanted to go there, and the hero thought that it was confirmed that Dobby was no good on this floor. Stretching his pet, the hero thought about how small this one was, to which he replied that it was so arrogant. Approaching the red door, the hero told him to stay here, to which he replied that he was stupid Simon. Putting his hand on the door, the hero thought that the energy emanating from it was such a sensation that it sent shivers down his spine. Closing his eyes, the hero added that according to his instincts, he did not think he should go there. Looking at the other door, the hero thought that yes, he would choose that one. The hero and the goblin approached the black door. The hero looked at it thoughtfully. Looking straight ahead, he asked what night it was. There was something gloomy about it, to which the goblin replied that it had become dark. Walking straight ahead, the hero thought that it was a dome. an arena, an igloo, or whatever those holes were. Looking to the side, the hero said that since they didn't know for sure, he would go first, and he would stay here for a second, to which Dobby replied that he should be careful. Continuing on, the hero thought that it was just a channel they were passing through. Suddenly, a huge stone appeared. The hero heard about it and thought that the room was some kind of trap. Looking to the side, Simon shouted for the goblin to remain vigilant and stay where he was. The stone was flying down quickly. Dodging it, the hero said that it was too easy. Suddenly, the stone bounced off the wall. The protagonist looked at it in surprise. Spikes from the stone appeared, and he thought that they should not tell him that these were real blades. The hero struck the stone. Suddenly, several of them appeared. The cannonball was spinning around quickly. A guard appeared. He could twist his body into a ball and roll on the ground. He could twist and untwist the awl on the back of his body. He had the advantage of being skilled in dual wielding. Frowning, the hero thought that he didn't look that strong. Holding the weapon in his hands, Simon added that it was the first time he had met a being who was a master of dual wielding, so he was curious if this would help in his research into axe skills. The ball began to roll around rapidly. Looking to the side, the hero thought, what the heck, he wasn't the only one. Picking up the axe, the protagonist thought that he should become stronger so that he could constantly avoid such things. Standing in front of the guard, he added that he could see that the enemy wasn't attacking him head-on. The guard smirked, and the hero thought that his plan was probably to defend himself while simultaneously identifying a weak point. The monster's eyes glowed red, and the hero added that he was going to attack the weak point from both sides at once. Taking hold of the dagger, the hero thought that, however, he also did not. Having taken out the weapon, the protagonist thought that he was just playing around to get to this point. The guard rushed towards the hero, and he thought. Reflecting his blow, the hero asked what it meant. The guard extended the sword in front of him. The hero struck him. Then he grinned slightly. He put both weapons next to each other. Gritting his teeth, he shouted that like this. Blood flowed from the guard's mouth. The guard was lying on the ground. Closing his eyes, the protagonist said that right now. Lightning suddenly appeared around him and he thought that now. Looking at the monsters, the hero thought that time had stopped. The hero suddenly jumped to the side. Then he struck the monsters. Emitting lightning, the hero thought that in this form he was the best. Simon smiled widely. Suddenly the monster crashed into him. Blood was coming out of the hero's mouth. Dobby shouted the hero's name in surprise. Stretching his hands forward, the goblin spoke of healing wounds. Simon looked to the side and asked if he was okay. The hero looked at the blood and thought about it. Looking at his hand, he said that if his body trained a little more, he might even be able to use it as an attack. Raising his sword, Dobby asked the hero if he was okay. The protagonist smiled and said that of course, he was fine. Looking ahead, the protagonist said that he had gotten rid of the enemy, so where should they go now? Suddenly, 2 doors appeared. A request appeared that he should choose one of the 2 doors and continue moving forward. The remaining time was 5 hours, 31 minutes, 59 seconds. Looking around, the hero said that as expected, it would not end after he got out of it once. The hero entered the black door. The door began to close. Looking at the goblin, the protagonist asked if it was dark because they chose the black door. If they had chosen the red door, he thought there would have been flames, to which he replied that he thought so. Looking ahead, the hero said that it was good that things were as they were. He should continue to hone his fighting skills in the dark. Standing in front of the door, the hero told the goblin to step back like he had just done, to which he replied that he understood. Walking forward, the hero thought that before the great danger would appear, he would have to become much stronger than he was at the moment. Closing his eyes, the hero thought that first, he would close his eyes and focus only on his auditory perception. The hero froze and thought. Listening, he thought that the sounds were coming from 5 directions. 2 guards flew out, and he added that the direction was 10 o'clock and the direction was 7 o'clock. Jumping up, he added that the continuation was 12 o'clock. Looking down, the hero thought that 4 o'clock, 1 o'clock. Closing his eyes, he thought that he needed to focus, concentrate. Holding the axe in his hand, he thought that he should keep all his senses on guard. Suddenly, a guard flew out at him. Having hit him, he thought that first on the left, the next on the right. Raising the axe above his head, he added that in the center too. The monsters screamed furiously. With his eyes wide open, the protagonist asked if everything was going too easy. Closing his eyes, the hero thought that no, he shouldn't be arrogant, he wouldn't lose his tension. Opening his mouth, he said that he was holding the sword freely and, standing with his back to them, the hero shouted that they would fight for real, they, the bastards. Suddenly, he struck the guards. He deftly swung the weapon around. The hero said that they were in trouble. He thought it was getting harder and harder for them to move forward, to which the goblin replied that he couldn't. Got it, Dobby? Got it, dark place? Okay, though. A message appeared that he needed to choose one of the 2 doors and continue moving forward. The remaining time was 4 hours, 47 minutes, 59 seconds. The door opened slightly, and the hero asked what it was. Probably the black door, right? The creature asked who dared to go to this place. Looking straight ahead, the hero wondered what he was talking about. It was the boss. Two crossed swords appeared. The monster said that since only thieves had gotten here so far, he realized that he couldn't talk because he was embarrassed. Rushing forward, he added that he lacked good manners. The hero parried the monster's blow. Looking surprised, he wondered why so quickly. Lowering his head, he added that but he could just block it. Blood spattered. The hero wheezed, looking down. The hero screamed tensely. Looking at the sword, he thought, what the he? He was sure he had guessed the trajectory of the sword, though. Suddenly, he jumped sharply to the side. Looking to the side, Dobby asked that everything was fine. He couldn't heal because he couldn't see. Looking at him, the monster asked that he was a traitor, said that he would kill him immediately. Looking at him, the hero asked that instead of mocking the young goblin, why didn't he come here, and then thought that fortunately it was only a superficial wound. Running at the hero, the boss said that it was just funny how such brats tried to imitate him. Looking to the side, the hero thought that left, right, and center. Surprised, opening his eyes, the hero thought that he thought it was a dagger. The guard's sword appeared, and he added that he thought the attacks were too fast. He uses a shorter sword than the guards. The monster shouted furiously that he was thinking too much. Stretching his hand forward, the hero replied that he should let him think for a while. Frowning, Simon thought that he had missed. He did not hear any screams. The monster smirked and said that such small tricks did not work on him. Sighing, the hero asked what were those other steps in the background then, and then thought that the lightning did not work on him either. Did he have any resistance? Running up, the boss shouted that he should shut up, just die faster. The protagonist fought the monster. Lightning appeared around the hero and he thought about the flash. The boss crouched slightly, and the hero added that he stops the enemy's time during the fight and determines the exact location of the specified enemy. Bringing the axe to his head, the hero thought about what his torso undoubtedly represents. The monster dodged and the hero thought it was checkmate. The boss held the blade tightly. The hero swung at it furiously. The monster smiled and the hero thought what for. Gritting his teeth tightly, Simon asked how what. Looking away, the hero thought he didn't understand. Grinning, the boss said that now he saw that he had real talent. Laughing, the hero said that he was pretending to be confident after being so surprised, and then thought about what he had just done. Gritting his teeth, the hero thought that the hidden movement, how should he counter this? Looking at the boss, the hero thought that the risk of getting into close combat again was too high. Moreover, because of the flash, he had used up half of his magic power. Smiling, the boss said that he could almost hear the gears turning in his head from here. Looking straight ahead, the boss asked how long he was going to stay like this. The hero replied that it was strange. He thought it was the sound of gears turning in his brain. Crossing his weapons, the monster said that of course, thieves don't have good manners. Looking straight ahead, the boss said that he would show him. Suddenly, the hero rushed towards him and thought about hitting his body. The boss spat out a bunch of blood. Looking down, Dobby asked that he was okay. It can't be, he was dead. Waving his arms, the goblin added that he should wake up. He wouldn't die, he would save him. Holding his head, the hero said that he was okay now, thank him, to which he replied that Simon was saved. Looking straight ahead, the hero asked that the room had become brighter, to which Dobby replied that the enemy was dead, that's why. Raising his hands, the goblin said that all the enemies exploded, and Simon, having chosen, collapsed. The hero was searching the corpses and shouting about what to loot, and the goblin said that he was scared. Looking up, the hero saw that the boss's chambers on the 11th floor of the test tower had been conquered. It was said that the 12th floor was a floor connected to the 11th floor. The achievement scale would be calculated after the 12th floor. A request appeared that he entered the 12th floor through the next door. There were 59 minutes and 59 seconds left before the entrance, and the hero said that damn it, he wanted to rest, but this was all acting like some kind of madness, to which the goblin shouted that someone else's dead body, let him not touch it. Sighing, the hero said that they would check what items he had and then go. It was written about the daggers that it was a fake version of the unique weakness, can be divided into two parts, agility +2, automatic defense against all physical attacks once, acquisition of shadow veil, and about the torn cloak, that before it was torn, it had excellent resistance to non-physical attacks. Now it has not such an effect, but it is better than nothing. Looking down, the hero said that this brat was wearing a completely fraudulent item. Yes, he made a lot of noise putting it on, but this cloak was torn only because of a simple blow to the body. The hero burst into tears, shouted that bloody hell, this is trouble, he should not have done this. Dobby said that he needed healing wounds, it seems to hurt him, to which he replied that it does not. The hero put the cloak on himself. A dagger appeared on him. Looking at the protagonist, the goblin said that the sword was new, another one, great, to which the hero asked that they stick together if they were brought together. The 12th floor of the test tower appeared, a pearl in the sand. There was a task to destroy all enemies. The remaining time was 1 hour and 59 minutes. Looking straight ahead, the hero thought that the floor was called a pearl in the sand, so the guards protect the pearl. Looking at the goblin, the hero said that he should stay close since enemies can jump out of the sand, to which he replied that he should not worry, he is confident in himself. The hero looked to the side and thought about the vibration. Suddenly, a creature appeared in front of them. A black dragon appeared. The hero asked about it in surprise. Holding an axe in his hand, the protagonist asked that he had ever seen dragons in his life. They are common here, to which he replied that no, he never saw and it is scary. Looking at them, the dragon made a sound. It began to spew flames and the hero jumped back. Gritting his teeth, the protagonist asked what the hell, they are seriously telling him to strangle the dragon. Suddenly, Simon began to cough. Looking to the side, he asked that his breath also contains poison, they want him to capture it. The dragon appeared. It was said that a fully grown adult dragon in his youth suffered from an unknown disease, which led to a decrease in intelligence, is unable to identify allies and cannot use magic. The only ability is the use of breath, along with spewing poisonous flames, but even that is not enough. The hero let out a surprised cry. Frowning, he asked what they called him a stupid dragon. If he had flaws, maybe they should stick around to find out. Looking up, Dobby said they would. No, flaws. In that case, it was worth fighting, to which he asked that he wanted him to fight this one. The dragon threw back its head, and the hero asked what if there were other dragons that could help this guy. The dragon suddenly began to breathe fire, and the hero shouted that they should not mess with him. Narrowing his eyes, the hero wondered what the pearl in the sand meant. By the way, just don't tell him they had to dig up the whole place. Looking straight ahead, the hero thought that it seemed like it was suffering from its breath. The dragon made a face. Looking up, the hero wondered if it was possible that the poison in its breath was not an innate ability. Closing his eyes, the goblin shouted that it was good, let him think about it, but first he would calm the thing down at least a little. Lowering his head, the hero said that it was good, he would calm it down as he said and then he would think about it. Raising his sword up, Simon said that he was not sure if the shadow veil would work on the dragon, but he would at least try. Holding the dagger in his hand, he spoke about the shadow veil. Green smoke appeared. The dragon shouted, and the hero looked at it, thinking that it was a relief. It worked. Frowning, the protagonist thought that this shadow veil used more mana than he thought, but still, he thought he could hold out for about 5 minutes. Looking up, the hero thought that he had to find the pearl in those 5 minutes, if not, he would be the one to lose first. Looking at the goblin, the hero asked him if he felt anything, said that they needed to find something like a pearl in the sand, to which he replied that he did not feel anything. The dragon fell to the ground, and the hero said that he did not have the strength to turn over the sand. Standing in front of the goblin, the hero said that he should try to dig to that place, and he would dig from here to that point, to which he replied that he understood. Dobby began to dig the sand. The hero dug a hole. Sighing, the goblin asked if this was even real, said that he could not find it. Looking away, the hero said that it was true. Then what did the pearl in the sand mean? The dragon appeared, and the hero asked if it was possible that the dragon was the pearl. A glow emanated from the monster's head. Grinning, the hero thought that the pearl was in the sand. A light emanated from the dragon's face. It was written that the reptilian guardian was defeated. The remarkable use of combat skills in the dark was highlighted. Agility increased by 2 points. Inflexibility level 16 was obtained. Lightning level 2. Perception level 4. Only the black door was selected. A black dragon appeared on the 12th floor and another one appeared on the 14th. A man from the 3 kingdoms appeared. He once called a doctor to cure him of an illness. He was called a divine physician. A diagnosis was made that involved splitting the man's skull to cure him. The hero thought that they said that he, suspecting this, eventually killed the doctor. A beam appeared. The hero added, in order to avoid such a situation, one must choose the best way to deal with it. Looking at his hand, the hero wondered if this was not possible with the essence of lightning. Rushing forward, the protagonist thought that the essence of lightning did not cause much damage to those he had outstripped as an ally. Lightning was flying around him, and he added that this method was the safest. The hero jumped up sharply. Dobby shouted in surprise that he was going to the dragon, he would die. Swinging, the hero thought that he would let the parasite die, and the goblin said that they were moving on, he would die, he would wake up. The dragon woke up and shouted loudly. Lightning was flying around him. Suddenly he fell to the ground. The hero smiled and looked away. It was written that the hidden mission of the parasite, which even dragons do not know about, was completed. The black dragon's disease was cured. The black dragon appearing on the 14th floor will be friendly to the conqueror Simon. The dragon opened his eyes. Looking down, he was perplexed. He exhaled air. Then he shouted. Fire appeared. The flames spread everywhere. The hero thought that this was a real breath of poisonous flame, and the goblin said that he was different than before. Incredible. The dragon grinned at the hero. It was written that he was an adult dragon, the parasite that was in his body before was destroyed, due to which the original intelligence indicator was restored, capable of using magic and poisonous fire breath. The dragon laid his head down, and the hero asked what he was asking to pet him. Sitting on him, the hero asked that he was like a dog or something like that. The dragon's eyes lit up. A purple pearl appeared. The hero looked at it in surprise. It flew to his ear. He had an earring. It was said that the probability that the dragon he met would be friendly towards him increases. Allows you to communicate with the dragon. Resistance to toxins level +4, magic +2. Looking forward, the hero asked that he really gives him something like that. The dragon smiled widely. Looking up, Dobby said that, by the way, why can't you give it to him? To which the hero replied that he and the dragon. Looking to the side, the hero asked, doesn't this mean that the god he believes in has something better for him than this? And then thought, let him forgive him, he doesn't know either. It was said that congratulations, the 11th floor, 2 doors and the 12th floor of the Pearl and the Sand of the Trial Tower have been completed. Penetrating the Black Door, the 11th and 12th floors, the related hidden quest Black Pearl completed. The battle results are calculated, 9,783 achievement points have been added, a total of 11,783 achievement points, moving to the waiting room. The hero sat on the dragon. Waving his hand, he bid farewell to the dragon, said that if fate works out like this, then they will see each other again in the future. Let him take care of himself until then. Do not forget his kindness. The dragon exclaimed happily. It was said that the conquest of the 11th and 12th floors of the test tower was completed, entering the waiting room. As the first in the overall standings and the first to conquer the 10th floor, the conqueror Simon was awarded an upgraded personal waiting room. From now on, he can freely consume the food he wants in the waiting room, and a small training room was also added. One assistant conqueror was confirmed. Therefore, an additional bed was installed. The remaining time until entering the 13th floor of the test tower is 11 hours 59 minutes. Please rest. Dobby looked up in surprise. Looking at the bed, he said that he got it. Holding the goblin, the hero said that he should wait a minute. Looking away, Simon said that he knew he worked hard, but he did not think he should take a shower first. He knew he stinks. The hero asked again in surprise. The goblin smiled and said that it was true. It stunk all the time. It was dirty. He just looked at who was talking and who wasn't. The goblin tried to reach for the handle. Looking at the door, the hero asked what that door was. That was the training space that had been added. Opening it, the hero thought that he should go and see then. Going inside, the hero asked what was so cool about it. Looking away, he asked what. The girl asked what it was. Considering how long he had been on the 11th floor, his return had been too fast. Were the 11th and 12th floors connected? The hero grinned and said yes, that's what happened. Crouching down, the hero said that he understood, so the 13th floor was the floor where 2 people moved together, to which he was told that yes. Looking straight ahead, the protagonist asked if it really had to be just the 2 of them. Wouldn't it have been safer to bring the other team members along? Vanessa smirked and replied that no, it wasn't a level where their team members could die, and it would be more efficient to earn points if they moved together, to which Simon replied that well, in that case, it couldn't be helped. Looking at the sign, the protagonist asked why the remaining time was decreasing. Wouldn't it be infinite if there were no people? The girl said that it was because he had conquered the 11th and 12th floors in a row without a break. The rest time on the 11th floor that he originally had was added, to which the protagonist asked what that meant. Smiling, the girl said that it was a floor where everyone participated, but he hadn't rested enough. Clenching his fist, the hero replied that it meant that the other conquerors were resting more according to his time than was given, to which she replied that yes, that was not bad. Coming out of the shower, the goblin said that he washed everything, to which Simon replied that great job, let him go and rest. Walking forward, Dobby said that he was going to bed. He then jumped on the bed. He closed his eyes and fell asleep. Grinning, the hero said that he was cute. Sitting on a chair, the protagonist asked if he should go and rinse off, and then said that he needed to go shower. He would contact her later, to which she replied that okay, great job. The hero and the goblin were in the training room. It was said that the remaining time until entering the 13th floor of the testing tower was 5 hours and 11 minutes. Request to rest. Looking down, the hero asked what he said, that he knew a little about swords. Dobby said yes. Simon stepped forward and said he didn't know what level he was, but he rushed forward and added that they would try it right now. The goblin held his sword in his hand and said they would. Dobby swung his sword. The hero dodged the blows skillfully. He then stepped in front of him. The goblin struck and the hero thought it was not bad. Looking at him, the hero said it again. Dobby raised his sword above his head and said let him try it, to which the hero thought that was the problem. Walking back, the hero added that it was better than he expected. Turning around, the hero said that it was enough, that would be enough. The goblin sadly asked about his weakness. The hero smiled and said that no, he had to make sure of that. It was not that he was weak, he was just strong. Hugging the goblin, he asked what he thought. Was there a stronger goblin among his peers? The goblin looked away and said no, right now the goblin is an adult. Goblins too, he can hit. The hero smiled broadly and said yes, and besides, they had only reached the 13th floor, so they would not be impatient, to which the goblin replied that it was good, that was a good way of thinking. It was said that the 13th floor of the testing tower required a team of 2 people. Let him register his partner conqueror. If he could not find a partner in the remaining time, the tower would randomly select whether he wanted to register a partner conqueror for the 13th floor. The hero smiled and said the girl's name. The registration took place. Conqueror Vanessa was chosen as Simon's conqueror. The registration was complete. The 13th floor of the testing tower, the insect forest, appeared. From now on, the insect's attitude towards the conqueror will change every 30 minutes, fluctuating from neutral to aggressive. There are places throughout the forest where you can take refuge and avoid the attacks of insects. He can stay in the shelter for 30 minutes. To find shelter points, he needs to find key insects. If he uses the key to the shelter point, it cannot be used again. If he hits other insects with an attack, when capturing key insects, nearby insects will begin to attack the conquerors. If he fails to capture the key insect 5 times or more, all insects will attack the conquerors. The first 30 minutes, all insects are neutral. Let them survive the fight against insects that fill the forest. The remaining time is 3 hours and 59 minutes. The hero asked what happens. There are 2 types of insects, to which the girl replied that yes, they will take a closer look. A fire insect appeared. This is an insect with the power of fire. It has a paralyzing poison, and the areas that were pierced or damaged by stings will burn. An ice insect appeared. This is an insect with the power of ice. It has a paralyzing poison, and the areas that were pierced or damaged by the stings will be frozen. Looking straight ahead, the hero said that they burn and freeze. These insects are also quite large. Looking up, Dobby said that if he does not cope with this, it will be his end. Let them be careful. Looking to the side, the hero thought that it seems that he has become more confident after training. Smiling, the hero said that it is true, treatment is necessary, to which he replied that everything is correct. Looking at the hero, the girl said that on the 13th floor they just need to go straight and defeat the queen. This is a relatively simple mission for them, to which he replied that it is intuitively understandable. Smirking, Vanessa said that the distance is a little long, so they will hurry and defeat the queen, at the same time destroying insects to earn achievement points. The hero replied that he was fine and asked if Dobby was ready. Running straight ahead, Dobby shouted that he was going to go. Running after him, Simon shouted that he shouldn't run faster than him. The players and the goblin ran straight ahead. It was written that they had to survive the fight against the insects that filled the battlefield. The remaining time was 3 hours and 37 minutes. The hero exclaimed in surprise. Looking away, the girl asked what was wrong. Only 7 minutes had passed before the neutral insects would begin to attack. Raising his hand, the hero asked to stop for a minute. Turning his head, Vanessa asked that he had found the key insect. It was said that they did not have to catch it. Looking at the insect, he said that he felt that he had missed something, and then thought that it was something. It seemed to be here. His instincts told him about it. Where is it? Then he thought that under the tree, an ice insect, not near the branch. The hero continued that either the leaves, or in the sky, or near the branch. A fire insect appeared, and the hero said that he found it. Lightning appeared around the protagonist. He quickly rushed upward. The protagonist grabbed the insect. The wind appeared. The protagonist looked at him. The girl asked in surprise why he caught it. Turning around, the hero answered that he simply felt that he should catch it, to which she asked what a good feeling. Holding it in his hand, the hero said that yes, however, he did not understand why he had to catch it. Putting her hand to her face, the girl said that it looked like an ordinary fire insect. Lowering her head, the hero asked what if she was also not sure whether he should kill it, to which she answered that of course. Simon looked back and asked if he just said that but he really should take his life, to which she replied that he did. Looking straight ahead, the girl said that they had to kill the key insects anyway to get the key. If there was something in it, it would probably spit it out after it died. Clutching it in his hand, the hero replied that he understood and apologized. Suddenly, a key appeared in his hand. They looked at it in surprise and asked. Looking at it, the hero asked what it was in the girl's side. Looking up, Vanessa furiously said that these damn idiots, they dare to post information in the community without sharing important information, to which the hero said that he was scared. The hero said fearfully that they were posting information in the community without sharing important information. What is that supposed to mean? Looking away, the goblin said that the conversation is important. Time, isn't it over yet? The task appeared that it was necessary to survive in the fight against insects that filled the battlefield. The remaining time was 3 hours and 30 minutes. Looking at the girl, the hero said that they would talk about it later, to which she replied that it was good. All the insects in the forest would now begin to attack the conquerors. Evil insects appeared. The hero looked at them and said that looking at them in this way, they resembled a swarm of locusts. I wonder if they would taste good if fried. Looking forward, the girl said that they would eat deliciously in the rest room. She would take care of the rear, and he would take on the vanguard. They would move on to urgent news. Raising his head, the goblin asked what about him. Grinning, the girl asked to take on an important job for him and be their support. Raising his sword, Dobby said that he understood. The goblin is the most important. Lightning emanated from the hero and he thought that he would try a different attack strategy this time. Smoke appeared around him, then he began to swing his weapon. Simon closed his eyes, thinking that this would be different from what he had done before. Lightning was emitted from the axe, and he added that he could do it. Then the hero smirked slightly. It was written that the dormant blood in his body was reacting. It detected bloodless insects. The 9th level of bloodlust was obtained. The key to the fire insect queen's room was found in zone 1 of the 13th floor. All other missions were cancelled. The hidden mission, Harmonizer or Destroyer of Nature, was started. 500 achievement points were obtained. Putting her hand on his shoulder, the girl said that he should wait and not make the lightning weaker. Frowning, the hero thought that not making it weaker, she was telling him to increase the intensity. A discharge was emitted from his hands and he said that okay, then. Looking at the swarm, the hero thought that it was stronger, more consistent. Looking straight ahead, the hero shouted. A strong discharge appeared. Lightning bounced off each other. He stretched out his hand, thinking that he would do it again. Multiple discharges appeared. Gritting his teeth, the hero thought that it was not time yet. Gray smoke appeared, a loud scream was heard. A colored fog appeared. Running forward, the girl said that she thought they sorted this out, now they would hurry, to which he replied that it was good. Looking at the goblin, she added that he needed to hold his breath in the colored fog. Turning around, he asked what she was talking about. Looking down, the girl said that it was poison, they should not underestimate it, they would not waste their strength. Using a detoxification spell to weaken its power would be in vain. Inhaling, the hero asked what she meant by taking a deep breath. Hitting the hero, she said that this idiot. Turning around, Simon asked why she did that. Looking straight at him with a fierce look, she replied that no matter how many potions he drank, she didn't think it would make any difference, he should at least inhale it on purpose to increase his resistance to poisons. The hero asked again, to which she replied that yes, every time he passed through the mist, he should take a deep breath, to which he was surprised. The hero inhaled the poison deeply. Suddenly, he coughed. Looking at the girl, the protagonist said that it felt like concentrated smoke from almost 20 cigarettes, to which she replied that he should inhale harder to increase his resistance, and Dobby asked, "Cigarettes? What are they?" Looking away, the hero said that it was not for nutrition, poison, it was poison, and then thought that again he felt like he was missing something again. The hero thought that there were 2 types of insects here, fire and ice, so why was there only 1 queen? Frowning, he added that it also seemed strange that 2 people were needed to enter the floor, they really needed 2 people to clear this. Swinging his sword, the goblin shouted. Turning around, he asked what again, what was he thinking? Let him take care of himself, be careful. Looking straight ahead, the hero apologized and said that something was bothering him since then, asked that there really was only 1 insect queen. The girl asked him in surprise what he meant. Walking forward, the hero said that there were 2 types of insects here, fire and ice. Turning around, he added that moreover, 2 patrons were needed to enter this floor. If one type had a queen, then shouldn't the other type have one too? Putting her hand to her face, the girl said that it sounded plausible. Looking to the side, the hero asked that could this be related to what was said in the community earlier. As far as he knew, there was only 1 insect queen. The girl said that however, no matter how much she thought about it, she thought he was right. After listening to him, the probability that there could be 2 insect queens seemed high. Vanessa closed her eyes and said that damn, why didn't she think of that? She was also focused on the false information. It was written that they needed to survive the fight against the insects that would fill the forest. The remaining time was 2 hours and 47 minutes, and then the girl asked what they should do. They had already wasted too much time. Looking away, the protagonist said that he would go the other way. She and Dobby would continue moving in this direction and kill the insect queen. Holding the weapon in her hand, Vanessa said that yes, it was better this way, and the goblin said that after all, he thought about it. Turning around, Simon said that if there was 1 queen on one side, then there was a high probability that there was 1 on the other side too. Looking straight ahead, the girl replied that yes, statistically the probability of this is higher on the left side. If she senses something while moving, she will act according to her 6th sense. Handing over the keys, the hero said that it was good. First, let him hold the key from the fire insect. Running away, the hero said, well, then see you later. The queen of insects was killed. Now, all the bugs in the forest will begin to attack the conquerors regardless of time. It was said that it was necessary to survive the fight against insects that will fill the forest. The remaining time is 2 hours and 10 minutes. Looking up, the hero said that it seemed that Vanessa took care of the queen of one of the sides. Rushing forward, the hero added that he would also finish very quickly. Fire and ice insects appeared. A flash thundered in front of them. The hero ran straight. Suddenly he froze and exclaimed. Looking at the insect, he thought that this bug was the key. The hero raised his hand and shouted. Lightning flashed past his head. He stretched out his arms and thought, forward. A glowing key appeared. The hero rushed towards it. Taking it in his hand, Simon thought that he had the key. Frowning, the hero thought that now all that was left was to catch the queen. The hero ran into the cave, the task was written, the remaining time was 1 hour and 7 minutes. An icy gorge appeared. The hero said that for some reason it seemed as if it was getting colder. A glow appeared in the distance, and he said that if it was cold here, then it turned out that Vanessa had encountered the insect queen, right? The hero looked in confusion and thought that it was something that was flickering ahead. A creature appeared in front of him and he was surprised. Looking at the monster, he thought that it had found the queen. It was said that he inhaled the poison of the ice insect, successfully overcame the poison, gained resistance to level 1 ice poison. He inhaled the poison of the fire insect, successfully overcame the poison, gained resistance to level 5 fire poison, continued to inhale the poisonous mist but resisted, gained resistance to level 10 toxins. The conqueror partner killed the fire insect queen. The conqueror did not interfere personally. 300 achievement points will be added. The fire insect's strength weakened, while the ice insect's strength will be strengthened. Suddenly, the hero rushed forward and thought of a flash of lightning. He quickly bounced off the ground. Flying up, he swung at the queen. The heavenly shoes appeared. They give mastery of all leg movements. You can take a second step, leaning on empty space, agility +3, endurance +2. The queen exclaimed in surprise. The hero looked forward angrily. All insect queens have been killed. The insect's power is weakening. The hero held the insect queen core in his hand, this core containing concentrated venom from the ice insect queen. Handle with caution, excessive consumption can lead to death from hypothermia. Looking at it, the protagonist said that he would need to ask Vanessa about it later. A task appeared. The remaining time was 1 hour and 2 minutes. Frowning, the hero thought that he would accumulate achievement points in the remaining time. By the way, the rest of the group were fighting insects at the same time. Bruce sneezed loudly. Stretching out her hand forward, Molly healed the man. Looking straight ahead, she said that she told him not to hunt so recklessly. It was dangerous, he knew it. Winking, the man asked that she did not think this was normal because he had a responsible daughter, to which she replied that but still, let him not do it. The girl sighed, looking straight ahead. She waved her arms and shouted for treatment. The man said, shedding a tear, that he felt so confident that he didn't need to interfere. Angela fought the insects. The phrase was repeated. Suddenly, the insects rushed upward. They were hit by arrows. Looking away, Ethan said that he should be careful. Holding a bow in his hand, the guy said that the rear was clear. Looking at him, the girl asked him that he didn't think they worked well together, to which he replied that he had no desire to be recruited again. Congratulations appeared about conquering the 13th floor, the insect forest, calculating achievement points. The players were happy to know that they had never used shelters. The destruction of insects hid the mission of the nature harmonizer completed. The hero stood in the ice cave, 5,235 achievement points added. Total achievement points 16,922. Moving to the waiting room, the 13th floor of the test tower is complete. Entering the waiting room. The hero moved to the waiting room. The 14th floor of the test is a place where conquerors participate at the same time. The remaining time is 9 hours and 59 minutes before entering the 14th floor of the test tower. Please rest. Looking down, the protagonist asked that he had a good time with Vanessa. The goblin happily replied that a person, fire, he chopped insects. Raising his hands, Dobby told about the explosions. Pointing his finger forward, the hero asked that Vanessa showed her skills and said that however, let her go and take a shower, she looked sloppy, to which the goblin replied that he understood. Looking straight ahead, the hero said about the status window. It was written that Simon, Earthling, C66,432, Crossroads Guide, no affiliation, sponsor title first class divine seat, supreme creator of volatile thoughts, ownership rate 1.9 out of 100, strength 101.8, agility 101.0, endurance 99.3, magic power 66.1, skills lightning essence level 8, unwavering blood level 9, presence recognition level 4, electricity resistance level 5, fire resistance level 5, poison resistance level 9, cold resistance level 3. Looking at this, the protagonist said that fire resistance, poison resistance, and cold resistance had all increased significantly, and then asked why unwavering blood had increased. Putting his finger to his face, the protagonist asked that maybe it was not because bears didn't like honey. The girl smirked and asked if he was checking the status window by any chance. Looking at her, Simon replied that yes, he was just looking at him, why not? Vanessa said that she wanted him to go to the training room, so she was telling him about him, to which the hero asked what the training room was. He was planning to wash up and rest a bit. Why did he need training? Looking straight ahead, the girl said that new features were being added to the training room and the waiting room on the 14th floor. Let him check them out before going to the shower. Opening the doors, the hero asked that new features were being added. Okay, one moment. Congratulations were written on the board as a reward for conquering the 13th floor. 2 changes had occurred in the training room. The first was that the class of the training room would be determined by the rank on the leaderboard. The notification said that if he felt that this was not enough, he could change the rank of the training room for achievement points. The Conqueror Simon currently ranks first on the leaderboard. As a reward, the level of the training room would be upgraded to the highest rank. Simon asked in confusion, "What is it?" and that everything is the same. Then he wrote to Vanessa, "And why is everything the same, and shouldn't something have changed?" The girl replied that he has a sharp eye, and to wait a little, everything will change soon, then continued that this too, and she will not say anything until he enters the training room from the waiting room on the 14th floor. Simon replied that it seems that the system is really cruel. As expected, nothing is so easy. The renewal of the training room has begun. Something began to change. Changes were happening around. The hero said that this is beyond all expectations, isn't it? In the case of a high-class training room, conquerors can adjust the size of the room at their own discretion. At this stage, the limit becomes larger the higher the level of the conqueror. Smiling, the hero asked that he can make it even larger, said that it is not bad. The second combat training will be added to the training hall. Conquerors can use achievement points to recall combat situations from the past in the training hall. During this, the difficulty can be further controlled. The points that need to be given will be determined by the trial tower. He can increase his stats and skill levels through combat training. However, the increased speed will be much slower compared to conquering floors. If he wants to participate in combat training, let him just say simulated battle for cultivation. Throwing his hand back, the hero said that he was worried that the abilities would not level up as he expected on the floor, thank goodness. Picking up an axe, the hero asked if he should face the opponent they encountered on the 11th floor, simulated battle. A warning appeared that even during training, losing the battle may result in death and equipment may be damaged. Please be careful. The hero frowned and looked ahead. The weapon was glowing and he asked if that meant that not having enough equipment could lead to death. The protagonist told the girl about that thing, combat training, to which she asked, and he replied that it was said that it summoned past battles, but nothing about how they could lead to death. The girl said that it was not an illusion, the summoned opponents were actually real, asked if he remembered the bosses he had faced on the floors so far. 3 bosses appeared. The girl said that not all conquerors went up to the same floor, it was because they were divided into districts. The beast opened its eyes wide. 2 monsters appeared. The protagonist said to wait, then, to which the girl replied that usually there were more than a dozen bosses on one floor. A tall tower appeared, and she added that well, she did not know if they cloned them or used similar ones. Looking at the menu, the hero said that he understood, so they actually summoned these creatures to the training room. Looking straight, the girl replied that it was true. They summon these entities and recreate the conditions in the training room to resemble a real situation. Clenching his fist, the hero said that he understood, he would train a little and contact her again, to which she replied that it was good. Frowning, the hero thought that even if they and the opponents he had already defeated would not let down their guard, because in any situation there are always different variables. Looking down, the hero said that yes, who should he face? Looking straight, the hero asked that as expected, this guy would come, right? A monster appeared. The hero thought it was a miracle from the 11th floor, it was a reptilian guard. The reptilian screamed loudly. Looking at it, the hero asked that why is he not dark, can't use the shadow curtain. Putting down the axe, the hero said that then right now. Frowning, he added that he would use it for him. Clenching the dagger, the hero shouted about the shadow curtain. The scoreboard said that he had killed all the insect queens, completed the hidden mission nature harmonizer, all attributes increased by 1. Led to the extinction of extraterrestrial species that invaded the B35872 area. Opened a sector in the forest, a new path core in forest, opened on the 15th floor, earned additional achievement points. The voice shouted that the shadow curtain, the guy punched. The monster twisted his head. The hero swung and shouted that here. The monster screamed furiously. He fell to the ground and the protagonist lowered his weapon. Simon said that when he did it like this, it seemed somehow easy. He opened the doors, saying that he would not rush with the training and, instead, he would better ask Vanessa about the core. The hero was holding a sphere and telling the girl that he had defeated the insect queen and got the core, should he just eat it? The girl asked to wait a minute. Simon said that he would try it first then. Vanessa yelled no, stop. He frowned and said okay. The insect queen core, the core containing concentrated venom from the ice insect queen, should be handled with care. Excessive consumption can lead to death from hypothermia. The protagonist said that it was because of the warning to handle with care. The girl said no, it was not that dangerous to eat. The protagonist asked then why. Vanessa said that she also had a core, she would send it to him, he would eat it along with hers. The guy asked in surprise what to eat both together, and what was the point in that. Vanessa said if he didn't think the reward for the 13th floor was a bit modest compared to the challenge. A projection appeared on his hand. The hero thoughtfully replied that indeed, the reward was small compared to other floors, he just thought it was unique, but it wasn't. The girl said that it was true, he could achieve a better effect if he consumed them at the same time, and for a better effect, wouldn't it be a good idea to eat them all at once? The protagonist thought it would work in tandem, so that's why they were divided into fire and ice insects. The girl told the protagonist that she would just send him away, and that he should make sure they were eaten at the same time. Simon thanked Vanessa and looked at the spheres in front of him. He picked up the spheres and said that he needed to start improving. Simon put them in his mouth, saying that he would finish them off in one bite, like a real man. Ice and flame are neutralized. The neutralized poison enters the body through the blood vessels. The body becomes stronger and resistance to poisons increases. The status of a contender is confirmed. The absorption rate increases. Strength and agility increase by 2, endurance and mana by 3. Flame resistance level 7 is acquired. Cold resistance level 5 is acquired. Poison resistance level 13 is acquired. Thanks to combat training, strength, agility and endurance have increased by 0.2, and mana has increased by 0.6. Mastered the axe technique level 3. Welcome to the 14th floor of the test tower, the defense battle for the Drina River. The 14th floor of the test tower is where all the conquerors participate in the process. Planet B35,872, the Saboran region, was under attack. Half of the continent has already fallen. The surviving Saboran are preparing for their last battle fortress under the flag of the Dior Empire. Safely escort the surviving Saboran from the western part of the empire to the Pagaran fortress. A defensive line was created around the Drina River. The board said that he must defend the Drina defensive line for the allotted time, or if he can't, let him survive. The remaining time is 11 hours and 59 minutes. The hero stood next to Dobby. He said seriously that the next floor has already begun. Dobby shouted, which made the protagonist look over there and point forward. A huge army stood across the river. Monsters held weapons in their hands. Screaming creatures flew in the air. They flew forward angrily. Simon said that they should prepare. Someone behind him shouted that reinforcements sent by the gods had arrived. The 566th Bomber Division would arrive in 5 hours. The Night Witches had arrived. It was Monica, the commander of the eastern region of the Dior Empire and the commander-in-chief of the Drina defense line. She shouted to hold out until then. All troops to prepare for battle. The girl continued that in the name of the shadows and the emperor, all troops, let them move to the front line of the Drina River. Someone blew a bugle. The man shouted for everyone to advance. The army held weapons in their hands. The protagonist said that the imperial army had more troops than expected, but then he continued, looking at the monsters, that it seemed that the enemies were at least 7 times more. Vanessa replied that it looked like an ordeal. Ethan said seriously that in fact, the number of conquerors had significantly decreased, and that the number of the imperial army was about 100,000, when the conquerors were 300,000. Molly said fearfully that originally there were about 1 million people here. Bruce told his daughter that now was not the time for empty talk. A voice said that the enemies would be here soon. Someone in the crowd asked what they should do. The protagonist turned around. The voices shouted that if he was the commander of the Legion, he should explain to them how to fight, where the leader of the group was, and that he was going to take responsibility if they died. Simon frowned and thought that everyone looked lost, and that he should first settle this misunderstanding. He put his hand to his neck, coughed. Then he shouted to the conquerors that it was Simon. Then he continued, so that they don't panic, they need to pull themselves together. This is a test war. Let them pull themselves together and survive. They must survive and go up to the 15th floor together, and for everyone to prepare for battle. Everyone was saying what was going on. Who was he to go up? Simon. What did he say? It makes sense. Let them all gather together and prepare for battle. Simon frowned and shouted to the warriors that in the vanguard, among the mages, archers and priests who would engage in close combat, a step forward and that the rest retreat to the rear. The voice shouted for the people involved in close combat to move forward, the rest quickly retreat back. Vanessa shouted that the priests and archers do not flock together, disperse, they need to control the entire front line, and that the mages keep their distance and be attentive, better place the targets one by one. Someone said that it was the goddess Vanessa, and that the goddess Vanessa had spoken. Someone shouted to follow the goddess of magic, Vanessa. The goddess Vanessa told them to arrange everyone differently depending on their specialization. The hero looked ahead. The monsters began to advance. The reptilian soldier has a strong body and does not get tired even after long marches and battles. According to racial characteristics, they can move freely underwater, and their skin produces a weak poison. Under the crimson light of the moon, more than 1.5 kilometers away, on the opposite bank of the Drina River, both the conquerors and the imperial troops were preparing to face the enemy. The name Cullen sounded, echoing many times. The monsters shouted the name. Then the reptilian shouted that the ruler of the 9 heavens, Cullen, is with him. They shouted that in the name of Kelvin. They kept shouting in the name of Kelvin and to go forward. Dobby shouted angrily that the attack, when will he do it? The hero answered no, not now. The monsters began to enter the water. The archers pulled back their bowstrings. The lizards also raised their bows up. Ethan said that God asks him to protect them this time. The protagonist shouted fire. Monica shouted fire. The lizard shouted attack. The monsters ran forward. Arrows flew at the army. Vanessa shouted for the soldiers to deploy a protective shield at a height of 50 meters. The voice shouted to deploy a protective shield at a height of 50 meters. The arrows hit the protective shield. The lizards screamed. The hero thought that although they managed to confuse them, they were still in a significant minority. There are reptilians in the water. There are probably wyverns in the sky. The girl shouted that there was a wyvern 20 meters to arrival. Focus on the wyverns. The hero raised his hand. He swung his weapon and shouted for everyone to retreat from the riverbank. Then he continued to hurry up. A moment later, the protagonist delivered a crushing blow. An energy wave swirled in space. Everything around began to shine. The lizards screamed in pain. They opened their mouths. The glove of the underworld, accumulating magic, high-class gloves created in the underworld. The more it kills, the more mana it accumulates, grows depending on the owner's level. All abilities +2. The girl opened her mouth in bewilderment. She asked what just happened. Then she cried, screaming that God helped them. He helped them. Monica asked in shock who this guy was. Monsters were flying at them from above. Vanessa frowned. Then she shouted, wyverns, focus on wyverns. The voice said to shoot down wyverns, focus on wyverns. Bright lights flashed in the sky. Wyverns screamed. Dobby said that Simon, the reptilians, continue to fall, try to get up. The hero replied not to worry and that his magic power was stronger than before. He swung his fist. Bright lightning flew into the sky. The monsters screamed furiously. One of them shouted that it was necessary to retreat, all troops retreat, and to move away from the river bank. The reptilians beat the drums. Simon looked at what was happening. He thought with a smile that they really did not dare to cross the border anymore. Vanessa shouted to the magicians to get ready, the enemies were there, and to take their positions. The board said to defend the Drina line for the allotted time, or if they couldn't, then let them survive for the remaining time of 8 hours and 0 minutes. The river sparkled between the armies. Dobby said happily that the enemy, with Vanessa, Simon, the enemy, in the water, couldn't come any closer. Bruce said that was right and that thanks to those two the enemy didn't even dare come closer. The goblin said that was right. Then he said happily that they would win, wouldn't they? The man shouted no, Dobby, and covered his mouth. He said that if he kept saying things like that, something flew through the air. The man started crying and said that it was too late. That was what they called a cliché. The girl shouted for everyone to stay alert. She went on that now it had really started. People's mouths were open. Something appeared in the sky. People were shocked and said, what the hell, what was it? Molly called her father. Monica looked down and said why God was putting them through this. Simon was screaming at them not to despair. He clenched his fist. The hero was screaming furiously that he would figure this out somehow and for everyone to have hope. The voices were saying that yes, if it was Simon, he could do anything to get them to pull themselves together and not to lose heart. The boy was screaming that they too could survive in this hell. Simon thought he said it to calm the others down, but 4 hours had passed since the defensive battle for the Drina River stronghold had begun. The black dragon Sarkaj appeared, an ancient dragon that had lived for thousands of years. His scales as strong as some of the metals known in the universe. His power immeasurable, a master of magic, he spewed out a powerful and poisonous flame breath. The hero frowned and wondered if they could really win. The wyvern screamed. Bruce said that he had flown somewhere else. Molly replied that thank goodness. The protagonist asked where he was going and that he had a bad feeling about this. The river flowed steadily. Then it began to recede from the shore. A moment later it was gone. Simon exclaimed that the Drina River and thought that it had dried up. The lizard shouted that for Cullen, for Thor, and that all troops to attack. The lizard stood with weapons. The accumulated lightning is inside the body. The magic power is increased by 3. The essence of lightning level 9 is obtained. The monsters were moving forward. Monica shouted that the shadow of the Exodus will protect them. The spearmen full speed ahead. The man shouted that the spearmen are moving forward. Vanessa called the protagonist and said that she would go from the rear, as planned. The hero replied that it was good. They shouted to him that they would take care of the warriors who had advanced. The hero shouted that it was good. The protagonist shouted to move forward with the Saborans to the front line. The soldiers shouted that to the front line, forward to the front line. The voice said to start casting fire magic. The shield glowed brightly. Fireballs flew at the reptiles. The voice continued to not let them get close to them. The archers aimed at the wyverns. The enemy's weak point is the heart between the breathing bag under the chin and the fourth rib. Ethan seriously answered that he understood. Vanessa yelled angrily that it was fire. The arrows flew forward rapidly. The wyverns screamed in pain. Bruce called the protagonist and asked where he was running. The hero replied not to follow him and to stay put. Simon turned around and yelled to help the commander's corps defend the front line. The man replied that it was okay. The hero stopped and looked up. Then he jumped high. He swung his arm and thought, let's start with lightning. A bright lightning exploded near the reptiles. They screamed in pain. The reptilian said that this was the guy who appeared earlier and what he was doing. Then he screamed. In his thoughts, there was a shadow curtain next. The monsters screamed loudly. Devastating explosions were everywhere. Simon said that the shadow curtain was removed. He smiled and said that he, guys, will not let them advance. The board said to defend the Drina River defense line in the allotted time or, if they couldn't, survive. Time remaining was 7 hours and 0 minutes. The witches were flying on brooms. Monica frowned and shouted that the 588th Night Witch Bomber Squadron had finally arrived and to push them back. Voices shouted that the Bomber Battalion had arrived, the Night Witch Brigade, and that this Night Witch Brigade. The wyverns screamed in the sky. The witches laughed. Then one of them said that the Night Witches were the best. She spread her arms and said that they were stupid idiots. They threw bombs at them, telling them to eat it and die. Explosions were heard everywhere. Simon said that these witches had excellent ammunition. Bruce asked excitedly when the protagonist had returned. The hero replied that he had come back because he thought he would come under fire from the brigade, and now he needed to go to the river. Dobby said, puzzled, the river, where was he going? The protagonist said that he had to go upstream because the black dragon had flown there. Dobby sadly replied, the river. Dobby was grateful to him for the time he had spent with him, and that he should not forget Dobby. Simon angrily said that he was not going to die, and hit the goblin on the head. Then he suggested finishing quickly and eating a steak. Dobby happily asked again about the steak. The goblin turned around at the scream. The hero said that he was not happy that he was saving him from problems like that. The dragon screamed angrily. He opened his mouth and spewed fire. The fire began to incinerate people. The witch screamed that the wyverns had suddenly become faster. The monster was flying towards the witch, 588th Bomber Brigade, Night Witch. The protagonist cut the monster with lightning. He frowned and called the witch. Simon sat on the broom to the witch. She asked who he was and how he got there at all, how he knew her name. The hero replied that he would explain later and asked to fly to the dragon first. The witch asked again in shock. Then she exclaimed that she planned to die. The dragon opened its mouth. He single-handedly broke into the center of the enemy army and changed the course of the battle. The hidden mission of the army of one man was completed. All abilities are increased by 2. He receives Combat Concentration level 19, Natural Healing level 10, Shadow Curtain level 4. The witch turned to the guy and said that no, what is he talking about, and he is crazy. The hero replied that they must do everything to win the war, and that he thinks there is a solution. The girl said she thought there was, the guy said he did. Then he went on to say that she knew there was no such hope, so maybe she had some kind of clear strategy. The witch looked down and said that yes, with the dragon's appearance the situation had already changed. The river's defense lines would soon collapse. Then she shouted that it was good and suggested trying. She said with tears in her eyes that it was better to bet on even a weak hope. The wyverns screamed in the air. The witch shouted to hold on tight. The broom began to shine. They circled the monsters. The guy told the witch with a smile that she had just been truly amazing. She replied that she knew. Then she went on to say that however the problem was that there was still a lot to fix. The hero raised his weapon and said that everything was fine, he would take care of the rest. Lightning struck the monsters. They began to fall down. The protagonist shouted for the dragon to look at him. The dragon's eyes widened. The wyverns flew at the protagonist. He pointed his weapon at his side. A voice told them to stop. The dragon hovered in front of the witch. They flew right up to its mouth. The girl said in fear that she was crazy if she was thinking about dealing with a dragon, the shadow of the end, she would soon have it. Simon told the witch that he would personally deal with everything. The protagonist called the dragon and asked if he could see his earring. The dragon began to stutter. The hero continued that he received it after killing the parasite from the head of the black dragon Hercust, the emblem of the scale of the black dragon. An earring given to a man by the black dragon Hercust. When meeting other types of dragons, there is a chance that they will show friendship. The dragon exhaled steam. Then he said that the disease was caused by the parasite. Simon told him that yes, after removing it, he was able to use simple magic again. The dragon breathed fire. The monster replied that he understood. The protagonist continued that however, he had no choice but to kill the guards to save Hercust. He thought in shock that this was something he should not say. The dragon said that well, this was part of the progress in placement. Hercust was in the tower to protect him. There was no need for it now. The hero said that he was being placed in the tower and that this was more than just a routine investigation. The dragon said that if Hercust was safe, then perhaps he had no need to stay here any longer. He closed his eyes and continued that his own kind might be among the people he had killed, and that he was sorry that as he grew older he had become less able to recognize his allies. Simon replied that it seemed he had not done it of his own free will, so it was okay. The dragon said that verbal apologies might not be enough, so something glowed in the air. A stone was approaching the hero's ear. He put on the second earring, the emblem of the scale of the black dragon Sarkaj. The probability of meeting dragons that are friendly increases significantly. Gives a magical connection with Sarkaj, resistance to poison level +5, resistance to fire level +3, attributes increased by 1. The protagonist thanked him. The dragon replied that he needed to restore the battlefield that he had ruined, and lastly, asked his name. The hero replied that his name was Simon. The dragon said that he would not forget and let him wait for the day when they would meet again, asked to survive. He opened his mouth wide. The witch, shocked, said that he, the dragon, would really just fly away. Simon replied that he told her to believe him. The girl thanked him with tears. The guy said with a smile that he just did what he had to. The water rose into the air. The hero opened his mouth and screamed, which means restoring the past battlefield. Simon shouted to retreat. Everyone retreated. The river returns. Bruce asked again and shouted for everyone to turn back and retreat. Monica shouted for everyone to retreat. The river was returning to its place. The water was approaching the warriors. The waves rose. The hero lowered his head and said that this was a misunderstanding. Then he said, looking at what was happening, that it was like this, restoration. The water was swirling, restoration meant. People fell into the river. Monica frowned and shouted for all forces to rush towards the remaining enemies. The warriors screamed. The river returned to its place. Vanessa told the hero with a smile that it was a good job. The guy replied that she was also good. Then he shouted to the people that they were great. They answered that he tried just as hard and that the difference in rank was felt. Simon replied that no, it was thanks to everyone's coordinated work. Simon told Vanessa that by the way. He continued that the first attempt went well, didn't it, and that even now the circumstances were terrible. The girl replied that everything was new then and they lacked knowledge. The hero said that in other words, countless lives were sacrificed. The girl said that she was Monica, the commander of the western region of the Dior Empire, and asked if she could inquire about their esteemed person. He had completed the hidden mission of the Black Dragon, He had completed the hidden mission of saving the 588th Bomber Brigade of the Night Witches. The 588th Bomber Brigade will appear on the 16th floor. 1,500 achievement points have been added. The hero said that he was Simon. The girl bowed and said that it was an honor to fight shoulder to shoulder with him. She continued that this battle for the front line actually felt hopeless. If it weren't for him, they would all have died. The boy replied that she flattered him and thought that since she was from this world, should he ask her about the dagger. Shark Lung Dagger, unique class, imitation dagger, can be split into 2, dexterity +2, automatic defense against all kinds of physical attacks, gains Shadow Veil level 1, items appeared in front of him. Simon asked if they have any information about the Shadow of the End. The girl replied thoughtfully that the Shadow of the End, before becoming a god, it was called Shark Lung, but she doesn't know anything else. The hero said he understood and thanked her. Monica said that by the way, she had heard that he used the power of shadows and asked that he had received a blessing from the Shadow of the End. Simon said that he had never received anything from the Shadow of the End and thought that she really didn't know anything else about it. He continued that until it becomes clear what kind of dagger he has, it definitely has a connection to the Shadow of the End. The girl said that indeed, the saint said that the god supporters were practitioners from another world, and that he probably didn't believe in the same god as them, didn't he? He thought, the saint, he wanted to know more details, but he would wait for now. The hero said that the 588th Bomber Brigade had already departed, but what about the commander's corps? He continued that the order that was given was for them to defend the front lines. Even their emperor probably didn't believe that they would return victorious. The girl said that thanks to their efforts, they had won, so now they were planning to return to the fortress and fight from there. The boy replied that he understood. Monica said that she heard that the god supporters couldn't stay here for long and asked if he would return to his home world. The boy said that perhaps it would, to which he was told that they would meet again at the fortress as had been foretold, and until then she should take care of him. They shook hands and the hero said that he hoped she would return to the fortress safely. Monica thanked him. She walked away. The hero watched her go. He pursed his lips. Simon looked straight ahead. Someone was carrying fallen soldiers. The boy was carrying a soldier on his shoulder. The man was holding a girl in his arms. Dobby was walking next to Molly and Bruce. The hero walked straight ahead. The wind blew in his face. The board read congratulations and that he had conquered the 14th floor of the Drina River Challenge Tower. A stunning victory that would overcome both the quantitative and skill gaps. 18,932 achievement points had been added. The total was 34,354. Moving to the waiting room, the remaining time was 9 hours and 59 minutes until entering the 15th floor of the Drina River Challenge Tower, and let him rest. Many sacrifices had been made to protect the Drina River. Until now, he thought that he had developed enough thanks to training, but this was because he had never lost people before, even though they had won. He could not immerse himself in the feeling of victory. There was still a long way to go. The hero said with a smile that it was not only him. Dobby said that the water, what was he looking at, that these days, he had enough. The protagonist asked when Dobby had time to take a bath. The goblin replied that he had just washed himself, he was weird, and to go and take a shower. Simon asked what he meant by weird. The goblin replied that he was dirty, to get in the bath. Then he shouted furiously that he always told him to wash up quickly, that he stunk too, and to go wash up. The hero replied that he understood. Then he said with a smile that he had left the steak on the table. Dobby said the word steak enthusiastically. On Vanessa's advice, he wrote a post on the community feed. It said that there were more victims on the 14th floor than expected. As a result, the most obituaries were written. He did not know who would pass through the tower and leave later. But until then, the hero clenched his hand. He simply pledged to do everything in his power and protect as many people as possible. The hero frowned. Vanessa pressed her lips angrily. For this, the first task was to unite the hearts of most of the conquerors. Simon told the girl what he posted. Vanessa replied that he was doing well. The guy said that she did too. Bruce was polishing his weapon. Molly looked at the board sadly. Ethan looked at the notification. It said that, "Dear conquerors, this is Simon. The brutal war and trials against forces more than twice their size, including dragons, were really difficult." The reason he posted this to the community is because he knows that there are many rumors about his high rank and abnormal power. So he would like to take this opportunity to tell them the truth. Finally, he hopes that there will be no more casualties in the future. He will also try harder. So, he proposed not to hesitate and overcome this together. Welcome to the 15th floor, the path to the fortress. The board said to follow the arrow in the sky to Pogoran Fortress. The enemy armies will attack from directions not indicated by the arrows. The team's rank is determined by its total points. Achievement points will be awarded accordingly and will benefit him on the 16th floor. It was written to follow the arrow to Pogoran Fortress. The remaining time is 7 hours 59 minutes. The hero looked ahead. Ethan and Vanessa looked at him. Bruce and Molly stood next to him. Dobby looked up. They were all standing near the abyss. Someone called the hero. He turned around. Everyone was looking at him. Simon said, "Well then." Then he suggested that they begin moving up the floor. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.